Calling this wooden dummy a wooden is an understatement. No one can destroy it in under 10 strikes because in this game, real-world physique and abilities directly affect in-game characters. Millions of players have tried their best, and even elite national athletes have failed this challenge. Now everyone believes it is nearly impossible to complete. Still, many players continue to try because the reward is a 50 million won exclusive game capsule along with 5 points added to all ability stats. Just then the final challenger steps forward from the crowd, the so-called strongest man alive on Earth, a figure who looks more like a monster than a human. Rumor has it he can kill a black bear with his bare hands. He gathers all his strength and throws a powerful punch at the dummy. The dummy is knocked back yet remains completely unharmed. Even the game developers secretly hope he succeeds because if he fails, it could lead to massive dissatisfaction and a flood of negative feedback. Unfortunately, even this giant of a man fails to break the dummy and can only scream in frustration. Then suddenly a random man steps forward from the crowd. He looks completely ordinary, so plain that no one believes he has any chance, especially with the cheap-looking sword in his hand. Yet in a single motion he slices the wooden dummy clean in half, instantly completing the challenge. Even the developers are left in shock, but soon they notice something unusual. The sword he used is not ordinary at all. It is an epic-grade weapon known as Radiant Light, something that should be impossible to obtain in the beginner area. This raises one question: who is he and how did he get that sword? His name is Hyun-soo, the best blacksmith in the world, and the creator of that very weapon. 1 month earlier, Hyun-soo visits his friend Kim Ji-hoon at a Seoul hospital lobby, the same place where his father has remained in a coma for years. Kim Ji-hoon finds it ridiculous that people still cling to the hope of breaking the wooden dummy. He understands that raw strength alone will never be enough. Suddenly, Hyun-soo arrives, clearly annoyed after being called during the day. Kim Ji-hoon explains that he could not meet in the evening because of work. Getting straight to the point, Hyun-soo asks what he wants. Kim Ji-hoon jokes about Hyun-soo's heavy clothing, asking if he is not overheating. Our protagonist snaps back with a threat, forcing an instant apology. Without wasting time, Kim Ji-hoon asks if Hyun-soo knows about the game Ares. He explains that it is the most popular game of the era, powered by advanced AI. He brings up a special beginner event that no one has managed to complete. The reward is a VVIP gaming capsule worth 50 million won. Hyun-soo questions the point since countless people have already failed and admits he does not even play games. Kim Ji-hoon agrees that it is difficult but insists it is not impossible. He firmly believes that when it comes to breaking the wooden dummy, Hyun-soo is the only one capable of doing it. Leading him to another room, Kim Ji-hoon reveals several gaming capsules. He proudly announces that he bought a standard Ares capsule worth 10 million won specifically for him. Hyun-soo is shocked by the cost, nearly losing his composure. His friend argues that it is a worthy investment, explaining that players can earn rewards and exchange them for real money. Kim Ji-hoon urges him to enter the game and give it a try. Hyun-soo immediately asks where he got the money, but the question is brushed aside as his friend focuses on potential profit. Skeptical Hyun-soo questions whether there is any guarantee of success and calls the idea insane. Kim Ji-hoon stands firm, insisting that Hyun-soo truly has a chance. Demanding an explanation, Hyun-soo asks where this confidence comes from. That is when Kim Ji-hoon reveals the truth. The blacksmith class exists inside Ares. He points out Hyun-soo's true identity as the heir of a world-renowned master craftsman. He believes the wooden dummy stands no chance against his skills. At that moment, Hyun-soo reveals the scar left by his past accident. He tells his friend that he has not been the same since that day. Memories of the fire begin to resurface. The tragedy took everything from him. He barely survived while his father never woke up. The overwhelming medical bills crushed their family, leaving him no choice but to work manual labor for years. Following his father's path for 10 long years, Hyun-soo eventually had to give it up. He confesses that his right arm has been useless ever since the accident. Even basic labor is difficult, let alone blacksmithing. He insists that he will handle his own problems and demands the return of the capsule. Calling his friend a fool for wasting money, he walks away toward his part-time job. Kim Ji-hoon shouts after him, calling him the real fool. He asks how long Hyun-soo plans to keep suffering under hospital bills. He questions whether he intends to leave his body in that broken state forever. He insists that the game could change everything. Pointing out that the treatment would cost nearly 3 billion won, he begs him not to give up. Swearing to take responsibility for the 10 million won, Kim Ji-hoon pleads with him to try just once. The memory of the fire flashes through Hyun-soo's mind once again. Later at a construction site, he struggles to focus as his thoughts are overwhelmed by his friend's words. As he works, the sound of metal echoes in his heart, awakening deep nostalgia. Drawn by that feeling, he finds himself returning to the room with the gaming capsules, believing that the sound of metal guided him there, and remembering his friend's encouragement, he finally makes his decision. Hyun-soo chooses to enter the game. Silently, he promises his father that he will hear that sound again. The moment he logs in, system messages welcome him to Ares. He selects the nickname Hyun-soo. During character customization, the system analyzes his body and detects the scar. It asks whether he wishes to keep this appearance, and he agrees without hesitation. The process ends and he enters the game world. Immediately, he notices something unbelievable. The scar on his face has disappeared and the strength in his right arm has fully returned. Filled with determination, he resolves to work hard and repay the 10 million won debt. He is randomly summoned to the beginner zone in the barren region. Arriving at Ren's blacksmith workshop, he steps inside and sees an old blacksmith struggling desperately. The man declares he will forge a sword superior to all others, yet every strike is filled with frustration. Unable to watch any longer, Hyun-soo points out that the method is completely wrong. The blacksmith is stunned and asks him to repeat what he just said. Hyun-soo calmly repeats that the current method is flawed, though admitting it is none of his business. Hyun-soo says he could not stand by and watch a craftsman fail so badly. With nothing to lose, he speaks his mind without hesitation. The blacksmith throws him a hammer and challenges him to prove it. He warns that he will be watching closely like a hawk. This is exactly what Hyun-soo wanted, since he intended to ask for access to the workshop. He sets one condition. If he succeeds, he keeps the sword he creates. In return, he promises to show the blacksmith something truly extraordinary. The old man calls him arrogant but admits he likes his confidence. Still, he warns that failure will come with a heavy price. Hyun-soo accepts without hesitation. It has been 3 years since he last held a hammer. Despite his confidence, he wonders if he has grown rusty. But the moment he strikes the metal, his muscle memory awakens. Familiar sensations flood his body and his confidence surges instantly. He feels true happiness as he returns to his craft. The blacksmith watches closely, at first dismissing him as a beginner. However, it does not take long before he realizes that Hyun-soo's form is solid. Even so, he believes that a novice will eventually hit a limit. In this world, only results matter. The blacksmith assumes the effort is pointless until something unbelievable happens. He witnesses Hyun-soo using an advanced technique to remove impurities from the metal. The sight leaves him completely stunned, wondering why he never thought of it himself. Suspicious, he activates his special skill to analyze the steel. The result shocks him beyond belief. The metal has jumped from grade D to grade C in an instant. At that moment, he realizes that this young man is truly exceptional. Time passes and the blacksmith eventually falls asleep. By dawn, Hyun-soo finally completes his work. A system message appears announcing steel grade B. The blacksmith wakes up speechless at what stands before him. He has never seen anyone reach grade B without using special game skills, yet our hero refuses to stop. With growing disbelief, the old man realizes Hyun-soo is aiming even higher. As exhaustion sets in, the impressed blacksmith steps in to help. Working together, they finally finish refining the metal. Staring in awe, they witness the result, a graded ingot capable of forging a rare grade sword. The blacksmith admits that in all his years he has never seen anyone create a magic grade item, let alone a rare one. Excited, he tells Hyun-soo that together they can craft a one-of-a-kind weapon. Keeping things grounded, our protagonist insists it is too early to celebrate. He reminds him that they still need to finish the handle and polish the blade. Laughing, the blacksmith admits he has never met anyone quite like Hyun-soo. Calmly, our boy replies that he has been obsessed with blacksmithing since childhood, suggesting another challenge. The blacksmith proposes forging the sword again using new material. Reaching for something precious, he reveals a large gleaming piece of mithril. He explains it as a family heirloom passed down through generations. Surprised, Hyun-soo asks why he is being trusted with something so valuable. The old man answers that he has learned so much just by watching him. Wanting to see greatness, he hopes to witness what a true master can create. Thrilled by the opportunity, Hyun-soo eagerly accepts the challenge. Despite the risk, he cannot resist working with such legendary metal. Hesitantly, the blacksmith asks if he can call Hyun-soo master. Immediately shutting it down, our hero threatens to quit if he hears that again. Quickly agreeing, the old man promises to drop the title. 1 month later, the legendary sword Daylight is finally complete. It boasts incredible attack power and stats never before seen in the beginner zone. Meanwhile, inside the management center, developers panic over a strange anomaly. A level 1 player has caused something completely abnormal. The team leader is impressed, but a colleague reminds him of Hyun-soo's request for secrecy. Understanding this, he assumes there must be personal reasons behind it. Checking the system, the team leader asks for Hyun-soo's current location. His colleague reports that he has entered the hunting training center. Inside the facility, a trainer named Relson greets him with clear disdain. Warning him seriously, Relson explains that real monsters appear there. He mocks the idea of a level 1 player surviving even a moment. Telling him to leave, Relson suggests he go hunt rabbits instead. Confident in his hidden stats, Hyun-soo refuses to waste time. Reluctantly, the trainer allows him to try and tells him to choose a practice sword. Rejecting the offer, Hyun-soo declares he will use his own weapon. In truth, he spent an entire month grinding in the beginner zone, a place most players finish within 30 minutes. Yet that time was not wasted as his basic stats skyrocketed. On top of that, he now wields the only epic grade sword in the entire area. The most shocking part is that Hyun-soo is still level 1 without even choosing a class. Meanwhile, team leader Kim Taek grows anxious over this strange situation. He wonders if they should let the super AI Ares handle everything. A high-ranking executive simply smiles, knowing a legendary class awaits the boy. Back in the training ground, Relson laughs at the idea of a self-made sword. He belittles blacksmithing, calling it a useless profession. As the test begins, he insists that skill matters more than any weapon. Mocking Hyun-soo, he further lowers his affinity with him. Used to this treatment, Hyun-soo remains unfazed. In reality, his dream has always been dismissed as worthless. Yet inside Ares, he feels his efforts might finally pay off. Asking calmly, he inquires about the strongest swordsman trained there. Then boldly, he demands the hardest trial available. Angered by the arrogance, Relson still acknowledges his courage. Provoked, he agrees to a special trial reserved for the chosen few. Leading him away, he explains that the current record stops at stage 3. Summoning a level 6 swift goblin, he warns failure means a week-long ban. Ignoring the warning, Hyunso asks if that is truly the limit, declaring confidently, he says he will clear every stage. Insulted, Relson escalates things by summoning the final stage monster. A level 15 mad goblin appears, radiating overwhelming danger. Few have passed the third stage, and none have cleared the fourth. The battle erupts instantly as the goblin attacks ferociously. Yet Hyunso dodges with precision like a seasoned fighter. Understanding weapons deeply, he senses the power within his blade. Activating Daylight Skill Durable Sword, he boosts his physical defense. The weapon surges with energy as he declares its superiority. With a single strike, he eliminates the swift goblin instantly. Suddenly, another goblin ambushes him, landing a heavy hit. Relson assumes the fight is over after witnessing a critical strike. To everyone's shock, Hyunso remains standing with most of his health intact. He explains that endless forging increased his strength and vitality. Warning him, Relson says the real nightmare is just beginning. The mad goblin unleashes thorns of madness, causing intense dizziness. Though impressed, Relson believes Hyunso has reached his limit. Steadying himself, our hero places full trust in his weapon. Activating Daylight passive skill Swift Blade, his attack speed skyrockets. Launching a barrage of strikes, he closes the gap between levels. Watching from afar, the developers are losing their minds. With a final decisive blow, Hyunso defeats all remaining enemies. Stunned, Relson shouts that such a feat is impossible. He praises Hyunso, realizing every move maximizes the sword's potential. Assuming experience, he guesses Hyunso must be trained in swordsmanship. Calmly, Hyunso replies that he learned only one principle. A true blacksmith must be able to wield the weapons he creates. Noticing the scars and muscles, Relson sees proof of relentless effort. Realizing the truth, he apologizes sincerely for his earlier behavior. Respecting his talent, Relson suggests he become a Mad Lord. A system window appears, offering a legendary class change quest. Meanwhile, the developers panic at the appearance of this class. It surpasses even epic rankings, instantly making Hyunso a VIP user. The team leader realizes there is no turning back now. Such a class would make him a protector of the world. Back in the game, Relson urges him to accept the offer. Promising power, he claims Hyunso could rule among knights. However, our protagonist firmly rejects the proposal, declaring proudly he is a blacksmith, not a knight. Everyone both in-game and outside is left speechless. Relson laughs in admiration, calling Hyunso persistence incredible. Our hero reflects that he never thought he would wield a hammer again, but here his life as a blacksmith is finally restarting. Relson accepts his decision without hesitation. He hands over a recommendation letter for a hidden quest, along with a piece of rusty armor once worn by a mad master. He encourages Hyunso to achieve what others could not. Our protagonist promises to give it his all. Meanwhile, the developers observe everything closely. They agree that Hyunso has overcome his greatest crisis and that his potential is beyond normal limits. Now his journey to become the god of blacksmithing truly begins. System messages flood the screen non-stop, announcing the end of the tutorial and the start of the main quest. The real game is finally about to begin, but before he can even take his next step, everything suddenly cuts out. He is forcefully logged out of the game. Back in reality, Hyunso is faced with harsh truth. Gas bills and hospital fees have drained everything he has. His bank account is barely holding on. He realizes his top priority is survival. Keeping a roof over his family head comes first. At that moment, Kim Ji-hoon calls him. He asks if Hyunso finished the training zone. Hyunso replies that he just reached the village. Kim Ji-hoon immediately gets excited. He tells him to go straight to the auction house, explaining that gold inside the game equals real money. He admits this opportunity is the reason he brought Hyunso into Ares. Before ending the call, he says something meaningful. He has never seen swords better than the ones Hyunso and his father made. With the VIP capsule high synchronization, the results will be insane. He urges him to flood the world with his creations. Hyunso feels a deep sense of gratitude hearing this. After the call, he decides to fully commit to crafting and quests. He understands that stamina management will decide everything. To prepare himself, he starts training his body in reality. He quickly realizes something important. Game fatigue is nothing compared to real blacksmithing labor. The physical strain in real life is far more brutal. As he runs, he silently promises his father he will endure this path. Returning to Ares, he immediately heads to the auction house. He creates his own shop and names it Hyun's Forge. After setting up the shop, the system grants remote access to auctions. He selects a prototype sword he crafted earlier. This becomes Hyun's first sword, and it is already a rare grade weapon. Similar weapons usually sell for around 70 gold, but he boldly lists his for 100 gold instead, planning to explore while waiting for results. Suddenly, the auction board begins to explode with activity. Players notice the strange new listing immediately. The price begins climbing at an insane speed. Within moments, it surpasses 300 gold pieces. This sudden surge attracts attention from the Golden Shield Guild. One member rushes to inform the vice captain. He explains that the creator is level 1 with no class, yet managed to create a high-tier weapon from basic materials. The weapon even includes an enhancement option. The vice captain is instantly impressed by this detail. Using low-grade materials normally lowers enhancement success rates, which means that creators skillfully reduce costs while maintaining quality. He determines that the weapon is viable until level 50. Realizing the value of such talent, he decides to buy it immediately. Meanwhile, Hyunso doubts whether his item will even sell. Then suddenly, a system notification appears. Hyunso's first sword has been sold. He is shocked by how fast it happened. Checking the result, he sees the final price, 1080 gold pieces, far beyond his expectations. Quickly calculating, he realizes it equals over 1,000,000 Korean won. Joy and disbelief overwhelm him instantly. He then discovers the buyer is the Golden Shield Guild. Soon after, he receives a direct message. They offer him an exclusive contract or a guild position. Checking their profile, he sees 78,000 followers. He understands gaining followers is harder than leveling, and more followers means more profit. Looking at his own shop, he sees only 82 followers. Yet his inbox is overflowing with offers from other guilds. At that moment, he realizes something important. Ares is a paradise for blacksmiths. Even if he is nothing in reality, he has value here, because skill is measured through data, not status. Despite all offers, he decides not to join any guild yet. He chooses to prove himself alone first. With that resolve, he heads to the Lord Castle. Inside, Lord Burns is overwhelmed with stress. He discusses the situation with his advisor, Bell. The Lord questions if repairing the artifact is even possible. Bell explains failure would destroy it forever. He insists they need the greatest expert on the continent, but that expert refuses all contact. The Lord feels completely helpless. He cannot leave his territory to seek help, especially since the bow is his father's only legacy. But the truth behind Bell is far darker. He is actually a level 100 scammer posing as a blacksmith. He spent a full week gaining the Lord's trust, all for the purpose of stealing from him. He offers to take the bow to the capital, demanding 300 gold pieces for restoration. At that exact moment, Hyun-soo bursts into the room. He boldly declares the bow can be restored here. Bell immediately realizes his plan is collapsing, and rage begins to build inside him. Lord Burns remains doubtful of Hyun-soo's claim. He questions whether restoration is possible here without proper tools or a workshop. He orders a guard to confirm Hyun-soo's identity. The guard verifies he was sent by Instructor Relson. Surprised, the Lord asks him to introduce himself. Standing before the ruler of Bardin, he answers calmly. Name Hyun-soo, level 1 class, unemployed. Bell completely loses control hearing this. He cannot accept a level 1 speaking with such confidence. He argues restoration is work for level 80 experts. He accuses Hyun-soo of wasting their time. Our hero calmly shuts him down. He explains the weapon is not a recurve bow, but a traditional horn bow made from composite materials. Both the Lord and Bell are confused by this explanation. Hyun-soo reveals he learned details from guard Becker. He knows the bow belonged to the Lord Father, a gift from a mysterious foreign blacksmith. The Lord confirms this but warns about false hope. He demands proof before believing him. Hyun-soo agrees and asks to confirm one detail, then reveals a shocking truth. The bow was actually made in this land. He explains his deduction clearly. He saw a painting of a water buffalo in the hall. The horns are valuable crafting materials, but the key lies in the bow curvature. It was made using whale sinew, not cow sinew. He asks for confirmation. Lord Burns is completely stunned. Hyun-soo is absolutely correct. The Lord explains the foreigner was his father's friend, a blacksmith who used local rare materials, buffalo horns and whale sinew from Bardin Swamp, creating the finest bow in the region. The Lord is deeply impressed by Hyun-soo's insight, especially since Bell failed to notice everything. Now convinced, he officially asks for the restoration. Hyun-soo accepts the quest. The reward is 500 gold pieces. Bell is immediately ordered to leave. He exits in rage, swearing revenge. The Lord asks what is required. Hyun-soo lists everything confidently: buffalo horns, whale sinew, special wood, and tools. He demonstrates full mastery of the craft. He receives the restoration method, but a warning appears. If the success rate drops below 70%, the bow will be destroyed forever. Hyun-soo recalls learning from his father. He remembers being asked if he enjoyed the work despite the pain and calluses. He answered that he loved doing it together. His father promised to teach him everything one day, but first he had to master materials. In the present, he whispers, "Yes, Dad." Feeling the same sensation in his hands, he believes he can succeed. Impressed, Lord Burns offers his help. They work together tirelessly. Hyun-soo focuses on shaping the wood, while the Lord assists him. Burns admits his strength is fading. Manual labor is no longer easy, but seeing Hyun-soo's passion gives him energy. After a full week, the Lord grows tired. He asks if he should return to his duties. Hyun-soo asks him to stay for the final step. He realizes the truth behind his actions. The Lord wants to restore his father's memory himself. Lord Burns confirms this honestly. He admits the bow is his last connection to his father. Then he asks Hyun-soo a simple question: "Why do you love this craft so much?" Our hero smiles softly and answers that his happiest memories are tied to it as well. They agree that restoring memories demands time and relentless effort, days slowly turning into weeks as 20 days of grinding pass without pause, until at last the final day arrives and the restoration of the sniper's hornbow is completed. The weapon reborn is something far greater than before, an epic creation with stats that surpass the original. Lord Burns stands silently before his father's statue, wondering if his old man is watching over him at this very moment. Hyun-soo suggests that the Lord should test it, and without hesitation Burns releases an arrow, feeling the power flow through it. As he notes that it does not merely feel the same, it feels even better. His laughter bursts out with joy as he proudly declares it a masterpiece, and at that exact moment a quest completion message appears before them, the system announcing that Hyun-soo's affinity with Lord Burns has reached its maximum, the success rating exceeding 10%. The Lord expresses his gratitude, telling Hyunsu that he can finally rest in peace. Yet he admits that the promised reward feels insignificant compared to what has been accomplished, and because of this overwhelming success, the reward is upgraded, granting not only 2,000 gold pieces, but also free access to the castle's blacksmith workshop. Our boy cannot hide his happiness as he quickly calculates the value, realizing that 2,000 gold translates to roughly 20 million won, enough to cover his father's medical expenses for a long time. Filled with admiration, the Lord suddenly asks a question that catches him off guard, wondering if he has ever considered learning swordsmanship, then revealing a secret from his past, that before becoming a lord he was once a swordsman himself. He introduces Hyunso to first swordsmanship, a legendary technique known for subduing countless monsters, admitting that while Hyunso is undoubtedly a natural-born blacksmith, he also sees within him the potential of a true swordsman. Supported by instructor Relson's recommendation and his own observations, Burns offers to share his essence and presents a skill quest to learn the technique, assuring him that with enough determination success is inevitable. For our boy, this opportunity is an unexpected blessing, and he throws himself into training like a machine, forging his own horn bow, restoring the rusted Madmaster armor, and enduring intense sessions as he spars daily with Lord Burns until he masters everything required. And when the time finally comes to leave, he confidently tells the Lord that he is fully prepared. Clad in his newly restored armor and carrying his custom bow, he declares his next goal to obtain a proper profession. He bids farewell to Burns and begins organizing his inventory, carefully reviewing his equipment, noting how the Madmaster armor compensates for his low level with a damage reflection ability. While his new bow boasts an incredible 60% accuracy boost to fund his journey, he crafts several rare bows and lists them on the auction house. Checking the listing of his second creation, Elsewhere Flame, the leader of the Golden Shield Guild, stares at the auction in disbelief, pointing out that even Korea's top player Black has never produced a bow of such quality at level 10. He is left in awe at how such an item could be crafted at level 1 using nothing but low-tier material. Flame recalls the words of the greatest blacksmith that the AI Ares decides everything, and if the system is impressed, it grants a fitting title, leading him to conclude that the master of Hyun's workshop must possess a legendary class to create artifacts of this caliber. Meanwhile, Hyun-soo himself is stunned upon seeing the final price of his bow, 250 gold pieces, realizing that this equates to around 25 million won, a life-changing amount for a single weapon. He also notices that his follower count has skyrocketed to over 3,200, his inbox overflowing with guild invitations, and with renewed determination he sets his sights on the holy land of blacksmiths, the Tower of Blacksmiths, arriving before the towering structure only to find its entrance sealed by a magic barrier bound in chains. A system message identifies it as the Tower of the Sword Maker, stating that to enter he must break the seal using a sword forged within the magic workshop. Examining the barrier closely, Hyunso recognizes it as volcanic basalt rock, soon discovering the entrance to the workshop and stepping inside, where he learns the rules. Materials and tools are unlimited, production time is accelerated, yet any sword created here can only be used for the test, making it a challenge purely focused on crafting a blade sharp enough to cut through stone. High above within the tower, Master Dayang mutters that all who come are fools chasing quick wealth, claiming that the true path of the blacksmith has long been lost, allowing anyone to attempt the trial knowing none will truly break the seal, at best only leaving a scratch upon its surface. Hyunsu decides to forge a Damascus sword, despite the system warning him that such a blade is meant only for master blacksmiths and suggesting he begin with a simple iron dagger. He ignores the advice entirely, taking advantage of the infinite materials as he applies a special forging method taught to him by his father, a technique specifically designed to cut through stone. Inspired by the perfect facilities around him, he calls the game insane as he throws himself fully into the process with unmatched energy, until suddenly a violent tremor shakes the entire tower, awakening Dang as he rushes to investigate, only to be left speechless at the sight of the once unbreakable seal split cleanly in half. Hyunsu calmly stepping through the now open entrance as Dang declares that the god of blacksmithing has finally appeared. Our protagonist approaches quietly, asking if he has passed, and Dang explains that while most are judged by the scratches they leave, Hyunsu completely destroyed the seal itself. As he wonders if this means a retest, a glowing magic circle appears beneath him, Dang clarifying that it is not magic but a summoning circle, before presenting his special hammer, prompting a system message announcing the acquisition of Dayang's hammer and the start of a new SS rank quest. Dayang tells him that the real trial begins now as he wishes him success, and in an instant Hyunso is transported, finding himself atop castle walls as an army of orcs advances toward the fortress, the quest updating to defeat the orc army, leaving him confused at the connection between warfare and blacksmithing. The soldiers quickly notice him and erupt into cheers, believing reinforcements have arrived. As the objective becomes clear, he must achieve a 70% contribution rate among 50 warriors. The squad leader Hans, a level 48 warrior, greets him warmly and explains that the orc invasion is intensifying, their equipment in poor condition as he urgently asks for repairs, but Hyunso shatters their expectations by explaining that it is a misunderstanding. As he has not yet taken the blacksmith class and possesses no repair skills, Hans points at the hammer in confusion, but he clarifies it is only for the test, and when asked about combat experience he admits he is a complete beginner, causing the mood to drop instantly as the soldiers realize they must now protect him instead. Hans orders him to take shelter in the watchtower, but before anything else can happen, a massive axe spins toward Hans at deadly speed, and without thinking Hyunzo dashes forward, effortlessly parrying the attack, shocking everyone as he calmly asks to join the fight. For him, this battlefield is the true test. Hans hesitates but ultimately agrees, instructing him to fall in as the overwhelming pressure of real combat crashes down on him. Yet despite it all, he is certain he will not lose, leaping into battle as he instantly defeats a level 10 orc and levels up, the results of his intense training finally showing. A nearby soldier named Ben watches in disbelief at the sheer strength of someone without a class, and as the chaos continues, Ben finds himself in danger, only for Hyunzo to react instantly, switching to his horn bow and firing a glowing arrow that pierces the orc's chest and saves him. Another enemy attempts to ambush him from behind, but our boy responds just as quickly, landing another shot and leveling up once more, leaving the soldiers stunned as even the largest monsters fall to a single arrow, and he shouts at Ben to snap out of it, warning that the orcs have now set their sights on him. Ben is rattled, surrounded. Our protagonist switches to his daylight sword and activates the rampage skill, unleashing absolute carnage. Orcs fall in droves. Hyunso's contribution rate jumps to 19%. Hans realizes the master had a good reason for sending this kid with Hyunso. Hans believes they can achieve the impossible. Excited, he rallies his soldiers to wipe out the enemy. Our hero feels like a true member of the squad, and the system announces his performance has boosted morale. The battle rages on and his contribution rises to 28%. He wonders why it isn't climbing faster even though he is dispatching orcs efficiently. Suddenly a hidden quest activates. A boss enters the battlefield. A level 51 orc warrior appears. Hans shouts for the squad to halt. He recognizes their nemesis. Panic spreads. Hans realizes they have advanced too far to escape. Yet his soldiers are ride or die. They declare they are ready to fight, and Ben vows never to retreat. Hans orders the attack. Our boy notices the soldiers charging recklessly. He tries to provide cover fire but gets a nasty shock. His arrows bounce off the orc warrior armor like rubber. Hyunsu realizes the foe's hide is like steel. Arrows alone won't work. Despair grips the squad. Someone suggests running, but Hans insists there is no turning back. The orc warrior charges. In a single brutal strike, the monster chops off Hans' arm. The squad leader realizes too late that victory is out of reach. Our protagonist watches in horror as Hans hits the dirt, blood pouring onto the battlefield. Panic spreads like wildfire as the orcs roar. One soldier screams that their weapons cannot even scratch the enemy armor, realizing their attacks are useless. Another is convinced they are all dead meat. Our hero steps up, shouting to the squad that fighting like this is suicide. He orders everyone to form a defensive line and retreat into the forest behind him, assuring them he will catch up soon. The squad obeys, evacuating their wounded leader Hans. Ben takes command of the rear, organizing the men to hold off the orcs as long as possible. He tells our boy this strategy will only buy a little time. Our protagonist replies that he just needs 5 minutes. Ben is on board, vowing to hold the line no matter what. With that, Hyunso vanishes into the trees. Standard arrows are useless against the orc warrior thick armor, so our hero pulls out Daing's replicating hammer, an epic tool capable of duplicating consumables and drastically slashing crafting time. For the first time, victory feels possible. Meanwhile, the soldiers fight desperately in the forest, holding back the relentless orc advance. Ben refuses to give up or retreat, determined to buy those 5 minutes for Hyunso. Just as Ben is about to be decapitated by the orc warrior, a streak of light tears through the air. It strikes the monster dead instantly, saving Ben life. The soldier is stunned. Suddenly more projectiles fly from the shadows, each one hitting its target with terrifying accuracy. It turns out our boy is crafting and firing these special arrows from his hidden position. The orc warrior roars in fury at this new tactic. As the monster rages, our protagonist prepares his next weapon, with the soldiers pinning all their hopes on him. Hyunso has crafted special arrows called Pyeongjun, rare short arrows with insane penetration power and speed, capable of shattering stone. To fire them, he uses a bamboo guide known as a tonga. With the battle won, the mission to suppress the invasion ends in total victory. Our hero's final contribution reaches an astonishing 92%. The system announces the mission is complete with an exceptional record. The victorious soldiers chant Master Hyunsu's name. He wins the squad's full trust and receives a hidden title, Battlefield Commander. Approaching the injured Hans, who is being patched up, our protagonist listens as the leader speaks. Hans admits they always focused on defense and never believed they could fulfill their long-held dream of defeating the orcs. He thanks Hyunsu, as do the rest of the soldiers. Our hero thanks them right back, realizing his additional test is finally over. Hyunsu considers returning to the Blacksmith Tower, but wonders how to get back. Back at the central tower of Blacksmith's Tower, Master Daeng is in a mood. He complains that the tower has fallen off. All the glory goes to the knights, while the people coming here are just chasing a quick buck. Daeng insists they need someone worthy to fulfill the prophecy and restore their golden age. Coulson interrupts, dripping with sarcasm. He questions if Daeng is even qualified to lead. Disdainful Coulson dismisses the chosen one idea as a total hoax. He whines about being summoned during his busy schedule just to test some random foreign kid. Diang shuts him down, asking if Coulson actually read the report. Hyun-soo earned this right by merit, passing the test and annihilating the orc army despite having no class. The other masters are shocked by the word annihilation. They cannot believe a classless player pulled that off. Diang points out that the prophecy demands a successor stronger than anyone. The sword itself will give the final answer. The grand doors swing open and our protagonist steps into the magnificent hall. Diang welcomes him, confirming he has passed the test and now has the right to enter the sanctuary of blacksmiths. He tells our hero he is eligible to challenge the sword of prophecy. Everything will be decided once Hyun-soo holds the weapon. Our boy reflects on the phrase suitable reward. He recalls the SS rank mission he crushed and wonders if he is about to snag a legendary class. Coulson steps forward to congratulate Hyun-soo, complimenting his quick thinking, but his tone turns nasty. He claims the arrow Hyun-soo made was just a cheap replica and dismisses the victory as pure luck. Coulson sneers that without the epic bow our protagonist would have failed. He challenges him to draw the sword, eager to see if his luck holds up. Hyun-soo looks around. He realizes these masters are high NPCs who shape the legends of Ares. Noticing that Coulson, master of the Bowsmith Tower, is level 365, our hero understands everyone here is a heavy hitter. Still, he feels zero inferiority. He believes that if it comes down to pure craftsmanship without the bias of titles, he would come out on top. Our protagonist approaches the legendary sword. It glows with overwhelming power, sending a wave of energy that shocks the masters. Suddenly, the sword erupts in brilliant light, engulfing the entire hall. Hyun-soo wonders what is happening as he is swallowed by the energy. When the light fades, he stands in the same spot, but the sword has vanished. Diang gasps. He laughs, realizing the real successor did not even need to touch the sword. It chose him instantly. Across the hall, Coulson curses in rage, refusing to accept the outcome. Just then, the system drops a bomb, announcing that the first god class has appeared in the world of Ares. Coulson's anger boils over. He cannot accept that a novice receives such an immense honor. The system confirms it. Hyun-soo has advanced to the god of blacksmithing. Our protagonist and Diang are stunned. This is not just a legendary class, but the first of its kind, granting him insane abilities. He is no longer bound by level requirements while crafting, and his experience increases automatically based on the items he creates. The prophecy confirms that as a blacksmith he will become stronger than anyone else. A new class quest, Test of the Sword, appears, unlocking at level 100. The other tower masters whisper among themselves, accepting the sword's choice. However, Coulson throws a yapping session, loudly protesting, reminding everyone of a specific clause. The successor must gain the recognition of all tower masters. Coulson officially challenges Hyun-soo to a blacksmith duel. The terms are set: if our boy wins, Coulson will recognize him. If Coulson wins, Hyun-soo must give up the position. Diang tries to stop it, but Coulson glares at his colleagues in defiance. Our protagonist decides to mock him, saying that if Coulson wants to run away, now is the time. He adds that if Coulson loses, he will have to serve as deputy tower master and take his training seriously. Coulson laughs, but our boy accepts the challenge with complete confidence. At that moment, a secret skill unlocks a way for blacksmiths to communicate through their craft. Hyun-soo gains the ability to use custom god crafting. The salty master explains that a blacksmith duel is a different ballgame from a knight contest. It is not about physical strength, but a clash between two creation. The rules are simple. Both blacksmiths forge a sword, then smash them against each other. The blade that breaks first loses. Coulson declares the workshop is ready. Since Hyun-soo has skills, one day should be enough. He mocks our boy, telling him they will meet tomorrow. After Coulson storms off, Diang warns our protagonist that he accepted the duel too lightly. The tower master explains that Coulson is one of the most skilled artisans on the continent. Hyun-soo agrees. If he were still an ordinary blacksmith, he would get crushed. Typically, skills are tied to level and title. But now that our hero has advanced to god class, those restrictions are gone. The only thing that matters is pure skill. Thanks to his new status, he has acquired the active god rank skill, custom god crafting. This skill allows him to create fully customized artifacts and bestow any effect he chooses. The catch is the higher the grade of the chosen effects, the harder the crafting process becomes. Meanwhile, in his own workshop, Kelmden is stuck in the past. He remembers believing he would inherit the family craft. Instead, someone more skilled appeared, forcing him to settle for Bow Tower Master. He accepted it to serve Diang, but he cannot accept Diang elevating a stranger above everyone else. Kelmden pours his frustration into the hammer, causing an explosion of fire. In Hein's workshop, Diang watches our boy at work. The Tower Master knows that bestowing abilities follows the law of equivalent exchange. Usually one prioritizes durability to gain an edge in a duel. Yet Diang is confused. The durability and stats of Hyun's sword appear to be only rare grade. Our protagonist completes his sword, the blade shining with brilliant light. Diang wonders just what the god of blacksmithing is cooking. The next day, everyone gathers for the showdown. Coulson challenges Hyunso to prove himself worthy. Coulson reveals his sword first. Coulson Dark Knight, a unique sword. Its stats are insane: 12,000 durability and 664 attack power. It also features abilities that boost durability by 35%. Diang and the other masters praise Coulson craftsmanship. Coulson flexes that his blade is a masterpiece and demands to see what our boy has made. Hyun-soo unveils his sword, stunning them for the wrong reasons. It is only rare grade, its durability is a pathetic 100 and its attack power sits at 177. A tower master sneers, calling the sword ridiculous, and claiming Daung was foolish to trust a random player. Coulson proclaims this is the end and charges at Hyun-soo. Our protagonist stands his ground. Metal clashes against metal as the battlefield trembles with each impact. Then a sharp snap rings out, cutting through the tension, Daung, and the spectators freeze, jaws dropping in disbelief. Coulson's unique sword, Dark Knight, shatters into pieces, fragments scattering across the floor. Coulson stands speechless, unable to process what just happened. Calmly, Hyun-soo explains that a sword value is not determined by grade alone. The details of our hero weapon appear, revealing its special active ability, a sword that cuts swords. This custom effect grants a 65% chance to sever the opponent weapon upon impact, a unique unreplicable blade, a literal glass cannon forged for a single purpose. Daung recalls his father's prediction about a successor who would break tradition. He remembers a younger Coulson once eager to learn those teachings. A flashback unfolds, revealing our protagonist in the workshop, explaining to Daung that simply breaking swords would never convince the masters. That is why he chose to create a blade that literally cuts swords. Daung had doubted such a concept was even possible, yet Hyun-soo proved that infusing unique properties comes down to pure skill and relentless effort. Now Daung understands it was a bold and daring choice. He realizes our hero possesses the vision to turn impossible ideas into reality. Coulson whispers the title God of Blacksmithing under his breath, wondering if he will ever forge something of that level. Hyun-soo looks at him with a calm smile, declaring that the word impossible does not exist. Coulson accepts defeat. Our protagonist tells the fallen master that he now stands before the God of Blacksmithing. A system window appears, announcing that the Duel of the Blacksmith quest is complete. The Tower Masters reward Hyun-soo with a generous payout, a box containing 500 gold coins. On top of that, they hand him a scroll detailing the recipe for a legendary bow, one of the 10 treasures of the tower. Coulson admits that this recipe is beyond his reach, and believes entrusting it to someone destined for greatness is the right choice. Daung addresses our protagonist, declaring that the God of Blacksmithing will usher in a new age of prosperity. He urges him to aim for the absolute peak as the growth of a god begins now. The scene shifts to the real world. Hyun-soo celebrates with Kim Ji-hoon. The wealthy friend cannot believe he is drinking beer on Hyun-soo's dime. He congratulates him on achieving a god rank class, calling it insane. Kim Ji-hoon admits he only recommended the game to prevent our hero talent from wasting away, yet never imagined he would become this powerful. He points out that after everything our protagonist endured, he is finally seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. Ji-hoon asks the question, what actually changes with a god class? Our boy laughs, admitting that honestly not much feels different yet. His immediate concern is the hospital bill looming like a ticking time bomb due tomorrow. To make matters worse, another 10 million won has been added to the treatment cost. Ji-hoon shares an update about his father's new medicine. The bad news is it is not covered by insurance, meaning the cost is at least 20 million won. He reminds Hyun-soo that his own burn treatments are not cheap either. Ji-hoon delivers a harsh reality check. Having a god class alone will not pay the bills. There is a physical limit to how many items our hero can craft. He explains that Hyun-soo needs to level up and build massive fame. Ji-hoon lays out the strategy. Connect with the biggest players in Ares to secure larger rewards and rare items. Our protagonist takes the advice seriously. Ji-hoon then reveals he has a plan, claiming his big brother in the game will help. Our boy laughs, telling him not to get fired from his real job. Ji-hoon shows him the latest news. The internet is exploding over a player named Lord who has always been ranked 21st, finally reaching a legendary class. The shocking part is that Lord defeated Sword King Barad, an NPC no one had ever beaten before. Players are losing their minds. Meanwhile, our protagonist feels the crushing pressure of hospital costs reaching 30 million won per month. He realizes even combining quest rewards and auction profits, he is still short. Hyun-soo refuses to let his father's treatment stop. Then suddenly he receives a notification. One of his swords has sold for 5,310 gold coins. The buyer is Lord. Without hesitation, our boy rushes to the hospital reception and pays everything in full. With the burden lifted, Hyun-soo realizes he can never stop playing Ares. Back in the game, he receives a message from Lord. The ranker explains that thanks to Hyun-soo's sword, he passed Sword King Barad's test. He adds that anyone who understands its value would call the price a bargain. The message reveals the secret: our hero's sword cut through the Sword King weapon, creating an opening that stunned the NPC. Lord presents a massive opportunity, revealing that King Barad is waiting for him and wants him to forge a sword. Our protagonist is stunned, realizing this is the chance to solve all his problems. Determined not to waste it, he decides meeting Barad is essential. Elsewhere, a stylish man enters an old blacksmith workshop in the real world, whispering that only 1 month remains on their promise. Back to Hyun-soo. He speaks with Kim Ji-hoon on the phone, who is shocked at the idea of approaching Sword King Barad directly. Ji-hoon laughs, pointing out that even a god rank class does not grant unlimited access. Normally, meeting a high-level NPC like Barad requires at least level 200 and high fame. However, he reveals a loophole. Ji-hoon explains the Goyard Martial Arts Tournament, an annual event restricted to levels 50 to 60, hosted by King Barad to scout talent. The winner receives a reward directly from the king. Jahan concludes that if Hyun-soo wants to meet him immediately, this is the only path. Remembering dying advice to explore the world, our protagonist sets his next destination. Filled with determination, he heads toward the castle region to begin his journey. Hyun-soo recalls Daeng warning about the castle region located between the Prime and Goyard kingdoms, a brutal battlefield holding back endless waves of undead. It is the fastest place to gain levels, and our hero is determined to conquer it. Upon arrival, Centurion Lander greets him, asking if he is part of the reinforcements, noting the timing is perfect, as they desperately need manpower. The commander explains that undead attacks are increasing, and shares the history of the region. In the past, the holy bell of Ramas rang across the land, weakening monsters, but recently it shattered, leaving them vulnerable. Despite strengthening defenses, the enemy exploited the weakness and began advancing. Hyun-soo asks if the bell can be repaired. Lin Zhao freezes, suddenly realizing who Hyun-soo might be. He asks if he came from Master Daeng, and our boy confirms it. Lin Zhao panics, wondering why he did not say so earlier, and rushes him to meet the captain. Captain Call of the Castle Knights questions if Daeng sent him personally. Lin Zhao confirms, explaining that Hyun-soo wants to inspect the bell. However, Captain Call shuts the idea down, stating that Daeng already declared it impossible to repair. Multiple attempts were made, including by a level 290 master, yet all failed. The captain eyes our protagonist and demands his level. Hyun-soo answers honestly, level 13. Lin Zhao is stunned, and Captain Call sighs, calling him a liability, advising him to stay in the rear lines. The captain explains that if the main undead army breaks through, it is game over. Suddenly, a soldier bursts in, reporting that ghouls are attacking the eastern wall, a massive horde of level 41 monsters charging the gate. The captain declares the situation critical, ordering Linder to follow, while warning Hyun-soo to stay silent about the bell. Our hero believes that if this mirrors the Orc War, he can handle it. A new regional war quest begins. Drive away the ghouls and defend the gate. The horde storms the walls as soldiers fight desperately. Linder explains that undead are extremely durable, and without holy power, defeating them takes too long. He is shocked when Hyun-soo drops a ghoul instantly with a single arrow to the head. Our boy activates the flying arrow skill, and the projectile pierces through multiple enemies like a truck. The soldiers cheer, and Lander declares victory is possible. Hyun-soo begins to think the situation is manageable until the system announces a new phase. A massive threat emerges, triggering a quest to defeat a giant siege ghoul. Panic spreads among the soldiers as they consider calling the captain, but realize he is occupied at the main gate. No reinforcements are coming. As the creature approaches, Lander fears the wall will collapse. Hyun-soo steps forward, declaring he will draw its attention. He leaps from the wall, ignoring the soldiers shouting that it is suicide. Below, he faces the massive ghoul head-on, skillfully dodging its attacks and securing its focus. Our hero believes that defeating this monster will secure their defense, so he begins to kite it away from the wall. However, the ghoul attacks with surprising speed, catching him off guard. He switches to his bow, firing a flying arrow directly at its head, but the shot bounces off harmlessly, dealing 0 damage. The level difference is overwhelming. The ghoul retaliates with a devastating strike, dropping his HP below 10%. A system warning appears, stating that if his HP reaches 0, he will be forcibly logged out. Our boy refuses to accept defeat. As he struggles on the ground, the reality hits him that failing here means losing everything. The tournament opportunity, his father, treatment, his own survival, and his future as a blacksmith. Knowing this is his only chance to change his life, our protagonist pushes beyond his limits. He fires another arrow, causing the ghoul to roar in pain. But the monster retaliates with a deafening sonic blast, dropping his HP below 3%. Even in this state, he prepares another shot, but suddenly the bowstring breaks. The ghoul seizes the moment, launching a final attack, leaving Hyun-soo at exactly 1 HP. Standing on the brink of death, he refuses to give up. His determination triggers a system message announcing that a rare condition has been met. His will resonates with the god of blacksmithing, unlocking a new skill, emergency god crafting. The conditions are extreme. He must forge a weapon within 20 seconds, and it will only exist for 30 seconds before disappearing. Realizing this is his final chance, he begins immediately. A countdown starts as he gathers materials and crafts at unbelievable speed. As the timer reaches 0, he completes a new sword and charges forward. With a fierce shout, Hyun-soo activates the Scythe of Death skill, freezing the monster momentarily before delivering a perfect strike. The blade pierces through the giant ghoul, destroying it instantly. The creature collapses, defeated, as our hero collapses from exhaustion. A system message declares the boss eliminated, granting massive experience, boosting his level to 38. Hyun-soo exhales in relief, knowing he is qualified for the tournament. Completely drained, he loses consciousness as Lander and the soldiers rush to his side. Later, he awakens bandaged and lying in bed, surrounded by soldiers chanting his name, calling him a true hero. One steps forward, thanking him for saving everyone. Captain Cal approaches, expressing gratitude and asking how he managed to win. Hyun-soo gives a vague answer, knowing the truth would sound unbelievable. Captain Cal insists he should not downplay his achievements, stating clearly that Hyun-soo carried the team. Internally, our protagonist knows exactly what happened. He realized that ghouls as spiritual entities are weak against holy power. This reminded him of the Sword of the Four Symbols, a blade known for annihilating evil. Drawing from his father's teachings, he recreated it on the spot using his god skill. Captain Cal refuses to let it go and insists on giving him a reward, handing over a pouch filled with 2,000 gold coins. Seeing this, our boy is genuinely happy, realizing it equals roughly 20 million won, a massive payout. Cal admits he misjudged Hyun-soo at first, thinking he was just another scrub, and asks for forgiveness. Our protagonist reassures him it is all good. At that moment, their affinity reaches the maximum. Then Captain Cal makes a formal request asking Hyun-soo to repair the Ramos bell. The captain sensed holy power in the sword Hyun-soo used, and believes restoration is possible. Hyun-soo politely apologizes, appreciating the trust but explaining he needs to head to the Goyard Kingdom for the tournament. Captain Cal smiles and drops irresistible bait, revealing that the Lord owns a piece of legendary metal, and if the bell is restored, that metal will belong to him. Our protagonist's interest spikes instantly. Captain Cal brings him to the artifact, revealing a pile of golden fragments. Hyun-soo is stunned, realizing the bell is not just damaged but reduced to dust. The captain asks if he can recreate it. Hyun-soo admits it is worse than expected, yet insists there must be a solution. Suddenly, a girl interrupts the conversation, declaring the bell cannot be restored, adding that even at level 290 she failed to fix it. She locks eyes with our boy and calls him a fraud. The story rewinds to before the chaos as a girl named Nell, also known as Team Leader Kim, drops shocking news to the Golden Shield Guild, announcing her resignation. Flame, the guild master, is stunned, asking why she is leaving so suddenly and if she cares about everything they built together. Nell responds that she is completely burned out. Flame tries to stop her, insisting that if he recruits the blacksmith Hyun-soo, things will improve. Nell snaps back, saying his obsession is the problem, questioning how they can justify offering 500 million won to a random player within a year. Flame argues that Hyun-soo sold his first crafted sword for 50 million won, claiming recruiting him would skyrocket their ranking. Nell counters by listing their past failures, reminding him of the freelancer who left, the one who ran off with the deposit, and another who disappeared after winning the lottery. She warns him not to stand in her way. Flame reluctantly gives in, telling her the door is always open if she returns. The narrative shifts back to the present in Kassel, where Nell arrives to find the village devastated. Shocked at how quickly destruction has spread, she reflects that Kassel is special to her, that the villagers are not just NPCs but real people. She believes that if the Rama spell could be restored, the tragedy could end, and decides to check the artifact one last time. Upon entering the bell chamber, she is surprised to find Hyun-soo already there and immediately accuses him of being a fraud. Our hero is confused, asking who she is to judge him. Nell declares she is a far higher-ranked blacksmith. Captain Cal steps in, telling them to calm down, introducing Nell as the expert he mentioned earlier and Hyun-soo as the hero who defeated the ghouls. He proudly adds that our boy volunteered to repair the bell. Nell scoffs internally, doubting a level 38 monster hunter could fix a holy artifact that defeated professionals. She accuses him of exploiting Kassil desperation for profit. Hyun-soo ignores her and focuses on the fragments as a system notification confirms the Rama bell still contains holy power but is completely destroyed, making normal repair impossible. Our hero concludes conventional restoration is impossible, then suddenly grabs a hammer and smashes one of the fragments. Nell screams, begging him to stop, but Hyun-soo remains calm, stating restoration is possible. The high-level blacksmith grows furious, asking if he even understands what unrepairable means. Just then a soldier rushes in, reporting that the undead are swarming in overwhelming numbers. Everyone freezes as a system window appears. At first, our protagonist assumes it is a quest, but quickly realizes it is an update notification. The message announces the Kassel region update has begun, and once completed, the area will permanently transform into a land of the undead. Nell falls into despair, believing it is the end, but our boy tells her otherwise. He declares that if they can reconstruct the bell before the update finishes, they can stop the transformation. Nell insists it is impossible, but our protagonist stands firm. He challenges her, asking if she was not the one who wanted to protect Kassel more than anyone. Nell admits he is right, but has no idea how to achieve it. Our hero tells her to follow him as he gathers the shattered remains of the Rama bell into his inventory, declaring with conviction that they will protect Kassel together. Captain Cal tells Hyun-soo he is counting on him, promising to hold the line as long as possible. The scene shifts to the blacksmith workshop, where Nell asks for the plan, and our protagonist explains his theory. When he shattered the fragment, the holy power remained, proving the energy exists within the material itself. He plans to melt everything down and forge an entirely new bell, believing the holy power will return even stronger. Nell admits she has never seen such a method, and Hyun-soo explains that repair is not just about skill but understanding the heart of the object. As the smelting begins, Nell is surprised, wondering if he truly intends to do all the work manually. Our boy turns to her, asking why she is standing still, admitting he cannot do this alone. Meanwhile, in the real world at the developer office, a dev monitors the Kassel region update countdown, with less than an hour remaining. Taesuk, the senior developer, watches intensely while a colleague mocks the idea that one person can change the outcome. Another points out that Nell, a top-tier player, is helping him. As the final moments approach, the battle intensifies. Captain Cal shouts for his men to hold the line as exhausted soldiers fall one after another. A massive monster breaks through, but Cal intercepts and slays it before rushing to his wounded comrades, urging them to survive. Amid the chaos, a crack forms in his sword and despair sets in as another monster lunges at him. Just as defeat seems certain, a powerful bong echoes across the battlefield, freezing the undead in place as they clutch their heads, screaming before bursting into flames. The sound of the bell spreads across the entire region, and Captain Cal shouts in triumph that the Rama bell has been restored. Back at the developer office, an employee spits out his drink in shock as the screen displays the outcome. Taesuk reveals that our boy has not slept since the update countdown began. A week ago, a flashback reveals the insanity starting 5 days earlier when Hyun-soo rushed to the blacksmith workshop and castle. Rallying the residents, our protagonist tells everyone they must melt everything down to draw out the divine power. While Hyun-soo drafts the schematics, he places Nell in charge of herding the crowds, organizing the workforce, and supplying the battlefield. Afterward, our hero activates the custom god crafting skill, planning to amplify the bell power against evil, while adding a specific attribute designed to annihilate the undead. He orders the workers to raise the furnace heat higher and fueled by their shared will to protect the castle. Every villager pushes forward. Hyun-soo reminds them to remove every impurity as the workers pour their blood, sweat, and tears into the process. The days begin to blur together from the 4th day until the final hours. Everything becomes a haze, as Nell stands watch exhausted until she finally collapses. She jolts awake in shock, realizing how long she had been out, and when she spots the completed bell, she is stunned that Hyun-soo has been working non-stop for days. A system window appears showing her apprentice title glowing as witnessing the work of a master craftsman boosts her efficiency by 22%. Nell stares in awe, wondering if this young man is truly a master. Hyun-soo notices she is awake and jokes that she slept like a baby despite all the noise. Nell protests, insisting she was not out long. While our protagonist reassures her they are almost finished, suddenly Nell asks directly if he is the blacksmith Hyun-soo, and our boy confirms it, placing his hand on the newly forged bell. The artifact radiates immense power as his special mark appears, and Nell gazes at it in admiration, declaring that beautiful is not enough to describe it. Calling it a true masterpiece, a system message announces that this is Hyun-soo's second custom creation, boasting unique infinite durability, an artifact once considered impossible to repair. Nell wonders if its history itself fuels its strength, admitting she has never seen anything like it. Suddenly she grabs Hyun-soo's hands, pleading for him to stay with her. Moving forward, confused, Hyun-soo asks if this is a confession, causing Nell to flush red before clarifying. She means professionally. The scene snaps back to the battlefield as our hero strikes the newly forged bell. Waves of holy energy erupt outward, instantly incinerating the undead as they scream and vanish from existence. The soldiers gasp, witnessing the miracle as a system message confirms. Hyun-soo has crafted a new bell and eliminated the undead threat, successfully halting the update and creating a new storyline. Our boy shouts in triumph, declaring they did it, thanking the heavens for making it in time before collapsing from exhaustion as the adrenaline fades. Nell rushes to his side, asking frantically if he is okay, while another system message confirms the Ramus Bell repair quest is complete, and a new notification appears stating that the rewards have changed due to this unprecedented achievement. Meanwhile, the Ares player community explodes with excitement as someone posts the reason the castle region update failed, sharing before and after images of the tower. Players quickly recognize Hyun-soo as the creator of his first custom sword, and are stunned that he repaired the Ramus Bell. Thousands begin following his workshop instantly, as Hyun-soo awakens in bed to a flood of notifications. Checking his interface, he sees his workshop follower count has skyrocketed to over 111,000, leaving him stunned before he smiles, realizing he made the right decision, engraving his name on the bell, ensuring everyone visiting castle will see it as free marketing. A knock sounds at the door as Captain Cal enters with a bright smile, declaring the savior of the region has finally awakened. He announces that with the Lord blessing he has come to deliver the reward, handing Hyun-soo a massive sum of gold, leaving our boy speechless as it translates to roughly 330 million won. The captain explains that only a savior deserves such a reward, and also presents a box of personal gift from the Lord. Inside, Hyun-soo finds the legendary metal oracle and thanks the captain, who shakes his head insisting they are the ones in his debt, pointing out that unlike others, Hyun-soo stayed and fought to protect them. Our protagonist feels the sincerity, reflecting that the suffering in Ares mirrors the pain he knows in real life. Preparing to leave, he states he must return to where he once lived, and the captain agrees as Hyun-soo logs out, deciding to reclaim his workshop in the real world. Captain Cal and his attendant watch the spot where he vanished, commenting on how strange outsiders are. The next day in Gongju, Hyun-soo meets real estate investor Kang Hyukok, who checks his phone, seeing a notification that Hyun-soo has deposited 330 million won. Kang turns to him in disbelief, expressing amazement that he actually succeeded as the story rewinds to a year earlier, when Hyun-soo met Kang reviewing property papers. Kang calculated the damage at 330 million won, mentioning the fire and reassuring him that insurance should cover hospital costs, while encouraging him to stay strong. As Kang prepared to leave, Hyun-soo asked if he could buy back the workshop, catching him off guard before repeating his request, explaining that if he gathered the money he wanted the chance to reclaim it. Kang warned that buying a burned-down property was a waste of money, suggesting it would be wiser to purchase a new place. But Hyun-soo insisted, stating the workshop held his father's memories. Moved by this, Kang granted him a 1-year grace period, warning that after that the property would go to the first buyer with cash. Hyun-soo thanked him and Kang said he would wait for his call. Back in the present, Kang stares at the deposit, admitting he never truly believed it would happen, thinking the boy was asking for a miracle. Hyun-soo admits the deadline was a gamble, knowing the opportunity could vanish anytime. Yet Kang kept his word. When asked why he agreed, Kang explains that Hyun-soo was the first person to ask to buy back property immediately after losing it, and he wanted to support that determination. Hyun-soo expresses his gratitude, realizing he preserved his father's legacy thanks to Kang, and feels compelled to repay him, asking if he knows the game Ares. Kang laughs, saying everyone talks about it, as Hyun-soo reveals he is a blacksmith in the game. Kang remarks it suits him perfectly, and accepts a favor, asking for a custom artifact, regardless of stats, as our protagonist promises to deliver anything he wants. Later in the game, Hyun-soo enters a tavern where Nell waves him over, marking their first meeting since the undead incident. She complains about how hard it was to track him down before laughing and admitting she was teasing. Nell formally introduces herself as the former chief strategist of the Golden Shield Guild, claiming she built it into its current state. She states with certainty after witnessing the events at the castle that Hyun-soo will become a top-tier ranker and gets straight to the point, requesting to be the first member when he forms a guild. Our hero jokes that she called him a scammer days ago, prompting Nell to apologize while insisting anyone would have misunderstood. Hyun-soo assures her he was joking and says he looks forward to working together. Before leaving, he shares his plans, shocking Nell when he reveals he intends to meet Sword King Barad by entering the Goyard martial arts tournament. While eating, he wonders if the winner truly receives their reward directly from the king, as Nell confirms it, though she looks concerned, explaining the tournament is filled with elite competitors and rising talents, making it extremely dangerous. Hyun-soo shrugs, saying that is exactly why he must win, as Nell questions how he can stay calm under such pressure, and he reassures her he will aim for the top using his specialty. Leaving her confused, the day of the Goyard martial arts tournament arrives as the host welcomes participants, announcing the event will begin once he steps down, and that they must face monsters immediately. He adds that although the king remains unseen, His Majesty Sword King Barad is watching from the shadows, urging everyone to behave before wishing them luck. A system window appears, declaring the tournament has begun, as contestants brace themselves for the first trial, which requires them to survive an onslaught of golems for 1 hour. Many players rush eagerly, seeking easy experience, until another system message announces that defeating a level 109 stone golem will grant a reward. One participant panics at the difficulty while another charges forward, shouting "first come, first served," only to be instantly crushed and logged out. Chaos erupts as players are eliminated one by one, realizing the event is far more dangerous than expected. Terror spreads as they question how anyone can defeat such a monster at the start, while Hyun-soo observes calmly as others curse their misfortune, believing they have been tricked. Elsewhere, tournament head Bakal realizes the situation is disastrous as a high-level stone golem has spawned in the beginner arena. Fearing total annihilation, he rushes to report to the king, bursting into the chamber calling for Sword King Barad, insisting the tournament must be stopped immediately. Yet the king refuses, leaving him confused. Barad interrupts, ordering him to watch the screen, pointing to a specific warrior on the battlefield, and commanding him to observe that individual closely. In the arena, Hyun-soo fires a glowing arrow that slams into the stone golem, revealing his third custom creation, the Oraculum Aegis, a special arrow that defies physics, returning to its user after being fired. Other players lose their minds, shouting how an arrow could possibly come back like a boomerang. Our protagonist feels satisfied as the arrow earned from the castle region performs exactly as intended thanks to the legendary Oraculum. Our boy fires again, and the projectile strikes the golem once more before whipping back and nearly decapitating another participant, who screams, asking if Hyun-soo is trying to kill him. Hyun-soo quickly apologizes as the impact stuns the golem for 4 seconds. Players shout that the monster is stuck, urging everyone to attack immediately as contestants unleash a barrage of spells, strikes, and abilities. Yet the golem shrugs it all off and releases a furious roar, launching a savage counterattack. Panic spreads as participants scream for each other to dodge, while the enraged golem locks onto our hero. One player yells they only need to survive a little longer, while another screams at Hyun-soo to run. Players take heavy hits, struggling to stay alive, as at the final moment our protagonist switches to his daylight sword, refusing to back down, and tanks the massive blow, only to be slammed violently into the ground by the impact. Above the battlefield, the tournament head pleads with Sword King Barad, suggesting the event should end. Since the participant appears to have reached his limit, the king watches with growing interest as suddenly everything shifts. Despite being knocked down, Hyun-soo activates emergency god crafting once more, completing the process instantly and forging Damascus World 2, a temporary weapon designed specifically to cut stone. With a single decisive strike, our protagonist obliterates the stone golem as the blade vanishes immediately after fulfilling its purpose. At the same time, notifications flood in, and Hyun-soo is stunned as his level jumps by 14 in an instant, an overwhelming surge of experience. The remaining players stare in disbelief, unable to comprehend how he one-shot the monster, as Hyun-soo asks them in confusion if they were not supposed to kill it. The contestants respond explaining that the goal was only to survive as the trial has 3 stages and the appearance of the high-level golem had already broken the balance. They clarify that the creature was meant to be endured, not defeated. Our boy finally realizes he accidentally shattered the event itself as his vision fades and he collapses from mana exhaustion. Players gather around noting that despite being unconscious, he has not been logged out while they speculate about his abilities, initially believing he was multi-skilled but now suspecting he is a weapon master, wishing they had even one weapon as broken as his. At that moment, Bikal announces to all participants that due to an organizer error, the Goyard martial arts tournament is suspended, ordering everyone to exit immediately. News of Hyunsu's feat spreads online like wildfire as thousands tune into the live stream watching his unconscious body lying in the arena. Viewers are amazed at how he soloed the stone golem, demanding details about his equipment as one observer zooms in, noticing the arrow Hyunsu dropped and spotting his name engraved on it. The chat instantly connects the dots, realizing this is Blacksmith Hyunsu, the one who repaired the supposedly unrepairable bell in castle, leaving everyone stunned at how a blacksmith could be this overpowered. Meanwhile, in the shareholder company offices, the customer service team is overwhelmed, drowning in tickets, questioning why the tournament was halted as staff can only respond that it was a decision made by Ares' free will, speculating it may be tied to internal conflict in the Goyard kingdom while issuing endless apologies. In the development department, an employee urgently reports a major issue to her team leader who initially brushes it off, but is forced to listen as she reveals that the Goyard tournament has been suspended. He reacts calmly at first, saying it was expected, but she quickly clarifies the real problem that Sword King Barad has summoned user Hyunsu, leaving him stunned as he questions how such a meeting could happen so quickly. The employee confirms that Yuanso is already on his way to the reception hall, making the team leader realize he is in for another sleepless night as he mutters that this player defies all logic and acts completely unpredictably. He wonders what will happen if Yuanso completes Barad request and maximizes their affinity, concluding that in such a case he could master the Sword King art and become the strongest blacksmith alive. He notes that it will not be easy since the outcome depends on Barad AI, yet his colleague believes Hyunso will succeed, which unsettles him as he warns her not to jinx it. The next day inside the game, Hyunso is escorted into the throne room, reflecting on how unexpected it is to meet Sword King Barad. So soon, he kneels before the king who addresses him as stranger, explaining that normally the reward would be presented before a grand audience, but due to the incident he asks for understanding and discretion. He adds that by tomorrow everyone will recognize Hyunso's remarkable performance as a weapon master. Hyunsu suddenly rises to his feet, cutting off the king mid-sentence. He addresses Barad directly, stating that he heard the king was searching for him. The royal guards erupt in outrage, unable to tolerate such boldness. They insist that no matter his achievements, this level of arrogance cannot be overlooked and demand to know how he dares interrupt his majesty. Hyunsu remains calm, introducing himself as Blacksmith Hyunsu. The guards grow even more furious and prepare to throw him out, but Sword King Barad raises his hand, commanding them to stand down. He confirms that Hyunsu is exactly the guest he has been waiting for. Standing before him, Hyunsu faces Sword King Barad, one of the 10 legends of Ares. The king remarks that he is late, and Hyunsu replies that the journey here was nothing short of hell. Barad asks if he understands why he was summoned, and Hyunsu guesses it is to forge a sword. The king confirms this and reveals that even the kingdom's finest blacksmiths, including Tower Master Dawing, have failed the task. Because of that, he questions why Hyunsu should be trusted. Under immense pressure, Hyunsu answers that he has only one thing to offer. He has come this far relying solely on his own skill. Barad bursts into laughter, clearly impressed by the young man's boldness. Deciding to place his faith in that confidence, he orders his men to bring forth the materials. A glowing chest is placed before Hyunsu, and inside lies a piece of cold iron aged for 100 years. This rare ore has absorbed extreme cold over time, granting it both fire resistance and unique ice properties. Hyunsu stares at it, recognizing its value immediately. Sword King Barad then lays out the conditions. He wants a sword of epic grade or higher, that radiates frost. If Hyunsu succeeds and satisfies him, he will grant any wish. However, if he fails, he will be permanently banned from the Goyard kingdom. A quest window appears before Hyunsu, outlining the king's commission. The requirements are simple yet heavy. Earn the king's acknowledgement. The reward is immense, but the penalty is equally severe. Immediate expulsion. Without hesitation, Hyunsu accepts the quest, assuring the king he will not disappoint him. Later, inside the blacksmith's workshop, Hyunsu feels a piercing gaze on his back. Turning around, he sees a girl watching him intently. She is Bella, vice captain of the Goyard Kingdom's Knights, level 301. Though he understands he is an outsider, her constant observation makes him uneasy, though he knows their suspicion is justified. Bella tells him to act as if she is not there. With a faintly sarcastic smile, Hyunso asks if his discomfort is that obvious, and she bluntly confirms that it is. Internally, Bella questions what this young man is thinking. She knows that His Majesty has placed his final hope on this outsider, and she is determined that failure is not an option. The pressure begins to weigh heavily on Hyunso. Suddenly, a doorbell rings within his game interface. Confused at first, he realizes it is a notification from the real world. He logs out and opens the door to his apartment, surprised to see his landlady standing there. She explains that she has decided to sell the house because her husband has lost his job, and they need to liquidate their assets quickly. She apologizes repeatedly, but Hyunzo reassures her there is no need. He asks how much time he has, and she tells him he must move out within 2 weeks. Though she feels guilty, Hyunzo calmly says he has lived there well. After she leaves, he repeats the deadline to himself. 2 weeks. The weight of it crushes him. Even though he has earned a decent amount in Aries, his expenses are overwhelming. His father's hospital bills are in the millions, and buying back his burned workshop alone cost him 330 million. On top of that, he has not even begun his own burn treatment. Feeling completely cornered, Hyunzo wonders where he is supposed to go. Just then, his phone rings. It is Nell, who excitedly says she has come up with a brilliant idea regarding the quest. Hyunzo asks her to call back later, admitting his mind is a mess. Sensing something is wrong, Nell presses him for the truth. Hyunzo admits that while the quest is massive, he is about to lose his home in 2 weeks. Irritated, Nell reminds him how important this quest is. She explains that the internet is currently debating whether the Goya tournament champion and Blacksmith Hyunzo are the same person. She advises him to stay quiet for now, saying that when he finally reveals the truth, it will create a huge sensation. She emphasizes that he has received a commission from Sword King Barad, one of the most powerful NPCs in the game. She urges him to imagine the moment Barad unveils a new sword engraved with Hyunsu's name, saying that will be the point where his value skyrockets. That is why she is placing her trust in him. Hyunsu thanks her, admitting she has helped him regain his focus and promising to give it everything he has. He returns to the game and finds Bella angrily shouting at him. She demands to know why he has taken so long. Confused, Hyunso asks what happened. Bella delivers shocking news. Sword King Barad is trapped inside the dragon's nest. Stunned, Hyunso asks where exactly the king is trapped. Bella stares at him in disbelief, wondering how he can act surprised when he does not even know the location. Hyunso shrugs, saying he was just trying to read the situation. Bella tells him to stop joking because time is running out. She explains that Flame Nest is the general term for a region filled with fire-type monsters. Within it lies the Ifrit Dungeon, a deadly place from which no one except the king has ever returned alive. Hyunsu struggles to understand why the king would enter a dungeon he has already cleared, especially without a proper weapon. Bella reveals the truth. His Majesty's target of revenge is inside. The word revenge catches Hyunsu off guard, as he did not expect such a heavy motive from the king. The scene shifts to the Flame Nest, where Sword King Barad stands injured before the dungeon gate. He knows that beyond it lies the real battle. Even he recognizes that his current sword is insufficient for what awaits him. Though he is relieved his men escaped safely, he knows reinforcements will not arrive for at least 3 days. A bitter smile crosses his face as he wonders if he should have waited for the stranger to complete the sword. A painful memory resurfaces. He thinks of his son Ban, wishing he were still alive, realizing the boy would have been around the same age as Hyunsu. The memory takes him back to the moment his son died in his arms. Ban, bleeding on the dungeon floor, calls out to his father. Bard demands to know why he came to such a dangerous place without telling him. Ban explains that he believed conquering the dungeon would make him a son his father could be proud of. He realizes too late that he was too weak. Bard begs him not to apologize and urges him to hold on, but Ban softly says he is sorry one last time before taking his final breath. The memory fades, leaving the king holding his son's lifeless body in despair. Back in the present, Sword King Barad makes his decision. Though waiting would be safer, he cannot allow Ifrit to escape. He has waited years for this moment and is determined to finish it. With steady steps, he moves toward the blazing dungeon gate. Meanwhile, in the workshop, Bella explains the situation further. Since the prince's death, the king has tried every possible method to hunt the monster, but it has remained elusive. She adds that this may be his final opportunity. Bella admits honestly that trusting a stranger like Hyunzul is difficult for her. Bella admits that if His Majesty has placed his trust in Hyunsu, then there must be a reason. As a knight of the Goyad Kingdom, she bows her head deeply and begs him to save the king. At that moment, a new emergency quest appears before him titled, A Sword That Can Save the King. The objective is clear: accept Bella's request. The reward promises increased trust, but the penalty is absolute: the death of Sword King Barad. The mission leaves no room for doubt. He must forge a blade capable of saving him. Hyunsu reflects on the king's tragic past, recalling how he himself nearly lost everything in the flames of his own life. He wonders if he could have endured such loss. With firm resolve, he tells Bella that he is fully committed to making this sword. Without wasting time, Hyunsu begins forging. His hammer strikes the metal repeatedly before he cools it in water. He recalls the nature of the material. If its heat could melt even unique-grade weapons like butter, then he must create something that surpasses that level. He decides to focus on enhancing the special properties of the 100-year-old cold iron, aiming to amplify its unmatched qualities. As he works, a system notification appears, stating that his understanding of the ore has deepened. Another message follows, announcing that the spirit of the blacksmith has been activated. It explains that his passion, determination, and empathy have pushed him into complete immersion. He has entered a state of perfect focus. As a result, the system declares that his first legendary-grade sword is being forged. A brilliant light erupts from the workshop, forcing Bella to shield her eyes as she wonders if it is complete. When the glow fades, Hyunsu stands there holding the newly forged sword. It emits a chilling aura that instantly lowers the temperature of the room. He states that now it is time to save the king. Meanwhile, in the flame nest, Sword King Bard cries out in pain as he takes a heavy blow. Dropping to one knee, he steels himself, determined to end the battle. Before him stands the dungeon boss Efrit, level 490. Emerging through the flames, the king declares he has waited a long time for this moment and charges forward. Efrit roars as the clash begins. Though Bard withstands several attacks, the monster's overwhelming strength forces him back. He is shocked to see that Efrit wields a sword made entirely of fire. A relentless assault follows, leaving Bard exposed. Efrit unleashes a blazing storm, forcing the king into retreat while laughing mockingly. Kneeling, Bard curses his situation, believing it may be the end. As Efrit prepares to finish him with a massive flaming spear, an enormous icy blade intercepts the attack. Hyunsu and Bella arrive just in time. Bella urges the king to use the new weapon. As Bard grips the sword, a system window appears, displaying its incredible stats, overwhelming fire resistance, amplified ice-based attack power, and a significant advantage against fire monsters. It also possesses a powerful active skill called Frost Flower. Hyunsu encourages him to unleash its strength. The king raises the blade as it radiates freezing energy and activates the skill. A wave of ice surges across the battlefield, freezing Efrit's attacks instantly. The monster shrieks as the cold counters its flames. Declaring the fight over, Bard advances, his icy blade clashing against Efrit's fiery form and shattering it like glass. The demon falters, and with a decisive strike, the king delivers the final blow, destroying it completely. A system message confirms that the boss has been defeated. Exhausted, Bard finally catches his breath, but the danger is not over. As Efrit's remains begin to glow, Hyunsu questions what is happening. Bella quickly realizes the threat. Some monsters possess self-destruct abilities. The dungeon erupts in a violent explosion, engulfing everything in flames and trapping the king within the blast. Bella shouts for him to escape, but Bard orders her to stay back. Holding a locket containing his son's image, he decides to accept his fate. Though Bella wants to save him, she cannot disobey a direct command and remains frozen. At that moment, Hyunsu steps forward. Activating a flame-resistant shield, he walks directly into the inferno. The king tells him to turn back, but Hyunsu refuses, insisting he came to leave together with him. He asks if the king's decision is because of the person in the locket. Bard admits it is, blaming himself for his son's death and questioning how he can continue living. Hyunsu responds honestly, saying that while he cannot fully understand such grief, he nearly lost his own father, who now lies in a coma. He shares how he once prayed every day for his father to wake up, but now he is simply grateful that he is still alive. He tells the king that his son would feel the same. Hyunsu embraces him, urging him to let his son rest in peace. In that moment, Bard sees a vision of his smiling son and realizes his mistake. Hyunsu gently tells him that he must continue living and become a father his son would be proud of. The king nods, understanding that he cannot remain trapped in regret. With renewed resolve, he tells Hyunsu to go. Together, they escape the collapsing dungeon. Bella rushes to their side, asking if the king is safe. Hyunsu assures her he is, but before anything else can happen, a system notification appears. His HP has reached 0, and he is being forcibly logged out. He reassures Bella that players do not truly die before fading into light. Bella watches in shock as Bard collapses into her arms. The king whispers that the boy saved him before losing consciousness with a peaceful smile. Hyunsu awakens in the real world, greeted by a system message informing him that his level has dropped due to the forced logout penalty. Looking at his bandaged hands, tears fill his eyes as he promises his father that he will keep moving forward. Meanwhile, in a dreamlike state, Sword King Bard finds himself in a vast green field, face-to-face with his son Ban. The darkness fades as a voice he has longed to hear calls out to him. Ban runs toward him, smiling brightly. Bard steps forward slowly, asking if it is truly him. Ban gently confirms his presence, but explains that he has come to say one final goodbye. Hearing this, Bard's heart sinks. He clings tightly to his son, unable to accept it. Trembling, he asks what this farewell means. Ban reminds him of Hyunsu's words, expressing his wish for his father's happiness and urging him to stop blaming himself and live his life fully. As he speaks, his body begins to dissolve into light. Bard cries out, unable to stop it, until he suddenly awakens, gasping and calling his son's name. His companions, who have been watching over him for 3 days, rush to his side in shock. Regaining himself, Bard tells them his son appeared to him and that he has found peace. He declares that this miracle is thanks to Hyunsu and orders them to summon him immediately. Later, in a quiet, sunlit room, a guard announces Hyunsu's arrival. He enters, bows respectfully, and asks about the king's condition. Bard assures him that he feels better than ever and invites him to sit. Speaking seriously, he reveals that he summoned Hyunsu to discuss something important. He acknowledges that outsiders like him are immortal, capable of returning even after death. However, he insists that immortality does not erase the fear of death. Pain still hurts all the same. Looking straight at him, the king asks why Hyunsu risked his life to save him. Hyunsu answers without hesitation, explaining that he recognized the same burden and sorrow in the king's eyes that he himself carries. He genuinely wanted Bard to choose to live. The king quietly reflects on those words, repeating to himself, to be a burden. When he asks for the second reason, Hyunsu scratches his head awkwardly and admits that he was confident saving the king would bring an incredible reward. Barad's lips curve into a faint smile at that honesty, remarking that such an answer shows true courage. He agrees and declares that the reward will exceed all expectations. Barad hands Hyunsu a sealed scroll, explaining that it is the price for the remarkable sword he forged. The moment Hyunsu opens it, a blue system window appears, announcing that he has received 1 million gold. He freezes in shock, realizing the amount equals roughly 1.7 billion. It is a life-changing fortune. The king insists that since the sword truly saved him, the reward is more than justified. Hyunsu bows deeply, expressing his sincere gratitude. Barad gestures for him to sit again and speaks with a warm, fatherly tone. From now on he vows to live fully, so that when he meets Ban again, he will have no regrets. He tells Hyunsu to do the same and live strongly for his own father. The king invites him to visit the palace often, and Hyunsu eagerly agrees. Pleased, Barad tells him that he has given him new strength and asks if he may consider him a close friend. At that moment, a system message appears, announcing that Hyunsu's affinity with King Barad has reached the maximum level, granting him the friend's blessing. Realizing the significance of befriending a legend, Hyunsu grasps the king's hand and expresses how meaningful this bond is to him. To commemorate their friendship, Barad suddenly declares that he will personally teach him his swordsmanship. Knight Commander Benson immediately objects, questioning how such a priceless martial art could be given to a stranger. He reminds the king that Lord, the top-ranked successor, has already been chosen and is in training, insisting that only the worthy deserve such knowledge. The king calmly replies that he is not offering it lightly but to someone who has proven himself. A new skill quest appears before Hyunsu, titled Sword King's Swordsmanship. The condition is simple: he must land 3 or more valid attacks on Commander Benson. The reward is the legendary swordsmanship itself. Babert announces that Benson will personally test him and gives Hyunsu 2 days to prepare. After logging out, Hyunsu immediately uses his reward money to pay off his father's hospital bills. With relief, he leaves his cramped apartment and moves into a better home. He thanks his former landlady for her patience and repays her generously. Once everything is settled, he calls his friend Kim Ji-hoon and invites him out to dinner. Kim Ji-hoon expects another cheap meal but is stunned when Hyunsu brings him to a luxury restaurant. Joking that he has now seen everything in life, he laughs at the situation. Hyunsu smiles and explains that he simply wanted to treat his friend properly for everything he has done. During the meal, he hands Kim Ji-hoon a gift bag containing the luxury Hermes shoes he had always wanted. Surprised, Kim Ji-hoon asks where the money came from, but Hyunsu brushes it off as a small gift. He also reveals that he has returned the money for the game capsule. Overjoyed, Kim Ji-hoon hugs the box and thanks him sincerely. Watching his friend's reaction, Hyunsu feels that his life is finally changing. When Kim Ji-hoon starts getting emotional, Hyunsu jokingly cuts him off, telling him to eat before the food gets cold. 2 days later, the test begins in the training hall. Commander Benson tells Hyunsu to draw his weapon, making it clear there will be no favoritism. Instead of pulling out a sword, Hyunsu takes out a piece of raw metal from his pouch. Calmly, he says he is ready for the challenge. Benson looks confused, but Hyunsu grins. He explains that he is not a swordsman yet. He is a blacksmith, and he will fight his own way. The metal in his hand begins to glow intensely, radiating heat that shocks everyone present. When the light fades, a simple-looking sword remains in his grip. Benson inwardly admits he expected something legendary, but instead sees what looks like nothing more than an iron stick. The commander steps forward and mocks him, asking if he truly believes he can defeat the kingdom's knight commander with such a plain weapon. But the moment their blades collide, Benson immediately senses something is wrong. Hyunsu's sword has extremely low durability. Upon impact, it shatters violently like an explosive, scattering countless fragments into the air. The shards fly like shrapnel, slipping through the gaps in Benson's armor and striking him dozens of times at once. He cries out in shock and pain as the fragments graze his skin. Though he avoids fatal damage, the result is undeniable. Calmly, Hyunsu explains that the requirement was only to land valid attacks, not to win the duel. System messages appear, confirming 59 successful hits in a single second. Hyunsu points out that the rules never prohibited this method. Stunned, Benson examines the scratches covering his armor and admits he never expected such a clever, albeit unconventional tactic. Addressing him with respect, he asks Hyunsu to reveal his true identity. Hyunsu confidently declares himself the god of blacksmiths. At that moment, Benson and the other knights bow, acknowledging him with respect. Feeling slightly awkward, Hyunsu quickly tells them to stand up. Over the next 2 weeks, he undergoes intense training under both Benson and King Barad. Through this rigorous regimen, he successfully learns the Sword King's swordsmanship. His sword-related stats increase dramatically, and thanks to his relatively low level, his growth is rapid. However, he is only able to master the first 3 techniques. The king promises that once Hyunsu grows stronger, he will teach him the remaining skills. After training concludes, Hyunsu meets with Barad once more and makes a request. He asks for more 100-year-old cold iron, the same rare material used to forge the legendary sword. The king considers it before delivering disappointing news. He would gladly give it, but the piece used for the sword was the last one in the kingdom's treasury. Disheartened, Hyunsu realizes that his future crafting plans may be in trouble. Noticing his reaction, Bard smiles and tells him not to lose hope. He reveals that more of the material can be found at its original source, the dangerous Frost Mine. He suggests that Hyunsu gather it himself. Hyunsu wonders if he can handle such a perilous place alone, but the king resolves this by assigning Bella to accompany him. She initially refuses, insisting her duty is to protect the king, but Bard assures her that this mission will help her grow stronger. Accepting the order, she prepares to travel with Hyunsu. Accepting the royal command, she prepares to travel with Hyunsu. Soon after, the king publicly announces his victory over the Efrat tomb before a crowd of players and nobles. The community is impressed, praising Sword King Bar as a true legend. Some sharp-eyed players, however, go full detective mode. They notice the magnificent sword he wields, exuding a unique, icy aura. Using their evaluation skills, they discover the name Hyunsu, engraved in small letters on the blade. This catches everyone's attention. It is the same name that appeared on the martial arts tournament winner's arrow. Players begin discussing Blacksmith Hyunsu intensely on the forums. The mystery only deepens as no one knows his age, level, or even gender. A hilarious rumor starts spreading, claiming that Hyunsu is actually a sweaty, chubby man in his 40s. Meanwhile, in the real world, our boy checks his smartphone. Thanks to King Bar's statement, his workshop's follower count has surged past 300,000. He thinks that if the truth were revealed that the tournament winner and Blacksmith Hyunsu are the same person, the internet would break. For now, he decides to keep his identity on the down low. Before setting off for the Frost Mine, Hyunsu sends a message to someone he hasn't had the chance to thank. Elsewhere, the wealthy real estate investor Kang sits in his office. He is thinking about the news that King Barad has finally cleared the Efratome. Kang always believed that dungeon was impossible for current players. He remembers his own failed attempts to enter, where all his expensive armor melted like candle wax. He laments that although he has money, he lacks the gear to fulfill his ambitions. At that moment, Kang receives an in-game message from Hyunsu. The message states that the blacksmith is reaching out to fulfill his promise and craft him armor. Kang's face lights up as he immediately recognizes that this is the savior he has been waiting for. He pauses, trying to recall which promise Hyunsu is talking about until it finally clicks. He remembers their earlier discussion in his office about an artifact. Kang quickly messages Hyunsu saying that he is ready to fulfill his end of the bargain. He asks if there are any changes to the specs since he plans to submit the request soon. Privately, he wonders if the boy can actually create the piece he wants at his current level. Hyunsu replies that the specs are locked in, and when asked about his level, he responds that he is at level 59. Hearing this, Kang feels a sting of disappointment, thinking that for a crafter, those are rookie numbers. He ends the chat politely, wishing Hyunsu luck. Sitting back in his office, he sighs, thinking that despite the low level, the kid has a bright future and could be a decent investment. Just then, his eyes catch a news article praising Hyunsu the blacksmith. It states that the mysterious craftsman played a key role in King Bar's victory over Efrat, as the king's weapon was made by him. Kang briefly considers messaging this famous blacksmith for a commission, but quickly dismisses the idea, believing that someone who turns down top rankers would never bother with someone like him. Still, he feels frustrated knowing that the deadline for his class change quest is ticking down. In the end, Kang decides to stick with his current connection, completely unaware that both Hyunsus are actually the same person. Meanwhile, Hyunsu and Bella arrive at the Frost Mine. He is blown away by the landscape, a sparkling ice world glimmering with cold brilliance. A system message appears, announcing that he is the first user to enter the mine and rewarding him with double XP for a week. Hyunsu grins, excited to be the pioneer and claim the buff, then asks Bella if she has visited before. She replies that it is her first time as well. Noticing her distant demeanor, he senses a wall between them. Suddenly, a young man holding a pickaxe steps into their path and demands to know how they entered, insisting that no one is allowed without permission. Bella steps forward and introduces herself as the vice captain of the Royal Knights, flashing the royal seal. The young man, clearly shaken, introduces himself as Banya, a miner. Hyunsu simply states that he is a blacksmith. Banya admits that he is glad to see strangers in such a lonely place, but explains that no one can enter the main mine without his father's approval. Concerned about delays, Hyunsu listens as Banya smiles and offers to take them to meet his father. On their way, Hyunsu notices a massive crystal-covered monster trapped behind a barrier. Banya explains that the place is like a dungeon where monsters once roamed freely until a wizard sealed them inside a decade ago. Gazing at the creature, Hyunsu asks if the crystals growing on it are 1,000-year-old cold iron, and Banya confirms it while warning him not to get greedy, as getting too close would mean death. Inside the barrier, monsters still lurk. Anyone can enter, but few return alive, so the miners prefer working safely outside despite believing the best ore lies within. At last they arrive, and Banya points out his father, Captain Rek, informing him of the guests before leaving. Hyunsu approaches the captain, who is level 231. Rek notes the unusual pairing of Bella and Hyunsu and asks what they want. Hyunsu explains that he is searching for ore more valuable than 100-year-old cold iron. The captain is startled as he knows of such a resource, the 1,000-year-old cold iron, but hesitates to share the information with a stranger. Rek asks if Hyunsu has ever mined before, and he admits that he has not. The captain explains that an average miner extracts about 3 ores a day, then proposes a deal. If Hyunzo can extract 40 ores within a week, he will reveal information about the rarest ore. A Grade A quest window appears titled The Test of the Mine Captain, requiring him to extract 40 ores in 7 days. Failure means losing the chance to learn about the material forever. Rek asks if he accepts, and Hyunzo clenches his fist, asking what would happen if he extracts more than 40. Rek scoffs at the idea but promises that if he succeeds, he will personally extract the rare ore for him. However, he sets one condition: Hyunzo must not receive help from any companion. Determined to prove him wrong, Hyunzo accepts the challenge. After he and Bella leave, Rek scolds his son Banya for eavesdropping and drags him away. As they head to the worksite, Bella questions Hyunzo about provoking the captain. Extending his hand, he explains that he came prepared and materializes an advanced glowing mining axe. His eyes sparkle as he grips it, while Bella privately thinks that Her Majesty has befriended a complete oddball. A week later, Rek sits alone, convinced that the stranger will never return, believing the task to be impossible for a novice. Suddenly, footsteps echo at the entrance, and a shadow emerges. He is stunned to see Hyunzo completely covered in soot. Rek jokes that at least he now looks like a miner before demanding proof as the deadline has arrived. Hyunzo asks for a moment, and Rek laughs internally, certain that the challenge was a failure. However, Hyunzo extends his hand and drops a massive pile of ores before him. Staggered, Rek stares at the mountain in disbelief. Wiping the soot from his face, Hyunzo calmly reveals that he collected 200 pieces in total. Shocked, Rek demands to know his true identity, suspecting that he might be a legendary miner in disguise. Hyunzo simply grins, holding his glowing pickaxe with ease, and states that he is just an ordinary blacksmith. A system window appears, displaying the weapon's stats. It is a unique grade Damascus sword and axe with a durability of 12,000 and an attack power of 332, along with a special ability that increases cutting power against stone by 170%, while reducing durability loss by 70%. This tool was designed specifically for mining and features a mechanism that allows it to transform into a pickaxe when needed. Seeing the mountain of ore, Captain Rek realizes that Hyunzo completed the challenge in his own way, not as a miner but as a blacksmith. He formally apologizes for underestimating him and invites him to dinner. Hyunzo gladly accepts and asks if Lady Bella can join them, which Rek agrees to without hesitation. Later, at a lively tavern, Bella quietly drinks while both Banya and Hyunzo urge her to slow down, though she insists she is fine. At that moment, a burly miner approaches Hyunzo and demands to know if he truly extracted 200 ores. He laughs and confirms it, prompting the other miners to gather around him, eager to hear about the meteorite ore. Hyunzo reveals that he also managed to extract around 20 pieces of the rare material, leaving everyone stunned. One worker asks about the rumored special axe, and Hyunzo summons his Damascus weapon in a flash of light. He explains that it was designed solely for mining and boosts his efficiency by over 200%. Demonstrating its transformation into a sword, he adds that it further enhances his rock-cutting ability. As he enthusiastically talks about his creation, Bella watches with mild amusement, thinking that a blacksmith will always be a blacksmith who loves his tools more than people. Inspired by his achievements, the miners declare that if a novice can accomplish this, they must work harder. They celebrate and welcome him as one of their own. Later, Rek leads Hyunzo and Bella to a secluded area deep within the mine. He reveals that this is where the millennial meteorite ore is buried. Hyunzo looks toward the magic barrier, confused, and reminds him that entering it was said to be impossible. Rek nods and explains that the ore lies inside the sealed area. When Hyunzo asks how they are supposed to mine there if entry is forbidden, Rek simply tells him that it is now his problem before leaving to check another site. As he departs, a system window appears titled "A New Story Begins." Hyunzo reads the message, learning that 100 years have passed since the wizard Phelan created the barrier. The system warns that the magic is failing and the monsters inside are enraged, with the barrier set to break in 3 minutes. Alarmed, Hyunzo calls out to Rek, urging him to stop, insisting that the barrier is about to collapse. Rek dismisses it as a joke, but suddenly the mine begins to shake violently. Cracks spread across the ceiling, and rocks start to fall as the tunnels collapse. Realizing the danger, Rek finally orders everyone to evacuate. Cries for help echo as miners refuse to leave their comrades behind. Rek grabs his pickaxe and rallies the others to rescue their crew. Amid the chaos, Hyunzo considers his next move when a new quest appears. It is an S-rank quest exclusive to him for triggering this event. The penalty is severe, the death of the miners, and the objective is to save all 96 miners, with rewards based on the number of survivors. Grinding his teeth, Hyunzo resents how the system treats these people like mere numbers. As to him, they are real. Determined, he summons his sword and tells Bella to cover his back if he misses any monsters. Surprised, Bella asks if he is not afraid. He smiles and explains that players do not die, making it clear that he intends to face the danger head-on. He explains the plan, stating that he will hold the dungeon entrance alone to prevent any monsters from reaching the upper levels. Bro is the definition of a man. Anyways, standing before the crumbling barrier, Hyunzo sees the enraged stone monsters through the cracks and realizes that his Damascus sword alone will not be enough against the horde. He decides to forge a new weapon on the spot to counter the monsters cold. Activating his emergency god crafting skill, he pours mana and a large amount of ore into creating a great sword of cold iron. Just as the countdown reaches 0, the barrier shatters completely, and Hyunso shouts for them to come, bracing himself for the onslaught. A stone troll at level 113, a stone orc at level 107, and a stone wolf at level 110 charge toward him, knowing that his newly crafted weapon will disappear after a single use, but that its special ignore defense effect is active. He stands firm and vows that as long as he remains standing, not a single monster will get past him. Brandishing the massive blade, Hyunso charges forward and unleashes the Frost Storm skill, sending a sweeping icy attack surging with immense force. The storm freezes nearby monsters, catching a stone wolf mid-leap as jagged ice spikes tear through its body, ending it instantly with his one-punch man sword. However, after the devastating strike, the great sword of cold iron shatters. Hyunso stares at the remaining hilt in his hand in surprise. Although it was only a last resort, he realizes that with the right materials, such a creation could have a massive impact. There is no time to dwell, however, as many monsters still lurk within the gate, and his concern shifts toward the workers. Elsewhere, deep inside the collapsed mine, the miners dig desperately to rescue their trapped companions. Voices echo through the dust as some urge others to keep digging, knowing the injured must be saved, while cries for help pierce the air. "Damn bros, I wish my friends are just like this guys." A system message appears, stating that the reward will depend on the number of survivors and urging Hyunsu to save them. Watching the frantic rescue efforts, he clenches his fist. To him, these workers are no longer just numbers in a quest. They remind him of himself, risking everything to save his father, people sacrificing themselves for their loved ones just as he once did. With renewed motivation, Hyunsu stands before the dungeon entrance, now swarming with monsters, resolving to protect the miners at any cost. Realizing that fighting near the workers is too dangerous, he decides to draw the monsters aggro. Sprinting toward another section of the dungeon, he shouts to get their attention, and the plan works as a group of stone orcs and wolves breaks away to chase him. Once he leads them far from the others, he turns to face the horde, drawing his Damascus sword as he dives into battle. He evades attacks with agility, landing precise strikes while narrowly dodging a giant hammer that slams into the ground at his feet. With decisive blows, Hyunsu takes down both a wolf and an orc in a single motion. Another massive stone monster swings its hammer, but he slices the weapon in half before finishing the creature with a powerful strike. Suddenly surrounded by another wave of enemies, he smiles confidently, realizing that now is the time to use his true skills, grateful for everything he learned from the Sword King's swordsmanship. Activating the Raging Wave sword skill, he charges into the fray as a storm of rapid slashes erupts. His strikes transform into blue waves that tear through the monsters, cutting them down one after another. As he fights, a system message appears, noting that the skill deals 10% extra damage, reaching 140% on vital points. He pauses briefly to catch his breath, realizing that the technique is even more powerful than he had expected. After defeating the last monster, Hyunsu collapses among the corpses, completely exhausted. As he regains his breath, system messages appear, announcing that the mine dungeon has been cleared and that the surprise quest has been completed, confirming that all 96 miners have been rescued. He has achieved exceptional results, and a faint smile forms on his lips as relief washes over him. However, another system message quickly appears, suggesting that by manipulating the situation, he could receive a greater reward from the mine captain. Confused, Hyunsu wonders what it means, but while he believes that everyone's safety is reward enough, he cannot ignore the opportunity. Slowly rising while supporting himself with his sword, a sly idea begins to form in his mind. Outside the collapsed mine, Rek pulls an injured miner from the rubble and announces that they can finally rest, as everyone is safe. Relief spreads among the workers as they embrace one another, barely believing they survived. Meanwhile, Bella moves through the crowd searching for Hyunsu, and when she cannot find him, she informs Rek that he lured the monsters away and entered the dungeon alone. Rek looks at her in shock, repeating the name Blacksmith Hyunsu as if realizing something significant. He immediately gathers the miners and announces that Hyunsu drew the monsters away single-handedly to save them. The revelation stuns everyone, and one worker questions whether he truly went alone. Understanding now why no monsters appeared during the collapse, Rek grips his axe and admits his shame as their leader. He declares that their families are not truly safe yet and orders all able-bodied miners to follow him into the dungeon. The miners respond with determination, and led by Rek and Bella, they enter the dark tunnels with torches, calling out for the blacksmith. Soon, one miner spots him. Hyunsu is slumped against a wall, looking completely exhausted. Concerned, everyone rushes to his side as Rek asks if he is all right, and Banya exclaims that he looks badly injured. Bella arrives first and checks his condition, silently scolding his recklessness, but she is shocked to find his pulse steady, realizing he is actually fine. Bro missed the opportunity to get CPR by a baddie. As she prepares to reassure the others, Hyunsu gently grabs her hand and signals for her to wait, preventing her from exposing him. Letting out a weak sigh, he slowly rises and assures everyone that he is fine, explaining that the battle was intense but that he managed to eliminate all the monsters. Turning to Rek with a weary expression, he asks if everyone escaped safely. Rek clasps his hands, tears in his eyes, and thanks him sincerely while apologizing for forgetting about him during the chaos. Rek confesses his shame, blaming himself for offering nothing but food and drink while Hyunso risked his life for them. Hyunso responds quietly, saying that Rek and Bella treated him like family, and after witnessing their devotion, he could not stand by and do nothing. He adds that he is relieved everyone is safe, coughing slightly to maintain the act. Ain't no way bro is being dramatic this much. Anyways, Rek calls him a foolish friend and declares that no one will ever forget his kindness, while Bella watches from the side, completely bewildered by his performance. Rek helps Hyunso to his feet and orders the men to carry their savior inside. A system message appears, stating that the mine captain and 95 workers will forever remember him. As Rek assists him, Hyunso reflects with satisfaction that everything unfolded exactly as he intended, his plan to amplify the situation working perfectly. Bella watches suspiciously, and as Hyunso meets her gaze, he subtly gives a thumbs up, confirming her suspicions. Later, Hyunso wakes up in a room, stretching as he comments that he slept well. Suddenly, Banya bursts in, shouting his name and hurriedly asking how long he has been awake before rushing out to inform the others. Confused, Hyunso looks around, wondering how long they had been waiting. Rick soon enters, anxiously checking his condition, but Hyunso assures him that he is fine and asks about the miners. Rick confirms that everyone is safe but insists he should continue resting. Recalling that Hyunso mentioned leaving soon, Rick hesitates before admitting that there is something important he wants to share. Intrigued, Hyunso encourages him to continue. Rick calls everyone inside, and the miners gather as he announces that they will mine exclusively for Hyunso that day. Surprised, Hyunso repeats the statement in disbelief. Rick explains that it is their way of repaying him for risking his life, promising to extract the millennial cold iron he has been searching for. Moved, Hyunso asks if they truly mean it, and Rick confirms it without hesitation. Although he insists that he only did what was right, he expresses his gratitude sincerely. Just as he thinks the matter is settled, Rick signals for the others to step back, adding that there is one more issue. He asks his son to speak. Banya, visibly nervous, gathers his courage and addresses Hyunso, calling him his savior as he formally introduces himself before bowing deeply. Banya asks for permission to follow him, and as he kneels, system messages appear announcing that he has sworn eternal loyalty to Hyunso and possesses the potential to become a legendary miner. The system offers Hyunso the option to accept him as a follower, leaving him stunned as he repeats the word to himself. Meanwhile, in the game company's VIP user management team, a female employee panics upon seeing the situation unfold, unable to believe that Hyunso has triggered such an event despite not being a guild leader. Back in the mine, Hyunso urges Banya to stand, insisting that he is not worthy of such devotion, but Banya refuses, explaining that he witnessed everything, from the use of the Damascus axe to the courage he displayed in saving everyone. He declares that these actions have earned his utmost respect and vows to dedicate his strength to Hyunso. Seeing the sincerity in his words, Hyunso explains that the issue is not Banya but himself, as he lacks a proper base to lead anyone. He asks for time to establish a headquarters and promises to call for him when the time comes. Banya nods with hope, and Hyunso smiles, inviting him to officially join when that day arrives. A system message confirms that Hyunso has accepted him as a follower, and Banya hugs him tightly. Another message appears, allowing him to view Banya's stats, revealing that he is an epic follower at level 165 with exceptional mining abilities and skills such as detecting rare minerals and tireless mining. The system describes him as someone destined to become the world's most exceptional miner, a future legend with outstanding growth potential. Hyunso smiles, realizing that thanks to Banya's sincerity, he has gained a powerful new ally. Eagerly, Banya asks when they will meet again, clarifying that he does not intend to rush him. Hyunso reassures his new follower that it will not take long. Banya pledges that until then, he and the other miners will continue stockpiling resources and requests that Hyunso speak more casually with them. He agrees, promising that he will call Banya by his name from now on, while Rek watches the scene unfold with a proud smile. Outside the mine, the miners gather near a glowing blue portal as system messages inform Hyunso that he has obtained 45 iron and 51 cold iron. Rek approaches with anticipation, revealing a massive pile of glowing blue ore and announcing that it is millennial cold iron. Standing beside the enormous heap, he displays the item information window. It is classified as a unique grade material that requires a level 300 blacksmith or higher to process with an extreme difficulty rating. The description emphasizes that this iron, buried for 6,000 years, makes ordinary cold iron seem worthless. Hyunso gazes at the pile in awe as Bella leans closer and whispers that he must feel proud of his accomplishment. He quickly tells her to lower her voice, wary that her words could be misunderstood. Rek returns to express his deep gratitude, admitting that he never imagined he would mine millennial cold iron in his lifetime, and crediting Hyunso entirely. Beaming with confidence, Hyunso prepares to leave alongside Bella, thanking the miners for everything as they move toward the portal. The workers urge him to stay longer, insisting that he is always welcome. Just before they leave, Banya runs after them, calling out tearfully. Hyunso turns and explains that he was about to give him something. He presents his special Damascus pickaxe to Banya. Internally, he notes that the tool has a unique feature. The more Banya uses it to mine, the more minerals Hyunso will automatically receive as rental fees. Banya is stunned to receive the very axe Hyunso once boasted about and swears loyalty to him for life, while Hyunso feels a slight twinge of guilt over his hidden motive. Behind them, the miners continue celebrating wildly as Hyunso and Bella step through the portal. He reflects on Bella's earlier accusation of him being a scammer, realizing that despite everything, he risked his life for the miners and ultimately earned their trust. Before leaving completely, he turns to Bella, who quietly admits that what he did was actually impressive. Surprised, Hyunsoo asks if she truly means it, and she confirms that she is speaking sincerely. A few days later, the scene shifts to Salamander's den, a place alive with fire and a massive flaming portal. Inside, Kang, the real estate investor, sits in despair. He sighs, lamenting his terrible luck, having already lost count of his failed attempts. Frustrated, he thinks that even an 11th-ranked blacksmith could not craft the fire-resistant armor he needs. Spotting a messenger bird approaching, he assumes this dungeon raid has also failed. The bird lands in front of him, and suddenly a system message announces that Hyunsoo has sent him a gift. Kang repeats the name in surprise. Recalling that Hyunsoo is only level 59, he assumes the gift will not be anything extraordinary, though he still appreciates the gesture. Upon accepting it, he is shocked when the gift window opens. His eyes widen as he questions whether what he is seeing is even possible or merely a system error. Without hesitation, Kang slams the accept button, and the item materializes in his hands, a custom-made shield from Hyunsoo, gleaming with unique grade glass. On the screen, the shield's stats appear. As he holds the artifact, Kang immediately recognizes the protagonist's insane talent. Noticing the design inspired by Medusa's head, he realizes it is modeled after the Aegis, the legendary divine shield from mythology. He acknowledges that it is a true masterpiece. Just then, a quest timer appears, showing that less than 2 hours remain. Kang thinks to himself that the boy never stops surprising him. With renewed confidence, he declares that with this artifact, he might finally be able to clear the dungeon. Rising to his feet, he heads toward the gate and steps into Salamander's dungeon once more. Meanwhile, at the castle, Nell tells Hyunsoo that thanks to him, she has finally reached the reception hall of the Goyard Kingdom. The protagonist humbly responds that it was only possible with Mr. Bella's help along the way. Nell shifts the conversation, asking if he has been well lately. Hyunsoo admits that after his trip to the frost mine, he spent most of his days taking care of his father. Nell expresses sympathy, noting how exhausting that must be, and asks if there has been any sign of his father waking up. Hyunsoo explains that his father's consciousness has not yet returned, but he insists that he will not give up hope. After a brief pause, Nell brings up the guild, and Hyunsoo agrees to discuss it. She suggests that they keep the group small and elite for now, explaining that their first goal should be to establish him as the most famous blacksmith in the kingdom. Nell argues that teaming up with much higher-level players too early would only hinder their progress. She insists that the fastest way for a guild to grow is to create a star, and that star should be him. She then asks if he has anyone in mind as a founding member. Hyunsoo mentions his friend Kim Ji-hoon, who first introduced him to the game, though he admits he has not grown close to many other players. Nell assures him that they will build those connections together. Suddenly, he remembers someone else and says there is one more person. He explains that the man never shared his in-game name and is only known as Mr. Kong in real life. Nell responds that she has never heard of him and asks about his level. Hyunsoo admits that he never asked about anything beyond his profession. Nell questions how he can recommend someone for the founding team with so little information, but the protagonist defends his decision. He explains that when he was at his lowest, Kong sacrificed his own benefits so that Hyunsoo could start over, insisting that Kong is someone he deeply appreciates. Nell wonders if this person runs a business, and Hyunsoo confirms it. She warns that he might not fully understand his own value in Ares, and suggests that the businessman could be planning to use him to establish an in-game enterprise or even take control of the guild. The protagonist firmly shakes his head and insists that Kang would never do such a thing, stating that his friend is not the type to betray him. Nell acknowledges his confidence but insists that the final decision should be hers, provided she meets Kang personally. Hyunsoo agrees to the condition. She then gives him one last warning, insisting that he should not reveal that he is Blacksmith Hyunsoo yet. The protagonist freezes and awkwardly admits that he had already placed his name on the gift he sent earlier, leaving Nell staring at him in disbelief. Meanwhile, inside the Salamander dungeon, the heat is overwhelming. A lizard-like monster charges at Kang, but he blocks the attack with his new shield. With a burst of strength, he shatters the creature and continues fighting efficiently, amazed by his greatly improved defense. He notes how the shield contains every feature he had requested. Inspecting the back, he finds a symbol engraved into the metal, the name Hyunsoo. Kang cannot help but wonder how many more times Hyunsoo will surprise him, questioning how he could ever repay such generosity. Suddenly, a massive hand rises from the lava and strikes him across the chamber. Before him stands the Fire Queen, a towering flaming avatar. She gathers a fireball and hurls it at him, causing the entire dungeon to shake as toxic fumes fill the air. When the smoke clears, Kang remains unharmed, protected by the artifact. The monster's voice echoes through the chamber as she remarks that it is interesting he managed to block her attack and demands the name of the shield's creator. She unleashes a barrage of attacks, but Kang skillfully dodges and blocks each one. The Fire Queen threatens that if he refuses to answer, she will hunt not only his avatar but his real self. While evading her attacks, Kang considers that if her true form were to pursue him, he might be forced to quit the game. Despite this, he resolves that he will not betray Hyunsoo. With determination, he leaps over the queen's head. She sneers, observing that he does not fear death. and strikes him again. The attack lands directly on the shield as Kang reflects that his life is not worth losing over a secret, yet he still refuses to speak. A red warning suddenly appears as the Fire Queen activates Death Hand. The devastating blow crushes Kang and she mocks him, questioning if he is truly willing to die for a single artifact. His HP drops to a critical level and he realizes that this is no ordinary item, it is Hyunsu's creation. At that moment, a golden message appears, indicating that the shield is responding to his will. Kang shouts that the artifact is a gift from his friend, and energy surges through it, forcing the Fire Queen back in confusion. An icy spear materializes in his hand as he unlocks a hidden skill, Frost of Aegis. Enraged, the queen gathers a massive fireball and taunts him while another warning signals that she is preparing a powerful attack. Kang throws the ice spear with all his strength as he leaps into the air. The queen fails to react in time, and the spear pierces her head, reducing her to ashes. With that, Kang defeats the Fire Queen and clears the Salamander dungeon, earning the Crimson Dragon armor. A system message confirms that he has obtained a hidden piece and completed a secret trial. Breathing heavily, he reads another message stating that despite being in danger, he refused to reveal his comrade's identity, earning him the title Growing Warrior. A story progression reward appears, and Kang stares at it in disbelief, wondering if he has truly achieved a hidden class promotion. Notifications flood his screen, declaring him a flawless attacker and announcing his ascension to an epic class. The final message confirms that he has been promoted to Growing Warrior, a class capable of ascending to the 10th rank of legend, dedicated to protecting what is precious by any means necessary. Kang is stunned, feeling as though the class was tailor-made for him. He realizes that the dungeon had been a hidden quest all along. As the environment dissolves, a system screen appears, noting that he has not yet joined a guild and recommending several options. Kang decides that he has much to discuss with Hyunsoo. Later, he walks into the inn wearing his new armor, drawing astonished looks from the crowd. The protagonist calls out to him as whispers spread among the onlookers, speculating that Kang must be a top-tier player based on his equipment. From a corner, Nell observes him and assumes that this must be Kang. Judging by his artifacts, she concludes that he is the real deal and reminds herself to remain cautious, especially since Hyunsoo mentioned that the man runs a business. Kang approaches Hyunsoo and expresses his gratitude, explaining that thanks to him he was able to clear the quest. He admits that he never expected Hyunsoo to be the one behind the gift. Nell moves quickly, concerned that he might reveal too much, but Kang pauses, noticing the attention around them. He suggests that he will cover the expenses and proposes that they move to a more private location. They relocate to a private lounge in the Goyard Kingdom, where Kang immediately gets to the point. He reveals that he deduced Hyunsoo's identity from the name engraved on the shield, confirming that the blacksmith is indeed Hyunsoo, while Nell observes that Kang is not one to waste time. Our protagonist nods, explaining that he did not want to hide anything from Kang, which was why he left his mark on the artifact. Kang places a hand on Hyunsoo's shoulder and admits that he had already begun to suspect the truth when Hyunsoo offered to buy back the forge. Now, after everything, he realizes just how powerful the young man truly is. Kang adds that during his quest, when others tried to claim the artifact, he told them it was a gift from a friend. The protagonist thanks him for that. Kang reassures him that since Hyunsoo values his privacy, he will keep the secret no matter what. Watching their genuine bond, Nell feels a hint of regret for her earlier suspicions. She introduces herself properly as Hyunsoo's manager and admits that she misjudged Kang. Kang reacts with surprise at her formal approach. Nell explains that she had been worried he might try to take advantage of the protagonist, especially knowing they were business partners. Kang laughs, admitting that her concern is not entirely unfounded, as there are indeed people who would exploit someone like Hyunsoo. However, he clarifies that although he once considered forming a guild, he never intended to profit from their relationship. For him, seeing that Hyunsoo is surrounded by trustworthy allies is already enough. At that moment, the protagonist invites Kang to join his guild. Kang is caught off guard by the offer, but Hyunsoo explains that he wants them to grow together and share the journey to the top. Kang smiles and accepts, promising that he will protect Hyunsoo from now on. He formally introduces himself as Bark, level 311, class Growing Warrior, adding that he may even reach a legendary class someday. Nell reacts in shock at the mention of a legendary class. Hyunsoo then introduces himself, stating that he is level 80 with the class God of Blacksmiths. Kang is left stunned by the revelation. The two shake hands, and the protagonist mentions that they have not yet decided on a guild name but is excited about working together. Kang grins and jokingly calls him boss. Nell watches the exchange with satisfaction. Kang then warns that if they keep talking, their food will turn cold, though he insists on repaying Hyunsoo. He sends a transfer through his system screen, and while the protagonist initially protests, his expression changes instantly upon seeing 400 million won deposited into his account. Shocked, he questions why Kang would pay such an enormous amount for a single shield. Kang laughs and insists that accepting such an artifact without proper compensation would feel like theft. He then shifts the topic to their guild plans. Nell quickly takes over, explaining that her top priority is to make Blacksmith Hyunsoo widely recognized. Kang immediately understands the strategy and praises it as smart, asking for more details. Nell reveals that they plan to showcase the most popular, scandal-free, and visually appealing player on a live broadcast, referring directly to Hyun-soo. The protagonist reacts in disbelief, questioning whether she just called him handsome. He wonders if the broadcast idea is some kind of joke, but their serious expressions confirm otherwise. He begins to think that this plan might bring unexpected complications. After Aries went global, Purim Corp began collaborating with broadcasters, filling television and online platforms with Aries-related content. Among them, AJ Internet Broadcast Station once dominated the ratings with live in-game streams. Inside the station, the staff scramble in a state of panic. One employee points out the declining ratings, while another explains that this is exactly why he has arranged a special guest. He reveals that Blacksmith Hyun-soo refused to appear in person but agreed to respond through the martial arts tournament champion. He adds that this may be their last opportunity to revive the show. As preparations rush forward, comments begin flooding in from viewers eagerly awaiting the broadcast, with many joking about the Room of Truth where avatars appear as their real-world selves. The broadcast finally begins, as host MC Tumps energetically welcomes viewers back and introduces the day's guest, the martial arts tournament champion, promising an exciting segment. The chat explodes with excitement as he skips the usual introduction and immediately invites Hyun-soo into the Room of Truth. When Hyun-soo appears, the reaction is unexpected. Instead of praise, the screen fills with question marks from confused viewers. Even the protagonist senses something strange and asks if the chat system is malfunctioning. Suddenly the tone shifts completely as comments flood in admiring his appearance. Viewers openly declare that he looks incredibly attractive, overwhelming the chat with excitement. Embarrassed, Hyun-soo blushes and struggles to respond. Amid the chaos, a user named Rowoon asks when the blacksmith will appear, even donating 500,000 won to highlight the question. Hyun-soo stares at the screen in confusion, unsure how to respond. The chat quickly reveals that Rowoon is actually Korea's #1 forge master, Kilma. The situation leaves Hyun-soo thinking that everything happening feels completely unreal. The story then shifts backward in time. A few days earlier, inside the Black Anvil Smithy conference room, 4 high-ranking members sit around a table. Breaking the silence, Sylvia questions who this blacksmith Hyun-soo is and why an emergency meeting had to be called during their busiest season. Dox, another member, asks if she has been living under a rock. He explains that this blacksmith is currently the hottest topic in Aries, having risen to stardom after crafting a sword for Sword King Barad. Vaughn joins in, arguing that the Black Anvil Guild has no reason to feel threatened by a single player. Dox counters by saying that caution would not hurt and suggests that they should recruit him before his fame grows even further. Finally, the guild master Rowoon speaks. He states that he has heard their opinions regarding blacksmith Hyun-soo, but he will only make a decision after meeting the man in person. Back in the present, Hyun-soo stares at the broadcast screen as he notices a comment from Rowoon asking when blacksmith Hyun-soo will appear, along with a donation of 500,000 won. The chat erupts into chaos, and even the protagonist is surprised by the massive donation. MC Tumps immediately stands up, thanking Rowoon enthusiastically and announcing that a major figure has joined the broadcast. He introduces him as the master of the #1 domestic smithy guild and the second-ranked blacksmith. Suddenly, another donation appears, 100,000 won from blacksmith Hyun-soo. The message states that he will proceed with the interview through Hyun-soo today. MC Tumps shouts in excitement, declaring that blacksmith Hyun-soo has arrived at the perfect moment. The protagonist smiles quietly, realizing that Nell has orchestrated everything flawlessly. With that single donation, she successfully convinces the audience that the protagonist and the blacksmith are 2 separate individuals. MC Tumps returns to the main topic and asks the protagonist to introduce himself properly. Hyun-soo responds by describing himself as someone who keeps things secret and is currently grinding games full-time. When asked about having a girlfriend, he admits that it would be nice to have one. Instantly, the chat floods with donations from viewers offering themselves. Riding the rising hype, MC Tumps dramatically shifts the tone and begins asking questions about the mysterious blacksmith. He inquires about blacksmith Hyun-soo's job. Remembering Nell's advice, the protagonist pretends to communicate through an earpiece. He places a hand on his ear as if listening, then relays that the man is a blacksmith while his age remains a secret. When asked about height and weight, he repeats the act and claims that both are classified information. The chat grows frustrated, complaining that everything is being kept secret and speculation begins to spread. MC Tumps quietly expresses concern that the broadcast might fail. Sensing the shift in mood, the protagonist realizes he must adapt quickly to keep the audience engaged. He suddenly announces that the blacksmith would prefer to introduce himself through his work. MC Tumps pauses in confusion, asking if he is referring to the protagonist himself. Hyun-soo quickly clarifies that the statement comes from the blacksmith through the earpiece. Recovering, the host agrees and reveals that he has prepared special content to showcase blacksmith Hyun-soo's work. He activates a panel and announces a unique collaboration. He explains that the martial arts tournament winner Hyun-soo will do a time attack dungeon mission. The rules are simple but harsh. Blacksmith Hyun-soo must craft 3 artifacts within 10 days, and the protagonist must clear the dungeon using only those items. The chat immediately fills with doubt, as viewers point out that producing 3 items in such a short time is nearly impossible. Even top-ranked blacksmiths struggle to create anything beyond common-grade equipment under such conditions. Meanwhile, MC Tumps reflects that this high-risk content might be exactly what his channel needs to recover. At that moment, Rawoon sends another donation, 1 million won, and proposes an additional challenge. He offers 1 million more if a rare item appears, 3 million for an epic item, and 10 million for a unique item. He asks whether he can place this bounty on the mission. MC Tumps reacts in shock at the enormous offer. Rawoon then adds one more condition. If they fail, they must reveal information about the sword made for Sword King Barad. The host describes it as insane content, while Rawoon waits for their response. Pretending to listen through the earpiece, the protagonist announces that the blacksmith accepts the challenge. Later, Nell sits quietly reviewing community reactions while the protagonist rests. She informs him that the community is buzzing about him and asks how it feels to gain so much attention. When he fails to respond, she snaps him back by grabbing his shoulder and asks what kind of item he plans to create. He replies that he is still working on it, explaining that he aims to produce at least a rare-grade item. However, since Rawoon raised the stakes, he now intends to push himself further and attempt a unique-grade artifact. Nell points out that the community already sees this as a direct competition between Blacksmith Hyunso and Rawoon. The protagonist tries to deny it, but she interrupts, insisting that it has already become a rivalry. She explains that if he succeeds, his fame will skyrocket, and Black Anvil will likely attempt to recruit him. When he asks what happens if he fails, Nell bluntly states that his value will drop significantly because the sense of uniqueness will disappear. Hearing this, the protagonist stands up and declares that he will succeed no matter what. He thanks Nell for motivating him and tells her that he needs to focus on crafting, and Bro proceeds to throw Nell outside. Standing outside, Nell wonders if he really just sent her away like that. 10 days later, inside the Time Attack dungeon, the area is filled with orcs and goblins. The broadcast is live, with over 80,000 viewers watching. A staff member quietly asks writer Kim if these are their peak numbers, and Kim hopes the content will deliver strong results. MC Tumps announces the start of the first stage. Around 40 monsters wait below a cliff, and the objective is to break through them and destroy a red jewel located 400 meters away. He mentions that the current record holder is Pro Nime, ranked 7th globally, with a time of 1 minute and 23 seconds. If the protagonist breaks the record, he will receive a reward of 10 million won. The chat explodes with excitement over the prize as the countdown begins. Hyun-soo stands at the edge of the cliff observing the horde below. He explains that the artifact he will showcase today is neither a bow nor an arrow, but a gauntlet. After equipping it, he draws his bow, and thanks to the gauntlet, his strength increases by 111 while his attack range expands significantly. He releases the arrow, and with the boosted stats, its penetration and destructive power skyrocket. The projectile tears through the monsters, instantly clearing a path before traveling the full 400 meters and shattering the red jewel. A notification appears confirming a new record for Stage 1, 41 seconds. MC Tumps congratulates him and announces that he has earned the 10 million won prize for breaking the record. But the protagonist smiles at the camera and thanks the host, but then corrects him by stating that the actual reward should be 20 million won. Confused, MC Tumps asks for an explanation. Hyun-soo looks directly into the camera and reminds Rawoon of the earlier bet. He then reveals that the gauntlet he used is of unique grade, doubling the reward and shocking everyone watching. Watching from his screen, Rawoon sits in stunned silence. A comment from him soon appears, demanding immediate details about the artifact. Hyun-soo agrees and raises the gauntlet, which shines with a brilliant golden light. He opens the status window for the viewers, confirming that it is indeed a unique grade item. The moment this is revealed, Rawoon immediately sends a sponsorship of 10 million won. Hyun-soo expresses his gratitude for the generous support and then announces that the blacksmith has prepared an exciting proposal to auction the artifact live. Rawoon quickly instructs his subordinates to monitor the situation closely and report any significant developments. The protagonist begins the auction, stating that the starting bid is set at 10,000 gold. At first, the chat falls completely silent, causing the protagonist to grow uneasy as he wonders whether the starting price is too high or if Nell's strategy has failed. Just as doubt begins to creep in, a bid of 15,000 gold suddenly appears. From there, the bidding escalates rapidly, climbing to 40,000 gold in no time. Hyun-soo bows toward the camera, thanking everyone on behalf of the blacksmith, though internally he is thrilled by the massive response. He instructs interested buyers to submit their final bids directly through the shop. MC Tumps addresses the audience, thanking them for their patience as the second stage begins. He reminds viewers that the auction is still ongoing and encourages them to stay tuned for the next artifact. Inside the dungeon, the protagonist now faces a level 121 Cyclops wielding a massive stone weapon. Hyun-soo leaps high into the air, aiming directly for its head. The Cyclops swings in an attempt to strike him down, and viewers speculate that he may not survive the attack. However, he lands safely and immediately jumps again, clashing his sword against the creature's club. The impact shatters the Cyclops' weapon, and seizing the opportunity, the protagonist slices the monster from head to toe, eliminating it instantly. The chat erupts in amazement at how effortlessly he defeated such a durable enemy. Turning to the camera, Hyun-soo relays that the blacksmith mentioned the second item is not particularly impressive. Despite the warning, viewers eagerly demand to see it and accuse him of building false hype. He then reveals the great sword, which turns out to be only normal grade. The audience is left confused and disappointed by the massive drop in quality compared to the unique gauntlet. They begin questioning how there could be such a significant gap between the two items. Hyunsu laughs awkwardly and admits that it does seem underwhelming. Privately, however, he understands the real reason. Using his skill, God's emergency crafting, twice in succession triggered a hidden penalty that reduced the item's tier by 2 levels. Meanwhile, watching the broadcast, Rawoon comments that perhaps the blacksmith simply got lucky with the first item. At that moment, Rawoon receives a call from his guild leader, who asks whether he is watching the broadcast. The leader suggests that even with the disappointing second artifact, they should still attempt to recruit the blacksmith. Rawoon proposes offering a signing bonus of 2 billion won, and the leader agrees without hesitation. Although Rawoon briefly wonders if the offer is excessive, he ultimately decides that securing such talent is worth the investment. However, his attention is drawn back to the screen when he notices a peculiar detail in the greatsword's description. It mentions that the item received an unintended penalty. He stares at the text, unable to fully understand its meaning. Back on the broadcast, MC Tumps energizes the audience by praising the protagonist for clearing the second stage so cleanly. He warns that the final stage will be far more difficult, as multiple boss-level monsters are about to appear. The objective is to avoid them and reach the flag positioned on a hill. The main threat is a level 138 werewolf known for its extremely durable hide. He explains that the success rate for this stage is below 20%, and that even the current record holder barely managed to complete it. Listening to the explanation, the protagonist remarks that there is no use dwelling on the earlier failure with the weapon. Instead, he focuses entirely on the final challenge. Viewers joke that they have already ordered food for a long show and urge him to hurry up. Ignoring suggestions to retreat, the protagonist declares that he has no intention of running away, leaving the audience confused by his confidence. He then announces that with his next weapon, he plans to hunt down every enemy in sight. Blue energy begins to gather in his palm, forming the shape of an arrow. Many viewers dismiss it as a bluff, but suddenly, a pack of wolves appears, growling and charging toward him. Hyunso takes aim and fires the energy arrow, striking one wolf directly in the eye. As the rest rush forward, the arrow detonates in a massive explosion, wiping out the entire group instantly. Satisfied with the result, the protagonist nods, pleased that this item was crafted successfully. The chat explodes with reactions, demanding to know what just happened and asking for the weapon's details. Hyunso then introduces the third artifact, explaining that it is a 1,000-pound bow designed in the style of a legendary weapon said to have once shot down the sun and moon in Jeju Island mythology. Jeju Island existed as a folktale shared by Hyunsu's father during the protagonist's childhood. The legend claimed that centuries ago the world had 2 suns and 2 moons, throwing everything into chaos. To restore order, the king of the upper world sought help from his elder brother, the ruler of the underworld. To grant his brother's wish, the elder descended and used the 1,000-gun bow to shoot down 1 sun and 1 moon. The story sparked Hyunsu's curiosity about the weapon, rather than the brothers themselves. In that moment, he decided to create the bow, and shared this ambition with his father. As he grew older, he attempted to craft it using his knowledge and Ares technology, but faced a major challenge with its weight. Unable to determine how much strength he needed to wield it, Hyunsu came up with a solution. Instead of increasing the weight of the arrow, he decided to make the enemy heavier upon impact. To complete the weapon, he used a special type of wood capable of supporting unique abilities, successfully creating a new version of the 1,000-pound bow. In the present, he fights his enemies, eliminating them one by one. Moving forward, Hyunsu defeats 10 werewolves, astonishing the host, who cannot believe they were all taken down with a single arrow. The chat erupts in excitement, claiming it is their first time witnessing such a feat. Suddenly, he senses something strange in the forest atmosphere, as a group of werewolves charges from the darkness. Although he prepares to attack, his body begins to tremble, leaving him confused. The system explains that his reaction is caused by the roar of a powerful predator and announces the start of a new event. The king of werewolves, Fenrir, a level 178 fragment, descends, and anyone who defeats it will receive massive rewards. The host becomes visibly terrified while the chat discusses Fenrir's legendary status in Ares. Meanwhile, Hyunsu struggles to move properly under the creature's overwhelming presence. Fenrir attacks using its blood claw, inflicting an injury and triggering a bleeding effect. With fear and bleeding weakening him, his condition worsens. Realizing this, he uses his items to boost his strength to 111 as Fenrir launches another dangerous attack. The audience watches anxiously, wondering if he can survive. After the strike, Fenrir looks around, only to find that Hyunsu has disappeared. Suddenly, he reappears and launches a counterattack, striking the wolf's eye and knocking it to the ground. Despite this, Fenrir attempts another attack with its remaining claw, but Hyunsu dodges and delivers his final move. He fires an arrow directly into Fenrir's eye, revealing it as his true weapon. Upon impact, the weight of 1,000 June transfers to the beast, forcing it deeper into the ground. The host watches in disbelief as the situation completely reverses. Hyunsu then jumps into the hole, sits on Fenrir's head, and secures his victory. The audience is left stunned, struggling to understand how the bow worked. Requests flood in from viewers asking to buy the 1,000 June bow, but Hyun-soo apologizes, explaining that after witnessing its power, the owner has decided not to sell it. The chat continues pleading, promising loyalty in exchange. After climbing out of the hole, he apologizes again and instead offers a deal to archers. He announces that the owner will accept one crafting request and instructs them to send applications to his blacksmith shop. The broadcast ends as he thanks the viewers. Later, he returns to his rented shop, satisfied with how well the stream performed and the rewards he gained. Checking the system, Hyun-soo sees his level has reached 100 with his HP at 82%. The system informs him that he can now establish a guild. Thinking of Bark and Nell, he feels pleased, knowing he can finally invite them, and considers bringing Banya as a vassal. As he decides on a name, he chooses Gwangmyang, reflecting his hope for a bright future. Once completed, the system announces him as a guildmaster, and grants him the title of Lord's Grace. Soon after, Nell and Bark join the guild, praising both the name and his leadership. Nell immediately begins searching for a base, and during a call, she asks about his next move. Hyun-soo explains that he plans to fulfill a promise made to Barad, which sparks Nell's curiosity. He reveals that Barad asked him to visit after the guild was formed, and mentions that he will also travel to the Goyard Kingdom. Elsewhere, a man serving the kingdom advises the king not to allow Hyun-soo entry, but the king dismisses the concern, stating that he does not make rash decisions while calmly observing the situation. Later, Hyun-soo receives a call from the broadcast station. The representative praises his successful stream and invites him for future appearances, revealing that the event generated 37 million won, with 25 million going to him after deductions, plus an additional 10 million as a reward for setting a new record. When asked about the blacksmith's share, Hyun-soo states that he will handle the payment personally. After ending the call, he looks at his phone in disbelief upon seeing the amount he earned. He also receives a notification that his gauntlets have been sold. Combining the earnings, his total reaches 100 million won, leaving him stunned. He then messages Nell to log in and joins shortly after. Appearing in the Intermediate Zone's town square, he spots Nell rushing toward him as she calls his name. She reports that Black Anvil has offered him a blank check for recruitment, while Hyun's Forge has grown to around 400,000 subscribers and climbed to 49th place in the Korean blacksmith rankings. Nell grabs our boy and shakes him in excitement, questioning whether Hyun-soo is even listening. Letting out a nervous laugh, the protagonist explains that the credit belongs to her, since she led them. Realizing she is getting carried away, Nell quickly apologizes and asks about his preparations, knowing he plans to head to the Goyard Kingdom. Reassuring her, Hyun-soo explains that he is prepared thoroughly. He mentions creating new items from damaged equipment he obtained earlier, believing they could help him earn Barad's trust. Nell agrees with the idea and brings up the hidden quest. Hearing this, Hyun-soo sincerely praises her for always supporting him, which causes her to blush as she quietly stares at him. This makes Hyun-soo wonder if something is on his face, but Nell immediately denies it. Alright, so we are making progress on this love story. Anyways, shifting the topic, she reports that she still has not found a base for the guild, but promises to keep searching and update him. With a gentle smile, he thanks her for her efforts. Meanwhile, in the Goyard Kingdom, Barad pets one of his wolves as Marquis Valo questions if this has become his new hobby. Barad responds while looking at the white wolf, explaining that it is a gift he received after clearing a dungeon. The Marquis congratulates him, but raises concerns about allowing Hyun-soo into their territory, arguing that he is merely an outsider blacksmith. Barad firmly states that Hyun-soo saved his life, so there is no reason to oppose his arrival. As the Marquis prepares to argue about tradition, Barad notices one of his wolves becoming uneasy. At that moment, a servant announces Hyun-soo's arrival. When he enters, the Marquis is left stunned after sensing his presence, unable to believe that a blacksmith could carry such an aura. Hyun-soo walks forward and greets Barad, and the two soon sit together sharing tea. The white wolf hides behind Barad's chair, while Hyun-soo's helmet rests on the table. Observing the change in him, Barad points to the helmet and questions if it is the source. Hyun-soo explains that it is Fenrir's helmet and cloak, noting that it enhances stats and grants the dignity of a wolf. Intrigued, Barad asks if he crafted it, and Hyun-soo humbly replies that he only repaired it. Glancing at the frightened wolf behind Barad, he notes that the equipment appears to be functioning well. As Barad calms his wolf, Hyun-soo asks why he was summoned. Looking out the window, Barad begins explaining the situation of Balas, a kingdom of blacksmiths that has fallen into chaos. He describes how the instability is spreading to nearby territories and causing conflict among nobles. Despite sending skilled individuals to restore the village, all of them fled without explanation. Barad explains that after seeing Hyun-soo's craftsmanship, he believes he is capable of helping Balas. The system presents the quest details, and Hyun-soo hesitates, admitting that he has no experience rebuilding a village. After a brief pause, he adds that he still wants to help the blacksmiths. Later that night, he arrives at Balas with Nell and Bark. Nell observes that all the shops are closed despite it being a place for blacksmiths, while Bark finds the absence of people suspicious. Even Hyun-soo feels the situation is worse than expected. Spotting a building with lights on, Nell suggests investigating. Inside, they find it covered in webs and call out, only to hear a noise from behind a door. An old man soon appears, holding a lantern and coughing as he questions their identity. Hyunsu apologizes for entering without permission and explains that King Barad sent them. The old man asks if he is from the Edral Merchant Guild, but Hyunsu, unfamiliar with it, presents Barad's decree instead. Silence follows for a moment, prompting him to say they will wait for an answer. After some time, the old man steps out, his doubts cleared. He introduces himself as Percha, once the Lord's personal blacksmith, and notes that visitors like them have not come in a long time. When asked why there is no fire at night, Percha explains that everything changed after the Edral Merchant Guild arrived in the village. He recounts how the guild brought expensive gifts and gained the trust of the territory lord, who accepted their offer of open trade. Eventually they settled in the village, and during a meal the head merchant proposed a bet. Unaware of the consequences, the lord accepted and lost, along with her authority. From that point, the guild took control, and those who tried to escape were captured and turned into slaves. Hearing this, Nell comments on their cruelty, while Hyunsu reflects that such actions are unforgivable. He then asks if Para also worked under the guild, and Para explains that he escaped after the lord ordered him to flee and one day reclaim everything. Bark suggests that Para could win back the wager, believing in the lord's trust in him. The old man lowers his head and speaks of Boksu, an examiner of the Edral Merchant Guild who is both disgraceful and highly skilled, making escape nearly impossible. Overcome with exhaustion, Para admits that he no longer has the strength to keep running. As he walks away, he thanks them for listening and advises them to leave before the guild arrives. At that moment, Hyunso stands and places his hand over his heart, expressing his determination to help, explaining that as a fellow blacksmith, he cannot ignore their suffering. Para shows his gratitude toward our boy but ultimately refuses his help. As he begins to speak about other blacksmiths who came before him, a loud noise from the door interrupts him. At that moment, Boksu bursts inside and becomes excited upon seeing Para, as he claims he has been searching for him for a long time. As he approaches, the old man collapses to the floor while Boksu forces him to accept the wager. Drawing his sword, he places it against Para's neck and declares that he will kill him if he refuses. His attention then shifts toward our protagonist and his companions as he questions whether they are Para's new allies. Bringing up the system interface, Boksu displays the structure of a blacksmith shop he plans to build and expresses confidence in his own crafting ability. Nell and Bark protest, insisting that he cannot proceed, while Bark checks their levels and realizes that Para is far weaker than Boksu. Ignoring them, Boksu challenges Para, stating that defeating him is the only way he can survive. As the assessment begins, Boksu sets one condition that the loser must fulfill the wager and orders Para to state his own terms. Overwhelmed with fear, Para declares that if he wins, the wager will be returned to the territory lord and the blacksmiths. Growing impatient, Boksu yells at him for wasting his time and orders him to pick up his hammer, declaring that the winner will claim the wager. As Para is about to enter the field, our protagonist stops him, but Para thanks him and proceeds inside, determined to create the best sword despite his fear. As the process begins, Para notices Boksu's blade and realizes it is a masterpiece, making his defeat seem inevitable. Losing confidence, fear begins to consume him, but memories of his home and the Lord return to his mind. At the same time, our boy encourages him from outside, advising him to maintain high heat and carefully observe the flame to improve his chances. The system then notifies Para that he is receiving assistance from a master blacksmith, referring to Hyunsu, which leaves him shocked. Meanwhile, one of the researchers monitoring the scene angrily points out that he designed Boksu with great effort, only for Para to receive outside help. A female researcher questions his confidence in Boksu, prompting him to explain that Boksu is meant to become the continent's future 11th legend. She then turns to the lead researcher and asks if this is a problem, but after considering it, he advises the team to continue observing. Meanwhile, Hyunsu continues guiding Para, helping him maintain even pressure while polishing the blade. After some time, both blacksmiths complete their weapons and stand facing each other. The system announces that Para has created an artifact close to legendary rank, shocking Nell and Bark. Bark realizes that Para achieved this only with Hyunsu's guidance, acknowledging Boksu's skill. When the system declares Para the winner, Boksu is left stunned. Para admires his sword in disbelief, unable to accept that he created something so remarkable. With this victory, the Lord regains her authority and the blacksmiths recover their freedom. Boksu throws his sword aside and admits defeat, but then approaches our protagonist and challenges him to another evaluation. Hyunsu appears confused. While the researchers grow anxious about Boksu's decision, one of them rushes to the lead researcher and asks what might happen, knowing Boksu stands no chance. The leader dismisses any possibility of Boksu winning, stating that he cannot defeat the god of blacksmiths. When asked if Hyunsu would let him go, both the leader and the female researcher believe he would not. Watching the screen, the researcher becomes worried, while the leader remarks that Hyunsu is not someone who can be easily judged, making Boksu's challenge a mistake. Holding his sword, Boksu declares his condition, stating that if he wins, he will take Hyunso's arm. In response, Hyunso demands Boksu's sword if he wins, deciding that Boksu must be taught a lesson. The evaluation is set as speed crafting, requiring both to create a weapon within seconds using their skill and experience. Boksu underestimates Hyunso, assuming he is unfamiliar with this method. As the challenge begins, both start forging, with Baksu confident in his victory. Suddenly, a bright light emerges from Hyunso's side, blinding him. When it fades, the system announces the completion of a legendary guardian sword, while Baksu only manages to produce a unique grade weapon. Having lost again, Baksu forfeits ownership of his sword as the system transfers it to Hyunsu. Overcome with anger, he glares at him while Hyunsu states that he will no longer be allowed to oppress others. Approaching him, Hyunsu demands that he answer for his crimes as Baksu collapses to the floor. Placing the sword against him, our hero orders him to confess everything. Trembling, Baksu admits that he imposed a 70% tax on blacksmiths and enslaved those who failed to pay. When questioned about the Lord, he admits imprisoning her for profit, prompting Para to protest the injustice. Hyunsu then asks about the hidden wealth, and Baksu reveals that it is stored in the guild's basement. When questioned further, Baksu claims there is nothing else, but suddenly grabs a nearby sword and attacks. Reacting instantly, Hyunsu strikes back, sending the weapon flying from his hand before punching him to the ground. He then retrieves his blade and cuts off Baksu's right arm. As blood pours from the wound, Hyunsu remarks that the punishment is still not enough, but acknowledges that he cannot decide his fate alone. Afterward, he approaches Parrot and apologizes for everything that has happened, assuring him that Baksu will never harm him again. He asks Parrot to decide the punishment, but the old man suggests consulting the imprisoned lord. While Bark and Nell struggle to restrain Baksu, who continues trying to escape, Hyunsu discusses the lord's whereabouts with Para. The old man believes she is being held inside the castle, prompting Hyunsu to request that they bring her there so a proper judgment can be made. Hearing this, Para repeatedly thanks him for his help. Meanwhile, inside the castle, the lord remains alone in her prison, sitting silently with her head lowered between her knees. Although she hears a noise, the lord convinces herself that no one could possibly reach her cell. Moments later, Para appears and begins unlocking the door. Seeing him, she becomes confused and insists that he should run away immediately, fearing what Baksu might do if he finds him. After successfully opening the lock, Para urges her to come with him. As she steps out, she questions what is happening, and he explains that a stranger has saved them all. Still confused, she listens as Para adds that the stranger defeated Baksu in an evaluation. Unable to believe it, she stops walking, but Para reassures her that everything he said is true, and that she only needs to decide Baksu's punishment. He describes the stranger as a true blacksmith, but the lord still struggles to accept the situation. Para insists that she should see it herself, and after thinking for a moment, she agrees. Soon they arrive at the place where our hero and the others are waiting. As she opens the door, she is stunned to see Baksu tied up on the floor. Covered in a cloak, she is asked if she is the lord. Removing it, she introduces herself as Belin, the ruler of Balas, and expresses disbelief that Hyunsu captured him. Our protagonist explains that he wanted Para to decide Baksu's punishment, but Para insisted that the lord should handle it herself. After a brief pause, Belin asks for the cloth to be removed from Baksu's mouth so he can speak. The moment it is taken off, he begins shouting angrily. The lord states that she once trusted him, but he repaid that trust by imprisoning and betraying her. She admits that she can endure what he did to her, but she cannot forgive the suffering he caused her people. She then orders Para to seize all of Baksu's assets and free every blacksmith. Even as Baksu continues shouting, claiming authority, Belin declares his punishment, ordering that he be locked in the dungeon forever. Despite his protests, he is taken away to the castle. Once he is gone, Hyunso turns to the lord and explains everything that has happened. After hearing the full story, Belin rises from her seat and bows deeply in gratitude. With tears in her eyes, she admits that she should have protected her people better. Seeing this, Para comforts her, insisting that Baksu alone is responsible for everything. The lord thanks him, and Hyunso introduces himself along with Nell. Belin bows again, thanking them for saving her territory, while both Hyunso and Nell awkwardly try to stop her, explaining that they only did what was necessary. She then apologizes for her earlier doubts, explaining that she had always been taught that outsiders could not be trusted. However, after witnessing Hyunso's actions, she realizes that not all outsiders are the same. She thanks them once more, and Hyunso reflects that although he came for Barad's request, helping Balas and its people was worthwhile. Later, Belin offers them half of Baksu's fortune as a reward, but Hyunso refuses, asking her to use it to rebuild the territory instead. This shocks the lord, while Para expresses his gratitude once again. Following this, Hyunso receives a notification about the activation of Lord's Grace, a title granted by someone with deep gratitude and respect. Confused, he wonders who bestowed it upon him. Elsewhere, a female researcher discusses this with leader Kim, initially suspecting Para. However, Kim explains that Para cannot pledge loyalty due to his status, unlike Banya. After reconsidering, the researcher realizes that Para serves the Lord, meaning he cannot become someone else's vassal. Kim then explains that due to the division of factions, Belin herself is the one who has pledged loyalty to Hyunso. The scene shifts back as Belin stands before Hyunsu and formally declares her loyalty. This confuses him, as he initially believed Para was responsible for the title. He looks to Nell for clarification, but she appears equally unsure. As Belin remains bowed, Hyunsu approaches and asks her to stand so they can talk. She explains that she recognized his genuine desire to help her people, and believes he will achieve greater things. Taking his hand, she stands and expresses her wish to grow alongside him. From behind, Nell gestures for him to accept, and Hyun-soo agrees, bowing slightly in return. Bellin thanks him again and asks about his plans. Placing his hand over his heart, he explains that he intends to teach the blacksmiths, though he knows it will also help him fulfill Barad's request. Hearing this, Bellin expresses her gratitude once more, leaving him slightly embarrassed. As she and Para continue talking, Hyun-soo reflects on how to complete the quest now that the Lord has become his vassal. He realizes that improving the blacksmith's skills will allow them to produce better weapons and generate income. Lost in thought, he accidentally speaks aloud, drawing everyone's attention and leaving him embarrassed. The next day, all the blacksmiths are summoned by the Lord and gather in confusion. As they take their seats, Hyun-soo appears before them, greets them, and explains that he intends to teach them. Since many of them are older, they begin to doubt him, whispering that he lacks experience. Ignoring their doubts, Hyun-soo begins demonstrating his work. Some remain uninterested, but an older blacksmith suggests giving him a chance, and the others agree. As time passes, he continues working without rest, surprising everyone. Eventually, he stops and cleans the epic-grade sword in his hand. Seeing this, one blacksmith approaches him and asks for guidance. Hyun-soo explains that maintaining consistent force and angle while striking is essential, along with proper heating to prevent the blade from breaking. Soon, more blacksmiths gather around him, asking questions and apologizing for doubting him earlier. One of them asks if he will teach more than just sword making, and Hyun-soo confirms that he will guide them in other areas as well. 2 weeks have passed, and the blacksmith appear visibly exhausted from the previous training sessions. Eventually, Hyun-soo announces that their training has concluded. Hearing this, everyone becomes visibly excited. He then questions whether they disliked his teachings, but the blacksmiths explain that it was simply very exhausting. After that, they all apologize for doubting him earlier, acknowledging how much they learned from him. Hyun-soo thanks them in return, appreciating their hard work and encouraging them to continue improving. While shaking hands with their leader, he advises them to start selling newly crafted weapons and prove that they have truly changed. Sometime later, a streamer arrives in Ballas Valley and becomes excited upon discovering a sword he believes is made from rare materials. After picking it up, he is shocked to realize it is a rare-grade weapon. When he asks about the price, the shop owner calmly states that it costs gold, leaving the streamer stunned. He questions how such a weapon can be sold so cheaply, and the blacksmith explains that in their standards, it is considered average. The outsider refuses to believe that such a blade is only average grade. The blacksmith then mentions that someone helped them create high-quality weapons, referring to Hyun-soo. Intrigued, the streamer asks about Hyun-soo's whereabouts, but the blacksmith refuses, saying it would be disrespectful to disclose his location. This only increases the streamer's curiosity, as he assumes Hyun-soo might just be an ordinary NPC. He then visits other shops and is further shocked to find high-quality weapons everywhere, even epic-grade items in standard blacksmith stores. Realizing the potential opportunity, he starts a live stream, introducing himself while broadcasting from Ballas Valley and encouraging viewers to see it for themselves. Meanwhile, Hyun-soo wakes up after 2 weeks of minimal sleep. He checks the time, remembering he has a meeting with Kim Jahan. At that moment, Nell calls him urgently, telling him to check the community boards. Confused, Hyun-soo asks for an explanation, and Nell informs him that a popular streamer has gone live from Ballas Valley, showcasing their weapons. The stream quickly goes viral, causing a surge of visitors heading toward Ballas, while even former blacksmiths begin returning. Hearing this, Hyun-soo becomes excited, confident that his quest progress will increase significantly. Later, Hyun-soo meets Kim Joo-hun at a restaurant. While Kim Joo-hun eats, Hyun-soo asks about his work. Worried about how things are going, Kim Joo-hun advises him to ask questions one at a time, explaining that although things are progressing well, a new quest update will likely make things more difficult. Hearing this, Hyun-soo asks if he has joined a guild. When Kim Joo-hun says no, Hyun-soo invites him to join his guild instead. However, Kim Joo-hun politely declines for now, saying he needs time to think. Although Hyun-soo looks disappointed, he accepts his answer. Kim Joo-hun tries to lighten the mood, but Hyun-soo simply pushes food toward him and tells him to eat first. The scene then shifts to a hospital where Hyun-soo's father lies unconscious. Sitting beside him, Hyun-soo speaks softly about his life, mentioning his friends, comrades, and those who feel like family to him. Holding his father's hand, he assures him not to worry, saying that better days have finally come. After spending time there, he promises to return and leaves. The next day, Hyun-soo meets King Barad to report his progress. Kneeling before him, he is told to stand and explain his mission. Hyun-soo states that he has completed his task, and describes how Boksu had been controlling Ballas. Barad confirms he has heard about Boksu's removal. Hyun-soo then reports that the territory's development has increased by 150%, shocking the king. He explains that training the blacksmiths improved their skills, attracting visitors and restoring balance to the region. Impressed, Barad rewards him with 1.5 million gold. Barad then offers an additional reward, a personal forge within the Go-Yard Kingdom. The system notifies Hyun-soo that he now has the opportunity to establish a base there. Barad believes he deserves a permanent place due to his contributions. However, Hyun-soo politely refuses. Thinking he is dissatisfied with the territory's size, Barad questions him, but Hyun-soo clarifies that he wishes for Ballas Valley to continue growing instead. Barad is initially confused by this selfless decision, but Hyunsu explains that revealing his identity as a master blacksmith would draw people away from Balas. Hearing this, Barad silently acknowledges that Hyunsu possesses qualities of a true ruler. Although he accepts the decision, he tells Hyunsu to contact him if he ever changes his mind. Before leaving, Hyunsu mentions that he has a meeting with the Lord of Balas. After he departs, Barad reflects privately, considering Hyunsu as a candidate worth observing for future leadership potential. A few days later, Nell calls Hyunsu to the Freya territory. She asks Hyunsu to meet at a specific location, and upon arriving he questions the reason for the summons. Sitting in a chair, Nell excitedly announces that this place will become their guild's territory. Since Freya is close to Goyard and has high user traffic, Hyunsu finds the location ideal for a base. He then mentions Barad's earlier offer regarding becoming a noble, which visibly shocks Nell. She explains that a non-royal NPC offering a noble position is extremely rare. Hyunsu wonders if such offers are truly that unusual. He then recalls that when he met Bellin after meeting the king, she also offered him a noble title. Bellin believed she was not yet fit to fully lead her territory, and concluded that Hyunsu was more suitable. As a result, she asked him to become a noble, and even offered him full shares of her territory in exchange for governance authority. Hyunsu questions whether the world is pushing him toward a higher position, while Nell agrees that both cases are highly unusual, but reflect how others recognize his potential. After a brief silence, Hyunsu points at some documents and asks about them. Nell explains that it is his first official client request from a high-ranking player named Rysel, who holds the 21st rank and is not part of any guild. The request involves crafting a difficult artifact, and successfully completing it would greatly increase Hyunsu's reputation. When he asks for details, Nell reveals that the client wants an item imbued with dragon power. Hyunsu is shocked upon hearing this. Meanwhile, Rysel is meeting Rowan, master of the Black Anvil Guild. After hearing the request, Rowan immediately rejects it, stating that even they cannot fulfill it, as dragons have not been seen in a long time. Despite being the top guild, he declares the request unrealistic and returns the gold. Walking away, Rysel doubts whether Hyunsu's forge will even respond, as they are known for being unresponsive. Still, he sends one final request. Shortly after, he receives a message confirming acceptance of the commission. That night, he arrives at the meeting location. When he knocks, Hyunsu allows him inside. Hearing the voice, Rysel notices it sounds younger than expected. As he enters, he sees a figure standing in shadow. When questioned, Hyunsu steps into the moonlight and introduces himself as the blacksmith Hyunsu. Rysel is surprised by his youth but proceeds to explain the request, asking if he can truly imbue an artifact with dragon power. Hyunsu confidently accepts, stating he can complete it but requires a down payment first, following Nell's instructions. He further explains that the artifact will be expensive due to its complexity. Rysel questions how he plans to accomplish what even Black Anvil rejected. However, he reveals his true motivation. His father is in critical condition and wishes to see a dragon. He calls Hyunsu his last hope, and expresses his desire to witness the creation process himself. Hyunsu realizes the emotional reason behind the request. Earlier, Hyunsu and Nell had discussed the commission. Nell shows that Rysel repeatedly requested even a simple dragon manifestation, sending similar requests to multiple guilds and summoners. He is not focused on power, only on seeing a dragon. Nell also reminds Hyunsu of another request from an archer named Ian, who had been promised a limited crafting opportunity during a broadcast event. Ian requested a powerful bow, which is simple for Hyunsu, but he chooses Rysel's request instead, seeking a greater challenge. Joust back in the present, Hyunsu and Rysel sit across from each other with a sword placed between them. Hyunsu explains that the dragon can only be summoned once due to rushed crafting and will require refinement. Rysel agrees to give him 1 week and states that money is not an issue. However, Hyunsu returns the down payment, saying he will accept it only after completion. They shake hands, finalizing the agreement. That night, Rysel sits in a hospital room with his father, who appears weak and frail. He reassures him that he only needs to wait a little longer to see the dragon. The old man, however, confuses him with another name, Tai Shang, while Rysel corrects him, revealing his real name is Tai Ha. Despite this, his father continues calling him Tai Shang, and repeats his wish to see a dragon. After putting him to rest, Tai Ha reflects on his situation, recalling that he has not spoken properly with his older brother in a long time. Later, Tai Ha receives a call from his brother, Tai Shang, who manages the Hanshang group. In person, Tai Shang questions him about the game, and reminds him of his promise to create a dragon. Months have passed without success, and he expresses doubt. Tai Ha insists he is close to achieving it, but his brother gives him an ultimatum: succeed or quit the game. Despite the pressure, Tai Ha becomes more determined after remembering Hyunsu's earlier success in summoning a dragon-like manifestation. The next day, Hyunsu stands in the National Museum, looking at a sword he once restored with his father years ago. Draped in a hooded cloak, he looked up at the sword, a faint smile forming as he recalled the moment he had restored it alongside his father. The memory drifted back to a time when Hyunsu's father was still a devoted blacksmith. Years earlier, the National Museum had requested him to restore the dragon blade. Inside the forge, the man had pushed himself through every strike on the heated metal, admitting that although he tried to restore it, his efforts failed as years of forging had severely damaged his arm. When the hammer slipped from his grasp, he collapsed to his knees in pain before the furnace. Hyunso had stood there watching his father bow his head at the workbench, unable to accept his despair. He decided to restore the dragon blade himself, following his father's guidance to preserve his reputation as a master craftsman. Later, he watched from the veranda as his father received recognition, the memory of people admiring the restored blade in the exhibition hall still vivid in his mind. Standing before the illusion of a silver dragon, he concluded that relying only on memory was not enough, his focus sharpening as he questioned what sensations he had once used. The moment was interrupted when Taesong entered the museum hall, accompanied by a woman guiding him forward. She informed him that they should proceed in that direction. Standing before the display case, Taesong recalled how his father once brought him here as a child and showed him the sword, telling him it was the only blade said to contain a dragon. Overcome with shock, he placed his hand on the glass and realized the artifact was no longer the rusted weapon from his memory. He questioned how it had changed so drastically. The woman explained that a few years earlier, a master craftsman had restored it. Taesong apologized for his outburst and remarked that the craftsman must have been extraordinary. She agreed, but added that the craftsman had fallen into a coma following a fire 3 years ago. Behind them, Hyunsu stood quietly with his hands in his hoodie pockets. The woman turned toward him and hesitantly asked if he was Hyunsu. He confirmed politely, and she expressed gratitude for seeing the sword his father had restored. Taesong observed in silence, his expression darkening as he watched their exchange. Hyunsu then bowed slightly and excused himself, leaving the hall. As Taesong watched him disappear down the corridor, he realized the man was the son of the master craftsman. Back in the forge, Hyunsu reflected that after seeing the sword firsthand, he now understood what he needed to do. He remembered that his father always began restoration work by studying the meaning behind relics. Holding the sword, he concluded he should begin by understanding Heimosu. Ancient records surfaced in his thoughts, stating that according to the annals of the Joseon dynasty, Heimosu descended from the sky carrying that very sword. He further recalled that Heimosu was also called Chonwangrang, meaning heavenly king. Realizing the key connection, he determined that the essence of the blade was tied to the sky and the sun. Picking up his pen, he stated with certainty that this insight would allow him to recreate the dragon blade perfectly. At that moment, a blue notification window appeared, informing him that a prior arrangement had been cancelled with an apology from Rizal. He was startled and questioned the sudden cancellation. Reading further, he discovered that Rizal's father's condition had significantly worsened. Remembering his own father's desperation in the past, Hyunsu considered how deeply that wish had been. He turned sharply, deciding to act without hesitation. Contacting Rizal, he introduced himself as Blacksmith Hyunsu and requested to speak. At a hospital that night, a heavy silence filled the room as family members gathered around a frail patient. A doctor informed them that the situation was critical and advised them to prepare for the worst, stating the patient would likely not survive past the next day. The elderly man weakly called for his brother, struggling for breath as he pleaded to see a dragon. His hand reached upward in delirium as he repeated his wish. Taesong held his father's hand tightly, urging him to stop while insisting that dragons did not exist. The door suddenly opened and Taesha rushed in, calling out in panic. The doctor warned that the disturbance could harm the patient's condition. Overcome with desperation, Taesha declared he would log into Ares immediately to show his father a dragon. Moments later, the system activated as he entered the game, arriving in the beginner zone of Barden. In the virtual world, the elderly man staggered through the square in confusion, disoriented by his surroundings. Taesha ran toward him and called out desperately. The old man turned in shock, slowly recognizing his son with trembling disbelief. They grasped each other's hands as the father struggled to comprehend what he was seeing. Nearby, townspeople began whispering about the unusual gathering of instructors. A burly blacksmith named Ren approached with a laugh, joined by Relson, an instructor who confirmed he had been contacted by Hyunsu. Taiha thanked them deeply as Ren waved it off, agreeing to help. Relson instructed them to follow him, and despite hesitation, the father was reassured by Taiha that everything would become clear once they arrived. They soon stopped when a man on horseback approached them. Vance, the lord of the Barden territory, introduced himself as the territory's ruler. He pointed toward the spare horse and explained that he had been informed by Hyunsu that they needed to move quickly, instructing them to mount immediately. Taiha assisted his father onto the saddle while the old man let out a groan from dizziness. Taiha reminded him to move carefully as they settled in. The group then rode forward at speed, iron hooves striking the ground as wind rushed past them. Vance urged his horse on and expressed that it was his first time experiencing something like this, adding that Hyunsu had allowed him to experience many new things. Taiha admitted that he also never believed something like this would be possible. While riding, he fell silent, questioning inwardly how NPCs could be so cooperative, and wondering who Hyunsu truly was. The atmosphere shifted when the old man suddenly stiffened on horseback and turned behind them. His eyes widened in shock as fear spread across his face. With trembling voice and panicked breathing, he warned that something terrifying was behind them. From the darkness, creatures with glowing red eyes, sharp fangs, and twisted limbs emerged, closing in rapidly. Inside the control room, two supervisors stared at the monitoring screen in disbelief. A female staff member, visibly shaken, asked her superior if she was seeing things correctly. The team leader confirmed nothing was wrong. She pointed at the screen showing Vance and reported that something unbelievable was happening. On screen, Vance calmly explained that the Beginner Zone Lord had already moved beyond his territory and expressed gratitude toward Hyun-soo for the changes occurring in the world. Taeho also admitted he had not believed such events were possible. The female supervisor reacted in shock as she saw Taeho guiding the group personally, questioning whether it was a system bug. At that moment, the chairman arrived and stated firmly that it was not a bug. He explained that all related characters had their bond with Hyun-soo maxed out and were acting due to his influence. He added that everything was moving according to Hyun-soo's request. The team remained stunned as they watched Vance leave the beginner zone, something believed impossible. The chairman, however, expressed satisfaction, stating that this was the world he had envisioned, shaped by users like Hyun-soo. Back in the field, the group continued riding as the monsters closed in. Taeha suddenly turned back with widened eyes. Realizing the threat behind them, Vance reacted immediately, expressing shock that the route had been cleared of monsters, yet an attack was happening now. She urged the group to continue toward the border without stopping. At the critical moment, an arrow struck one of the monsters, forcing it to roar in pain. Reinforcements from the castle arrived, launching a coordinated counterattack. Soldiers shouted orders and declared their loyalty to Hyun-soo as they engaged the monsters. The battlefield quickly turned chaotic as they pushed the creatures back, allowing the group to escape towards safety. Vance, relieved but still tense, guided them toward the kingdom's main gate. As they reached the massive gates, Vance stopped and informed them she could go no further. The gates opened slowly as they passed through, revealing a cavalry unit led by Barad, who formally questioned their identity and connection to Hyun-soo. He then assigned a vice captain to escort them further into the kingdom. Taeha was stunned to hear that Barad, the Sword King, considered Hyun-soo a friend. As they traveled deeper into the city, Taeha asked his father where they were going. Taeha replied that they were going to meet a dragon. The old man reacted with shock and anticipation. Soon they arrived at the castle grounds where a female knight informed them that Hyun-soo was waiting ahead. Hyun-soo greeted them and announced that the dragon-infused artifact had been completed. Taeha received the radiant sword with disbelief, sensing its overwhelming power. He turned toward his father, then drew the blade, releasing a brilliant flash of energy. As he raised it toward the sky, a massive blue dragon emerged from the light, leaving everyone in shock. The dragon held a glowing orb in its mouth as it coiled through the sky above them. From its jaws, radiant light spilled continuously, illuminating the entire sky. Even as the sun slowly dipped behind the rooftops, the sword's overwhelming power continued to blaze without fading. A massive golden dragon twisted through the clouds, its roar shaking the air itself. The silver-haired father broke into tears of joy as he finally witnessed the legendary sight with his own eyes, exclaiming that it was truly a dragon flying across the sky. Taeha remained silent as he looked toward the distant horizon, while his father turned to him with a gentle smile. In a quiet voice, Taeha called out to him and carefully asked why he had wanted to see a dragon so badly. The father hesitated, lost in memory. Suddenly, Taeha stiffened as he sensed Taishang's presence, and asked in shock how he had arrived there. Their father calmly explained that Taishang had said he wanted to see a dragon together with Taeha, adding that this was why Taishang had once searched for dragons so desperately. The memory shifted to the past, where a younger Taishang excitedly showed his little brother a handmade dragon, shouting with joy. As a child, he had constantly asked their father whether dragons existed, how large they were, and what they ate. Their father had gently patted his head and promised that dragons were very large creatures living far away, but that when Taishang grew older, he would one day see one. At that time, young Taishang had insisted he would experience it together with Taeha. In the present, Taishang's eyes grew moist as he realized that their father had remembered that promise all along. He expressed his gratitude and placed a hand on his father's shoulder. The three of them looked up at the legendary dragon soaring above, silently acknowledging its beauty. Their father, satisfied and at peace, said he was glad they had all seen it together before he departed. The scene then shifted to Hyun-soo and Belle seated across from each other at a tea table, calmly discussing recent events. After sipping her tea, Belle praised Hyun-soo, stating that successfully summoning a dragon was extraordinary and that he was truly remarkable. Hyun-soo, however, denied the credit and explained that it was Mr. Riesel who had succeeded, recalling that system windows had appeared when he held the sword. Belle set her cup down and asked what those system windows contained. Hyun-soo shook his head and admitted he did not know the full details, adding that after completing his father's funeral, Mr. Riesel had promised to explain everything properly. Belle nodded in understanding, then mentioned that she had heard he had initially refused a blank check offered as payment. Hyun-soo confirmed it calmly, noting that it had been offered again later. Belle looked at him expectantly and asked how much he planned to write on the check, even enthusiastically suggesting that he consider requesting a building since real estate was the best investment. Hyun-soo stared into his teacup and firmly stated that he had already made his decision. When Belle asked what it was, he replied with a subtle smile that it was exactly that. Belle reacted in astonishment, exclaiming that he was truly incredible. In a dimly lit room, a phone suddenly vibrated on the table, signaling an incoming message. From near the window, Taiha turned around, quickly picked it up and muttered suspiciously that it was from Mr. Hyun-soo, wondering if it concerned the payment. Moments later, he focused on the screen as something unexpected appeared. Unable to contain his excitement, he broke into a triumphant grin and suddenly laughed loudly, as if he had just won the lottery. What he saw was a check containing an enormous amount, clearly overwhelming him with excitement. The portrait of their late father stood solemnly among white chrysanthemums, his gentle smile now reduced to a memory. 2 days earlier, the funeral hall had been silent as the brothers stood before the coffin, their grief heavy. Taesong softly called his brother's name to break the silence. Taiha lowered his head and responded tiredly. Taesong gestured for him to sit, and the two brothers knelt in silence. After a moment, Taesong asked what he intended to do from then on. Taiha admitted he was unsure. Taesong reminded him of their father's words. In their memory, their father had looked at them beneath the sky where the sacred dragon soared, smiling warmly as he expressed his final wish for them to live happily and experience what money could not buy. Taesong stood up and told his brother that even if he was uncertain, he believed Taiha would eventually find the path their father had spoken of. He gently patted his shoulder and encouraged him to pursue what he truly wanted. Taiha watched his brother leave, still confused, and called out to him. Taesong turned back with a proud smile and said that if he was going to do it, he should aim to become the best. As he walked away, he raised his hand in farewell and declared that he would make Hyun-soo the best. Watching him leave, Taiha's eyes gradually filled with determination and a faint smile formed on his lips. The scene shifted to a peaceful town bathed in morning light, red rooftops and green trees glowing vividly. Taiha stood quietly before a blacksmith shop, letting out a thoughtful sigh. Remembering Hyun-soo's commanding presence, he reflected that although Hyun-soo's guild was newly formed, it would soon become the greatest guild in the world. The door opened, and Taiha observed Hyun-soo and Belle seated at a tea table, engaged in conversation. Hyun-soo looked up and smiled, asking if he had arrived. Taiha paused, a bead of sweat forming as his expression grew serious. Stepping forward, he asked if Hyun-soo remembered what he had said that day. Hyun-soo responded in confusion, stating that he did not understand. Without hesitation, Taiha extended his hand and activated the system, declaring that he would show him directly. 2 system panels appeared, revealing special class options. One displayed the unique class Dragon Lord, described as a ruler-type class capable of commanding many subordinates. The other showed the unique class Dragon Knight, described as one who protects others and eliminates threats. Belle stared in shock, confirming both were truly unique grade classes. Hyun-soo repeated the names in disbelief. Gripping the Dragon Fire Sword tightly, Taiha explained that both options had appeared when he first held the sword. Hyun-soo asked whether he had made his decision. After a brief silence, Taiha declared that he would walk the path of a Dragon Knight. A brilliant light erupted from the system, revealing visions of a Dragon Lord ruling over others, and a Dragon Knight fighting to protect allies against monsters. Hyun-soo was momentarily speechless at the resolve behind his choice. Taiha smiled and stated that he wanted to protect everyone and grow together. Satisfied, Hyun-soo acknowledged him as a true comrade and formally welcomed him into the guild. A system notification announced that Mr. Riesel had joined Guild Gwangyang. Belle celebrated, saying their third member had finally arrived. Taiha, however, asked who the third member was, confused. Belle explained that Bark, their tanker, would be introduced later. Taiha then called out to Hyun-soo again and offered additional compensation beyond the check. Hyun-soo immediately refused, saying what he had received was already more than enough. Taiha then relayed that his older brother wished to meet him. Hyun-soo paused, searching his memory, then realized he had met him at the museum. He agreed to a simple greeting. Taiha immediately suggested arranging the meeting right away. Hyun-soo, startled, asked if he meant immediately. The scene shifted under a clear blue sky where leaves drifted in the wind. At a bustling construction site in Gyeongju, workers moved quickly among heavy machinery. Hyun-soo arrived in a masked disguise, wearing a gray coat. He looked over the site and thought that he had not yet paid for the blacksmith shop construction. Hearing his name called from behind, he turned cautiously. A well-dressed man in a suit approached him, waving as he drew near. Hyun-soo recognized him and internally confirmed that he was Mr. Taiha's older brother. Lee Taesung stepped forward and confidently introduced himself, stating that they were finally meeting properly. He declared that he was Taesung, chairman of the Hansung Group, and Taiha's older brother. Hyun-soo froze upon realizing he was standing before the head of a massive conglomerate, stunned by the revelation that he was the top figure of one of the country's largest business groups. Although still slightly flustered behind his mask, Hyun-soo quickly regained his composure and politely introduced himself as Kang Hyun-soo, expressing that it was a pleasure to meet him. Looking around at the gradually developing construction site, he then turned back to Taesung and remarked that although he had been told they would meet outside, he had not expected it to be in front of his own blacksmith shop. Taesung responded with gratitude, saying that compared to what Hyun-soo had done for them, this was only a small gesture. Hyun-soo humbly replied that he had not done anything particularly remarkable. Taesung gently closed his eyes and smiled, firmly rejecting that statement as he insisted it was not true. He then recalled their shared history and Hyun-soo's achievements, explaining that in the game Hyun-soo had forged dragon-infused swords for him, his brother, and his father, and that in reality he had restored the legendary Dragon Fire Sword. Hyunsu began to sweat and hesitantly clarified that the restoration had actually been carried out by his father. Taesong lifted his gaze toward the sky, reminiscing about his childhood. He shared that when he and his brother were young, they had deeply admired dragons. Memories resurfaced of him standing before the National Museum display case, overwhelmed when he first saw the rusted Dragon Fire Sword. He reflected that seeing the fully restored blade again felt like returning to that same moment. Looking at Hyunso with a relieved expression, as though reconnecting with a cherished memory, he sincerely stated that what Hyunso and his father had accomplished was extraordinary. From a high vantage point overlooking the museum crowd admiring the restored relic, he added that they had preserved something from the past and allowed it to be remembered by future generations. Turning toward the construction site, Taesong expressed sympathy for their situation, admitting he had not expected those who accomplished such meaningful work to be struggling. Smiling with goodwill, he stated that he wanted to change that, even now, and earnestly asked Hyunso to allow him to help. Reaching into his coat pocket, he took out a luxurious sealed envelope and presented it as his way of repaying them, encouraging Hyunso to move forward and explaining that he wanted to clear a path for a master craftsman. At that moment, a system panel appeared, announcing that AJ Broadcasting Station had confirmed a pilot program about the special class Dragon Knight, including an unboxing segment of Hyunsu's crafted item. Hyunsu stood frozen, staring at the floating notification, and asked Nell in disbelief what it meant. Bark stood nearby with arms crossed, reacting smugly to the announcement. Hyunsu turned again in confusion, questioning how Ritual could appear on a broadcast and feature an unboxing of his work. Belle clasped her hands excitedly, eyes shining, and declared that this broadcast would be their starting point and that they would elevate Hyunsu Blacksmith shop ranking. She raised her fist in determination, expressing full confidence in their plan. Hyunsu, sweating and visibly overwhelmed, weakly protested and asked about his own opinion. Belle then shifted the topic to business and asked what rank the blacksmith shop currently held. Hyunsu quickly checked the system panel and confirmed it was ranked 48th in Korea. Belle immediately analyzed the rankings, listing the top 3 blacksmith shops: Black Anvil in first, Golden Shield in second, and Small Hammer in third. She explained that these top shops maintain their positions by mass-producing and selling high-quality weapons. Hearing this, Hyunsu wondered if he should also begin mass production. Belle immediately rejected the idea, explaining that the situation was actually the opposite. She pointed out that reaching 48th place despite minimal sales proved that Hyunsu's craftsmanship alone carried immense influence. Excited, she stated that revealing a new work during a live broadcast would trigger an enormous response. Hyunsu stood beside her, still confused by her intense enthusiasm. Belle then introduced Taiha as their key supporter for the broadcast, saying she was counting on him. Taiha politely shook her hand and promised to do his best. Watching this, Hyunsu silently thought that perhaps the situation was not entirely bad after all. The next morning, sunlight spread across the roof of the old blacksmith shop. Hyunsu rested his chin on his hand, deep in thought. When the system panel appeared again, he asked Belle if she truly would not reveal what she planned to show. Belle responded with a mysterious smile, saying it would not be fun if he knew in advance. Moments later, she announced excitedly that the broadcast was starting. On screen, MC2 Dumbs energetically greeted viewers, introducing the pilot broadcast. The live chat flooded with reactions, noting his return and commenting on the rapidly increasing viewer count, already nearing 200,000. The host teased the upcoming segment, stating that viewers already knew what was coming from the teaser. However, the audience urged him to stop delaying. Finally, MC2 Dumbs announced the introduction of a new class, and as blue light gathered, called out for Knight Rissel to appear. Taha then appeared confidently despite the flood of skeptical comments from viewers, greeting the audience and introducing himself as Dragon Knight Rissel. Immediately, the chat was filled with doubt, as viewers questioned how a Dragon Knight could exist when there were no dragons in Ares, mocking the claim as unrealistic. Seeing the explosive reaction, MC2 Dumbs remarked that the response was overwhelming and pointed toward Taha, asking if he would reveal the secret method of obtaining a special class during the broadcast. Taha calmly raised a finger and confirmed that he would. The chat quickly filled with impatient messages, urging him to stop delaying and reveal the method, asking how he had obtained the class and whether others could become Dragon Knights as well. The host stepped closer and pressed him again, asking him to first confirm whether the Dragon Knight class truly existed. Teo responded calmly that it did. He then opened his system interface and revealed his class information, stating that he would disclose everything. The panel confirmed that his class was Dragon Knight, and showed his domestic ranking as 21. The audience erupted upon seeing his level displayed as 323, with viewers expressing shock and amazement, acknowledging that he truly possessed the Dragon Knight class, and that it was incredibly powerful. Taya humbly stated that he had originally begun as an ordinary knight. Hearing this, MC2 Dumbs reacted in disbelief, pointing out that being ranked 21st in the country was far from ordinary. He then demanded to know how Teo had obtained the class. The chat once again flooded with comments, urging him to reveal the secret without further delay. At that moment, Teria Ha's hand began to emit a brilliant golden light. He suddenly stood up and gripped the hilt of a sword that materialized in his hand, causing the surrounding audience to react in confusion and shock. Without hesitation, he thrust the glowing blade into the ground, sending powerful shockwaves throughout the virtual space and startling the host. MC2 Dumb stared in astonishment as Taria firmly held the weapon. As Taria released its power, a divine dragon manifested, creating a breathtaking spectacle. The host, overwhelmed, exclaimed that it was unbelievable and asked in shock whether that was truly a dragon. Taria responded with a faint smile, asking if he was surprised. MC2 Dumbs laughed excitedly and declared that something extraordinary had appeared. Turning to the camera, he announced that the first dragon in Ares had been revealed, emphasizing that it was a sight viewers could not witness anywhere else. The chat exploded with reactions, with viewers expressing disbelief and excitement, confirming that such an event had never happened before and calling the broadcast unprecedented. Still stunned, MC2 Dumbs asked Taiwa to explain why he had summoned a dragon. Holding the artifact, Taiwa replied that it would be faster to see it directly than to explain. He then drew the glowing sword and presented it. A luminous information panel appeared displaying the details of the legendary weapon. Viewers reacted with amazement, praising its appearance and expressing their desire to obtain it, while noting that it was a legendary-grade item. MC2 Dumbs applauded enthusiastically and congratulated Taiwa, asking if he had become a Dragon Knight because of that artifact. He also declared that it was the first legendary-grade item in the country. Elsewhere, Hyunsu and Bell watched the live stream intently as the host showcased the sword. Observing the broadcast, Hyunsu deduced that the plan was to reveal the dragon during the stream. Bell smiled and confirmed that it was indeed the strategy she and Rissel had devised. As visuals of various weapons appeared, Bell explained that although Hyunsu's crafted items were highly desirable, they could not be mass-produced. She stated that they intended to use that limitation as an advantage by emphasizing rarity. An image of a crowded auction illustrated her point as she explained that scarcity increased value and created a stronger perception among viewers. She concluded that the broadcast would firmly establish that image in the audience's minds. Back on the live stream, MC2 Dumbs excitedly approached Taiha and asked rapid questions. He stated that Taiha had become a Dragon Knight through what he believed to be the second legendary artifact, and asked whether it had been crafted by Hyunsu. Taiha slightly tilted his head and rejected the statement, saying it was incorrect. The host paused in confusion and asked what he meant. Taiha tightened his grip on the sword and prepared to clarify, stating that the weapon he held was actually the third legendary artifact in the world. The chat exploded once again as viewers flooded the stream with shock, questioning what third legendary meant and whether Hyunsu had created another legendary item. Many demanded explanations and insisted that Hyunsu be brought onto the broadcast. Elsewhere, Rowan stood up abruptly in front of his screen, stunned by the revelation. He frowned as he processed the information, realizing that this meant it was not the first legendary artifact. As the explanation continued, an image of the world's top-ranked blacksmith appeared, noting that even the #1 blacksmith had only created a single legendary artifact so far. The phone in his hand vibrated repeatedly as notifications revealed that he had 96 unread messages. Urgent alerts from the Blacksmith Guild flooded in, warning that blacksmith Hyunsu was beginning to threaten their position and that they needed to prepare, as he could soon take away their VIP clients. Rowan narrowed his eyes and carefully assessed the rapidly shifting situation. Back on the live stream, MC2 Dumbs stood beside Taiha as the image of a legendary sword filled the screen. Watching intently, Rowan concluded that the first legendary artifact must have been Barad's sword. As he continued observing, he noticed the viewer count climbing rapidly, eventually surpassing 423,000, the highest recorded number. Leaning back in his chair with his arms crossed, his expression grew more serious as he analyzed the situation, quietly questioning what kind of person blacksmith Hyunsu truly was. The scene shifted to a peaceful morning at the blacksmith shop. After the successful broadcast, Bell stood with the others in front of Hyunsu and asked if everyone had watched the stream. Bark commented that Taya had performed well on camera, and Taya shyly expressed his thanks. Bell then shared good news, explaining that AJ Broadcasting would provide 40 million won in donations and another 40 million won as appearance fees. Taya responded that he had previously refused the appearance fee, but Bell clarified that the station had requested it be given to Hyunsu instead. Taya accepted this without objection. Bell looked at Hyunsu with satisfaction and remarked that he had performed better than expected during the broadcast. Taya responded modestly. Hyunsu then activated the system panel to display the updated rankings of his blacksmith shop. The ranking list appeared showing that Hyunsu's shop had risen significantly. Hyunsu reacted with happiness as he confirmed they had reached the top 20. Bark asked if this was the first time a personal blacksmith shop had achieved such a rank, and Taya confirmed that it was. Bell, energized by the results, pointed out that the number of orders had increased dramatically. Holding a large stack of requests, she explained that many VIP clients from top-ranked shops had now shifted to them. She smiled, imagining how other blacksmith shops would react to the sudden change. Taiha congratulated Hyunsu, while Bark also praised his efforts. Hyunsu bowed his head and expressed his gratitude. As Hyunsu continued looking at the system panel, a new notification appeared, announcing that the full activities of Guild Gwangmyeong would begin. He reacted in confusion and called the others' attention. Bark tilted his head in curiosity, while Taiha asked what had happened. Hyun-soo informed them that they had received a message from the Black Anvil Guildmaster. Everyone focused on the screen as the message introduced the sender as Rowan from Black Anvil, requesting to speak with Hyun-soo directly. Hyun-soo turned to the others and explained the request. Bark folded his arms and remarked that it was unusually direct for someone with such a mysterious reputation. Tai-hai asked if there was more, and Hyun-soo confirmed there was. Belle asked if this was the first time Rowan had contacted him, and Hyun-soo confirmed that it was. She suggested that he should consider meeting him. Hyun-soo thought carefully, realizing that the top-ranked guildmaster would not make such a request without a significant reason. After a brief moment, he decided to accept the meeting. Belle immediately insisted they prepare thoroughly and told Tai-ha and Bark to gather all available artifacts. Later, Hyun-soo arrived at the meeting location, a luxurious corridor, and quietly observed his surroundings. Wearing a robe and a voice-changing mask, he entered the room cautiously. Rowan, who had been waiting at a banquet table, noticed his arrival and stood to greet him, introducing himself politely as the Black Anvil Guildmaster. As they sat across from each other, Hyun-soo expressed appreciation for the preparation, but explained that he could not eat due to his mask. Rowan responded that it did not matter and that his presence alone was enough. Without wasting time, Rowan stated that he would speak directly and offered Hyun-soo the position of Vice Guildmaster of Black Anvil, promising half of his profits if he accepted. Hyun-soo remained silent as he analyzed the proposal. He knew that Black Anvil was already the top-ranked guild, and that Rowan's annual income exceeded 10 billion won. Narrowing his eyes behind the mask, he asked if Rowan was serious and what would happen if he demanded more. Rowan replied without hesitation that it would not matter. Hyun-soo paused, surprised by the response. Leaning back confidently, Rowan explained that Hyun-soo had already crafted 2 legendary artifacts and that with him, they could aim for the top global ranking. Hyun-soo placed his hand on the table as if preparing to stand. He expressed his gratitude for the generous offer, but firmly declined it. Rowan lowered his head with a faint smile, showing no trace of anger, as if he had expected that answer. Tilting his head calmly, he admitted that it was the response he had anticipated, and added that he had prepared another proposal, asking whether Hyun-soo would be willing to hear it. Slightly surprised by Rowan's composed reaction, Hyun-soo remained silent and waited for him to continue. The scene then shifted to reality, as a hospital door opened quietly, revealing a calm and sterile environment. Hyun-soo stood at the entrance in discreet clothing, keeping a low profile to avoid attention. Looking down beneath his mask, he thought to himself that it was a relief his father's condition had improved significantly. He walked along the corridor with steady steps and approached the reception desk under the dim lighting. As soon as the staff saw him, one of them recognized him and remarked in surprise that he was Mr. Kang Hyun-tae's guardian, asking what had brought him there. Standing at the counter, Hyun-soo hesitated briefly before stating that he had come to register. The staff focused on him as the female employee politely asked how she could assist. The male employee added that the patient's payment had already been completed. Hyun-soo lightly touched his mask and confirmed it was true, explaining that although he had come to visit his father, he also had another purpose. He lowered his mask slightly, revealing a healthier appearance, and calmly stated that he intended to begin rehabilitation therapy for his lower body and right hand. Glancing down the corridor, he quietly reflected that he was now earning a stable income and wondered if he should meet his father again in a healthier condition. Hearing this, the female employee became visibly surprised, her expression softening as she quickly offered to assist with the registration. The atmosphere grew more lively as she reassured him that the process would be completed soon, while the male employee encouraged him and wished him success with his recovery. Hyun-soo responded with a faint smile and expressed his gratitude. As the sun set over the city, casting an orange glow across the sky, Han-soo stood quietly under the fading light, watching as the day came to an end. He realized that time had passed quickly and wondered how late it had become. Taking out his phone on the quiet street, he was surprised to see numerous unread notifications. Upon checking the sender, he recognized Nell. A message from her urged him to check a link she had sent. Opening it, Han-soo saw a flood of online articles spreading rapidly across the internet, all centered around him. Headlines reported that 2 legendary-grade artifacts had appeared in the country, and that Han's blacksmith shop had climbed to rank 19 within a single day. Another article compared the Sword King Barad's weapon with the Dragon Knight's sword, questioning which was superior. As he continued scrolling, another headline asked whether blacksmith Hyun-soo would surpass Black Anvil. Seeing the name, Hyun-soo paused and reflected on Rowan. The memory of Rowan handing him a business card resurfaced, along with his words that it was his personal number. He recalled Rowan confidently stating that Hyun-soo would eventually reach the top through his own strength and asking that when that day came, he be recruited instead. Holding the card, Hyun-soo quietly remarked that Rowan was a unique person. As he walked forward, he considered that Rowan had not tried to control or buy him, but simply wished to stand alongside him. Tilting his head slightly, he concluded that Rowan seemed like a decent person. Calling up the system, Hyun-soo reminded himself that he needed to grow stronger quickly. A blue quest window appeared, informing him that he could proceed with the sword left by the god of blacksmiths. Facing the glowing interface, he recalled that this quest had first appeared when he changed classes. The panel displayed detailed information about a job quest titled The Sword Left by the God of Blacksmiths, ranked A, with conditions requiring him to be a descendant of the God of Blacksmiths and within a certain level range, while the rewards remained unknown. Memories of past quests resurfaced as he reflected that he had previously ignored it due to level restrictions. The panel then added that failure would result in losing his qualification as the successor, and that further explanation would be given upon meeting the 10th Lord of the Sword Blacksmiths. Reading this, Hyun-soo reacted to the severity of the penalty. Even so, he remained standing before the quest window and resolved to proceed. At that moment, a white bird landed on his arm. Under the fading sunset, Hyun-soo raised his hand and watched it fly away, quietly noting that it had been a while since he had encountered something familiar. The scene then shifted abruptly to a cold and desolate land where a towering black structure rose beneath a dark purple sky. Wolves moved silently through the shadows, their glowing red eyes watching from afar. Inside a dark castle hall, blue flames suddenly flared, drawing attention. A hooded figure pointed at the blazing sword and exclaimed that the blacksmith god's sword had returned. A red-haired man responded sharply, insisting that Hyun-soo had never been qualified, while an elderly man with a white beard questioned what he had truly accomplished as the successor. Despair spread among those present, with some expressing that there was no future left for the tower and that they would be the last generation. Others voiced concern about recent attacks and argued that such qualifications should not be granted lightly. Coulson stepped forward from the shadows with visible anger and declared that their doubts were meaningless. He firmly stated that Hyun-soo was the true successor, acknowledged by him, and demanded confirmation from Daeng. Daeng, maintaining a stern expression, affirmed the claim and reminded everyone that they had witnessed Hyun-soo's abilities themselves, questioning why they would doubt him now. Despite this, two individuals continued to stare at the flames with suspicion, insisting that the matter needed to be resolved immediately. At that moment, as the argument reached its peak, the entire castle shook violently, causing everyone to lose their footing. The white-bearded old man turned in alarm and demanded to know what was happening, while the red-haired man reacted to the thunderous rumble echoing through the halls. Explosions tore through the castle walls as dust filled the air, signaling that the defenses had been breached. Red-eyed monsters poured inside like hunting wolves, and panic spread instantly as people fled, crying out that the monsters had arrived and begging for help. The red-haired man stared outside in shock and questioned what they should do now that even this place was under attack. Amid the chaos, Daeng stepped forward, drew his sword, and ordered everyone to focus on dealing with the immediate crisis. Outside, the battle intensified as wolves surged in from every direction. One man struggled desperately to hold back a lunging wolf and shouted that their numbers were not decreasing. Daoj demanded to know if support had been requested, but someone replied that all available forces were already deployed, making reinforcements impossible. As the defensive line began to collapse, the wolves continued advancing without end. The white-bearded old man trembled and wondered if this truly marked the end of their generation, only for another voice to rebuke him and demand that he not give up so easily. In the middle of the battlefield, a man sensed something strange and turned, only to be knocked down by a charging wolf. As he struggled beneath it, he braced himself in desperation. Suddenly, one wolf froze, its red eyes shifting as if it had sensed something far more terrifying. The entire pack began to spread out, no longer attacking recklessly but growling uneasily. A warrior holding a spear looked around in confusion and questioned the sudden change. As a sinister presence filled the area, the wolves began to whimper. A cloaked figure stepped forward, and the ground trembled as the beast instinctively retreated. A system notification appeared, stating that Fenrir's armaments had inflicted a fear effect on wolves and monsters. Hyun-soo, clad in iron armor, advanced with overwhelming presence as the wolves recoiled in terror. One large wolf resisted, lowering its body and growling fiercely. Hyun-soo immediately identified it as the boss. The alpha wolf gathered strength, its limbs glowing with blue light, and launched forward with explosive speed. From above, it descended in a direct charge toward him. Hyun-soo calmly reached for the bow he had summoned, energy swirling around him. With precise focus, he fired an arrow straight at the alpha wolf. The projectile struck its head and slammed it into the ground with crushing force. A system message appeared, stating that immense weight had been applied, pinning the enemy down. The alpha wolf lay immobilized, and the rest of the pack immediately lost momentum. Fear spread among them as they hesitated, then began retreating. Many turned and fled entirely, their formation collapsing after a single strike. Two blacksmiths stood frozen, staring at the overwhelming display. After dismissing his armor, Hyun-soo raised his head calmly. From behind, Coulson turned and recognized him, reacting in shock as he asked how he had arrived. Hyun-soo helped him up and explained that he had sent a messenger pigeon earlier. At that moment, the pigeon finally appeared in the sky, and Dai stood holding it with a confused expression. Hyun-soo could only respond with an awkward remark that it had just arrived. Inside the hall, Hyun-soo stood before the sword engulfed in blue flames, and reflected that it felt different from before. As memories surfaced, he questioned whether he had already absorbed it. Coulson confirmed that he had, adding that this situation was new even to them, and that he had wondered whether Hyun-soo had received another message. Hyun-soo considered the possibility that this had occurred because he had delayed his class quest. Suddenly the flames surged, and a quest window appeared, instructing him to prove his achievements. Hyunsu read the notification silently before declaring his accomplishments. He stated that he had crafted a bow infused with immense weight and had won a martial arts tournament. Extending his hand as energy gathered, he continued that he had saved the Sword King and created the first legendary artifact. Standing before the blazing sword, he added that he had crafted a second legendary item and summoned a dragon. The hall erupted in disbelief as people questioned whether such feats were possible. As blue flames enveloped him, the system announced that he had proven his qualifications as the successor of the god of blacksmiths. Some reacted with emotion, expressing relief that their faith had not been misplaced. Others turned away silently, while those closest to Hyunsu changed their attitudes entirely. Coulson smiled brightly and began to speak, but before he could finish, one person suddenly knelt before Hyunsu, followed by everyone else. The sudden gesture caught him off guard. The white-bearded elder knelt respectfully and admitted that they had been wrong to doubt him. Hyunsu responded calmly, saying it was fine and thanking them for believing in him now. The group then declared their loyalty, shouting that they would follow him at the cost of their lives. Hyunsu quickly tried to stop them, insisting that such devotion was unnecessary. However, one person insisted on proving their loyalty, causing Hyunsu to respond with visible frustration as he repeated that it was not needed. The scene abruptly shifted to Rhea's temple. Engulfed in flames during the night, stone pillars cracked as fire spread throughout the structure. Inside, a hooded figure ordered his subordinates to find the saintess, declaring that the rest were expendable. Amid the smoke, two figures hid among the ruins, while a blonde girl stood nearby, clutching her chest in distress. She instructed Belia to escape first. Belia hesitated, urging her to come as well, but before they could move, a hooded man seized the blonde girl and dragged her away. Hidden behind debris, Belia covered her mouth in shock, unsure of what to do. At that moment, a system window appeared before her, announcing a class quest titled Find the Savior. The details revealed it to be an A-rank quest, available only to the Saintess's child, with a reward of divine power and the warning that failure would result in the destruction of the temple. It further stated that both the temple and the Saintess were in danger, and instructed her to find the Savior located in the Tower of Blacksmiths. Belia placed her hand on her chest, her eyes trembling as she realized that the Savior was there. Hyunsu tries to wake everyone up, but before he can properly explain the situation, a sudden system message appears before him. A brand new quest has been triggered. Everyone inside the room immediately becomes confused and shocked. None of them understand what a quest even is, causing them to believe that Hyunsu has received some kind of divine revelation. The atmosphere instantly becomes tense as Hyunsu reads the quest aloud. The mission tells him to become the savior of the Aries Church and prove the continued existence of Asuka. The moment the name of the Aries Church is mentioned, everyone freezes in shock. After all, the Aries Church is known as the most powerful religion on the entire continent. The people quickly realize that whatever is happening is no longer ordinary. However, Hyunsu himself becomes confused, especially about the part mentioning Asuka's continued existence. One of the men inside the room suddenly reacts after hearing the name Asuka. With a shocked expression, he asks Hyunsu if he truly mentioned that name. Hyunsu then reveals that the quest reward is something called Asnium, but surprisingly, none of the others have ever heard of it. That is when someone begins explaining the ancient history behind it. According to old records, Lord Asuka was the first blacksmith, a godlike existence worshipped as the blacksmith god himself. Asnium is said to be a divine mineral personally created by Asuka and infused with holy power. However, in the current era, it is treated as nothing more than a legendary material that may not even exist anymore. After hearing this explanation, one of the people excitedly asks Hyunsu if he can truly obtain real Asnium. Unfortunately, Hyunsu explains that it is only a reward for completing the quest and cannot be obtained immediately. Afterward, Hyunsu asks if anyone knows where he should go, because the quest mentioned that a saintess is currently in danger. However, the others admit that they know very little about the Church of Aries since they rarely interact with them. Suddenly, the door swings open. Another person rushes inside together with a young girl known as the Saintess's child. The moment Hyunsu sees her, he immediately reacts in shock. He blurts out in disbelief that she is the Saintess's child. The story then briefly shifts to a mysterious figure watching everything through a monitor. The man becomes interested after witnessing the situation unfold and realizes that two linked quests have appeared simultaneously. One quest to find the savior, and another quest to become the savior. He also reveals that the AI Aries appears heavily biased toward the Gwangyang Guild. If they successfully recruit Belia, the Saintess child, then their guild could become one of the strongest elite guilds in the game. The scene then returns to Hyunsu. Belia explains that she came because she heard rumors claiming that the savior had appeared there. She formally introduces herself as the successor of the Saintess and a high-ranking official of the Church of Aries. Even though she admits that she is still inexperienced, she explains that she has been assigned to assist the savior. Belia then desperately asks Hyunsu for help in rescuing the Saintess and stopping the evil plans of the Calamity cult. As Hyunsu listens to her speak, he cannot help but think that she feels exactly like an NPC because of how sincere and genuine she sounds. A moment later, Belia asks Hyunsu about his level and class. Hyunsu casually reveals that he is a level 1200 blacksmith. The answer immediately disappoints Belia. She clearly did not expect the savior to be a blacksmith, and compared to the powerful players she imagined, his level also appears unexpectedly low. For a moment, Belia even begins wondering if she found the wrong person. Hinsu notices her worried expression and asks if she is alright. Since he never denied being the savior, Belia eventually decides to trust him anyway, and once again pleads for his help. Hinsu immediately accepts and promises to do everything he can. However, before leaving, he asks an important question. He asks Belia what exactly the Calamity Cult is. Belia becomes shocked that he does not know, but another person quickly steps forward to explain. The Calamity Cult is a dark organization that worships evil beings and has remained hostile toward the Church of Ares for many years. Long ago, during the Holy War, their power was greatly weakened, causing them to disappear from history. Belia confirms the explanation and adds that the Church of Ares focused on rebuilding and relief efforts after the war ended. However, another system message suddenly appears. It reveals that High Priest Jack of the Calamity Cult has created a powerful barrier around the temple. The barrier weakens all divine power within a 5-kilometer radius, making priests, paladins, and believers nearly powerless. Taking advantage of the situation, the Calamity Cult kidnapped the Saintess. Even worse, they are planning to sacrifice her in order to summon the evil god. Everyone inside the room becomes horrified. Several people react in terror after hearing about the evil god. Some even begin fearing that another holy war could begin if the cult succeeds. At that moment, Hyunsu reveals that he also received the same quest. It turns out to be a cooperative mission that requires both him and Belia to work together. Realizing there is no time left, Hyunsu tells Belia that they need to leave immediately and save the Saintess. Belia becomes worried because the road ahead is filled with dangerous wolves, but Hyunsu confidently reassures her. He assures Belia that she does not need to worry because he will not allow the wolves to harm her. The scene then changes to Hyunsu and Belia riding across the wilderness on horseback. Suddenly, another system message appears. They have entered the sanctuary of the wolves. As the horse races forward at full speed, one of the wolves suddenly leaps toward Belia. However, before it can touch her, Hyunsu instantly kicks it away. Strong winds continue blowing around them as they move deeper into the dangerous territory. Hyunsu asks Belia if there is another route to the temple, but she explains that this is the only available path. Moments later, the sound of howling echoes throughout the forest. A massive pack of wolves suddenly appears and begins charging straight toward them. Instead of retreating, Hyunsu calmly decides to fight. Belia watches nervously while thinking to herself that Hyunsu still belongs to a non-combat class and possesses a relatively low level. She wonders if he is pushing himself too hard. Even so, she decides to support him from behind using healing magic. Then, just as the wolves close in, one of the beasts suddenly lunges directly toward Hyunsu's face. Seeing the sudden attack, Belia immediately panics and frantically calls out Hyunsu's name in fear. However, before the beast can even touch him, Hyunsu instantly draws his sword and cleanly slices off the wolf's head in a single strike. Blood splashes across the battlefield as the wolf's body collapses to the ground. The moment the other wolves witness one of their own being killed so easily, the entire pack immediately launches a coordinated attack. However, Hyunsu completely overwhelms them. With unbelievable speed, he rushes across the battlefield and cuts down wolf after wolf, as if they were nothing more than weak monsters. Belia can only stare in complete shock. She cannot believe that someone with a blacksmith class and such an unexpectedly low level is capable of fighting like this. After wiping out the wolves, Hyunsu casually turns toward Belia and asks if she is alright. Belia quickly assures him that she is fine. Hyunsu then tells her that if the situation becomes too dangerous, she should stay back and avoid overexerting herself. However, Belia refuses to retreat. That is when she suddenly notices a scratch on Hyunsu's hand. She assumes it must have happened during the earlier attacks from the wolves. Hyunsu brushes it off and says that the injury is nothing serious, but Belia immediately activates her healing magic. A warm light surrounds Hyunsu's hand, and within seconds, the wound completely disappears. Hyunsu becomes genuinely stunned after witnessing the injury heal instantly. Belia smiles proudly and explains that while she may not be very useful in direct combat, she is extremely confident in her healing abilities. She also reveals that she can provide support buffs as well. Belia promises Hyunsu that she will continue supporting him from behind. Hearing that, Hyunsu smiles and tells Belia that he will be relying on her support. For the first time, the two begin truly working together as partners. A few moments later, Belia casts a buff spell that increases Hyunsu's attack power by 15% for 30 minutes. The moment the buff takes effect, Hyunsu immediately feels the difference. With renewed confidence, he charges toward another group of wolves and activates the Sword King's sword art. Chapter 3, Cry of the Sword. The battlefield instantly erupts into chaos. The wolves are completely unable to keep up with his movements as he tears through them one after another with overwhelming force. Just as Hyunsu begins thinking the battle is finally over, something unexpected suddenly happens. A powerful presence appears nearby. A boss monster has spawned. Hyunsu quickly turns toward the source of the pressure and sees a massive ash wolf, level 212. Its speed is so fast that even Hyunsu becomes shocked. At first, he believes the beast is targeting him. However, in the very next second, the wolf suddenly changes direction and rushes straight toward Belia instead. Belia freezes in fear and desperately calls for Hinshu to save her. Without hesitating for even a moment, Hinshu activates divine crafting. In an instant, he creates a spear. Then, with perfect timing, he throws it directly toward the charging wolf. The spear pierces the beast with incredible force. The wolf lets out a painful scream before crashing violently onto the ground. Not giving it any opportunity to recover, Hinshu immediately follows up with a finishing strike using his sword and successfully kills the boss monster. As the battle ends, a new reward suddenly appears before him. Hyunsu has obtained the Fenrir boots. After calming down, Hyunsu quickly asks Belia if she suffered any injuries. Belia shyly shakes her head while blushing slightly and thanks him for saving her. Then, unexpectedly, tears begin falling from her eyes. She admits that if Hyunsu had not been there, she would have died and failed to save the Saintess. Belia continues sincerely thanking him, but Hyunsu awkwardly brushes it aside and says that it is still too early for gratitude since they have not rescued the Saintess yet. Hearing those words causes Belia to smile. At that moment, she realizes that Hyunsu truly speaks and acts like a real savior. All of the worries she once had about him slowly begin disappearing. Suddenly, another system notification appears. A special event has been triggered. Hyunsu receives a new title called King of the Wolves. Along with the title, he also receives a mysterious egg as a reward. Completely confused, Hyunsu stares at the item and wonders since when wolves started laying eggs. The scene then suddenly shifts elsewhere. A group of knights is currently being overwhelmed by enemies. One of the knights nervously realizes that there are simply too many opponents for them to defeat. Deep inside, he wonders if the Saintess will truly come and save them. At that moment, another knight rushes toward the commander and urgently reports an important discovery. The story then shifts once again. This time, the focus moves to an evil priest named Jack from the Calamity Cult. Inside a dark chamber, Jack drags the captured Saintess toward a massive magic circle on the floor. He forcefully places her at the center of the symbol before cutting her hand and using her blood to activate the ritual. The Saintess demands to know what they are planning to do with her blood. However, instead of properly answering, Jack coldly throws her aside as if she were worthless. Jack then explains that the magic circle is still incomplete. Even so, it is already powerful enough to place a curse on a single target. Through this curse, the Calamity Cult plans to announce to the world that they have finally returned. The Saintess asks why they would use a curse instead of directly attacking. Jack calmly explains that the Goyard Kingdom has maintained strong ties with the Church of Ares for many years, and that fact has always irritated the cult. As the purple magic circle begins glowing brighter and brighter, Jack declares that the great plan started long ago is finally moving once again. He then reveals their true goal. If one of the king's most trusted knights suddenly collapses overnight because of a mysterious curse, the entire world will immediately realize that the Calamity Cult has returned. The chapter ends with the image of a female knight standing before the king as the curse quietly begins taking effect. Without warning, a terrifying wave of malice suddenly appears and shoots directly toward Bella's heart. In the very next moment, Bella violently coughs up blood. King Barad is immediately shocked by what just happened and rushes toward her in panic, asking if she is all right. Even while struggling to breathe, Bella tries to reassure him and says that she is probably just exhausted. However, before she can even finish speaking, her body suddenly collapses. The king desperately calls out Bella's name as the knights around them begin panicking. Realizing that the situation is serious, King Barad immediately commands everyone nearby to summon the royal physicians and priests at once. The scene then shifts to Bella lying unconscious while several priests desperately attempt to heal her. However, even the priests cannot fully understand what kind of illness is affecting her. One of them eventually senses something horrifying hidden inside her body, a powerful malice connected to the Calamity Cult. King Barad's expression instantly darkens. He believed the Calamity Cult had already disappeared long ago, so hearing their name again leaves him both shocked and furious. The king demands to know why the cult would specifically target Bella. Unfortunately, even the priest cannot answer that question. Instead, the king asks the only thing that matters now. He urgently asks whether Bella can still be saved. The priest hesitates before revealing two possible methods. The first is killing the caster responsible for the curse. The second is receiving a direct prayer from the Saintess herself. However, the moment King Barad hears both solutions, he immediately realizes how difficult they are. The Saintess has already been kidnapped, and nobody even knows where the caster is hiding. Even so, the king refuses to give up. He immediately issues a royal decree stating that anyone capable of accomplishing either of those two tasks will receive the title of nobility as a reward. The story then shifts back to Hyunsu and Belia as they continue traveling together while riding wolves. Elsewhere, Ko Ji-hoon and several knights are currently trapped and surrounded by members of the Calamity Cult. Among the frightened civilians is a small girl who nervously approaches Ji-hoon and asks if they will truly be able to return home and see their parents again. Hearing such an innocent question causes Ji-hoon to clench his fists in anger. Even if this world is technically just a game, he cannot stand seeing children become victims of something so cruel. Ji-hoon gently reassures the girl and promises that they will survive and reunite with their families. However, before anyone can calm down, the cult suddenly launches another attack. The enemies scream for everyone to be killed as they rush forward. Ji-hoon immediately steps in front of the civilians and prepares to sacrifice himself in order to buy time for the others to escape. However, during the chaos, the little girl suddenly trips and falls. One of the cult members quickly grabs her and uses her as a hostage. The man threatens the knights and declares that he will kill the child unless they throw down their weapons. Because of his kind nature, Ji-hoon immediately drops his sword without hesitation. However, the cult member never intended to keep his promise. With a cruel smile, he mocks the knights for being fools while preparing to kill the child anyway. The terrified girl bursts into tears and desperately cries for help, while the knights can only watch helplessly. Then suddenly, a spear flies through the air at incredible speed. In an instant, it pierces straight through the cult member's head. Everyone freezes in shock. Even Ji-hoon cannot believe what he just witnessed, because they were never supposed to receive reinforcements. The next moment, the source of the attack finally appears. Hyunsoo and Billia arrive while riding giant wolves. At the same time, the effects of Hyunsoo's new title, King of the Wolves, are finally revealed. Ji-hoon becomes completely stunned. Not only are wolves surrounding Hyunsoo, but they are actually fighting alongside him. One of the knights immediately orders everyone to counterattack, while the enemy formation falls into complete chaos. The battle quickly begins turning in their favor. Soon after, Hyunsoo and Ji-hoon finally reunite. After briefly questioning why they both ended up there, Ji-hoon sincerely thanks Hyunsoo for saving them. However, Ji-hoon still looks confused because the special quest was supposedly limited to priest-type classes only. Hyunsoo explains that he received a related quest instead. He then introduces Bellia as the child of the saintess. The moment Ji-hoon hears that, his eyes widen in shock. He cannot believe that Lady Bellia is safe. Bellia warmly thanks Ji-hoon for helping them escape earlier and shyly explains that she successfully managed to bring the savior with her. Ji-hoon immediately turns toward Hyunsoo with an irritated expression. Out of all people, how did a blacksmith become the savior? Even so, Ji-hoon admits that he feels relieved Hyunsoo is here. Still, he cannot help worrying because the blacksmith class is normally considered a disadvantage in direct combat. Instead of defending himself, Hyunsoo suddenly changes the subject and asks Ji-hoon if he rejected the guild invitation because of this quest. Ji-hoon confirms that it is true. That is when Hyunsoo suddenly proposes a deal. If he helps Ji-hoon successfully clear the quest, then Ji-hoon must join his guild afterward. Hyunsoo confidently declares that while their guild may still be small, their members possess skills second to none. Before Ji-hoon can properly answer, Bellia suddenly steps forward and supports Hyunsoo's words. She explains that she truly believes Hyunsoo is the savior chosen by Ares, and says that joining him would greatly help in rescuing the saintess. The atmosphere becomes awkward for a moment. However, after thinking carefully, Ji-hoon finally agrees. This quest means too much to him, and failure is simply not an option. Hyunsoo then confidently reassures everyone. He declares that they will not fail because he fully trusts his guild. The chapter then shifts to the other members of Hyunsoo's guild. Rissel, Bark, and Nell are shown completely overwhelming members of the Calamity Cult with ease. As they continue fighting, they receive new orders. Their mission is simple: rescue the saintess at all costs. Hyunsoo's guild members arriving at the location he sent them to. They eventually arrive at an abandoned village. The atmosphere feels eerie and quiet, yet strangely nostalgic at the same time. After reaching the exact location, they discover a group of frightened children hiding there. The children immediately become scared after seeing unfamiliar people approach them. However, before the situation can worsen, Hyunsoo suddenly appears and calmly reassures the children. He gently tells them that there is nothing to fear because the people with him are his friends. Ji-hoon, who had already been surprised by Hyunsoo earlier, becomes even more shocked after properly meeting the members of his guild. However, his biggest surprise comes when he realizes that Rissel is actually the same famous Dragon Knight who was recently broadcast throughout the game. After seeing the overwhelming aura surrounding Rissel and the powerful artifacts he carries, Ji-hoon immediately realizes that they are no ordinary players. The guild members then properly introduce themselves one by one: Rissel, Bark, and Nell. After greeting them, Ji-hoon quickly asks whether they already have a solid plan prepared for rescuing the saintess. In response, Nell immediately opens a massive scroll filled with an extremely detailed strategy. She carefully begins explaining the entire operation. According to the plan, Rissel will draw the attention of the Calamity Cult from the front, while the others secretly infiltrate the church through another route. However, there is still one major problem. Because of the powerful debuff cast by Jack, the priests and holy users inside the area cannot fight at full strength. The only ways to remove the debuff are either for Jack to release it himself, or for someone to kill him directly. Unfortunately, defeating Jack will not be easy at all. At that moment, Bellia suddenly interrupts the meeting and reveals that there might be another solution. She explains that the Church of Ares possesses a divine mineral called asnium, a sacred material personally protected by the saintess herself. The moment Hyunsoo hears the name asnium, his interest immediately rises because it is also the reward mentioned in his quest. Bellia continues explaining that weapons forged using asnium possess absolute power against evil energy and dark beings. However, there is still one problem. The asnium has not yet been refined. Hearing that only causes Hyunsoo to smile confidently. After all, refining materials is exactly what a blacksmith specializes in. Not long after, the group finally begins carrying out their plan. Outside the church, hidden within the tall grass near the entrance, the members quietly prepare for battle. Then suddenly, a gigantic dragon appears in the sky. The overwhelming pressure instantly shocks the members of the Calamity cult. Some of them immediately begin panicking, believing that a divine beast has appeared to punish them. Others desperately try to calm everyone down, shouting that they should not fear the enemy because everything they are doing is for the greater good. While all the cultists are distracted by the massive dragon, Hyunsu and the others quietly move through the side paths and sneak toward the church. After successfully infiltrating the area, Belia uses her holy power to search for the saintess's presence. Eventually, they finally locate her. The saintess is unconscious inside a mysterious magic circle filled with dark energy. Seeing her condition, Jihoon immediately rushes forward and attempts to destroy the magic circle using his sword. However, the barrier does not even crack. Instead, the powerful force throws Jihoon backward and injures his hands. Fortunately, the injuries are not too serious. Moments later, the saintess slowly regains consciousness. The first person she sees is Belia. With a weak voice, the saintess asks Belia why she returned instead of escaping safely. She reminds Belia that she was supposed to escape and stay safe. However, Belia refuses to abandon her. She firmly declares that she could never leave the saintess behind like that. The saintess sadly explains that Belia is supposed to become the one who revives the Church of Ares in the future. However, Belia tearfully responds by asking how she could possibly accomplish that while abandoning the saintess. She also explains that she brought people to rescue her. Unfortunately, the saintess reveals a terrible truth. The ritual has already begun. Jack, the priest of the Calamity cult, has already activated the summoning circle meant to call forth the evil god. According to the saintess, once the ritual begins, there is almost no way to stop it anymore. She apologizes once again for making everyone come all this way and urgently tells them to evacuate before it becomes too late. However, Hyunsu suddenly steps forward. He firmly declares that they did not come all this way just to run away. Everyone immediately turns toward him. Hyunsu then reveals that even though it may sound unbelievable, he is the savior chosen by Ares himself. He explains that his mission is to save the saintess. However, in order to accomplish that, he needs the holy mineral asnium currently being protected by her. The saintess hesitates for a moment. She understands that the ritual has already begun, and if it continues, countless innocent people could die. Compared to the lives of so many people, even a holy relic like asnium is no longer more important. After making her decision, the saintess begins gathering the last of her holy power. Using every bit of strength she has left, she starts breaking the barrier surrounding the ritual. At the same time, she warns everyone that the moment the barrier is destroyed, Jack will immediately notice their presence. She tells everyone to prepare themselves. Finally, the saintess hands the asnium over to Hyunsu. However, at that exact moment, Jack suddenly senses the burst of holy power coming from the church. A massive shadow overflowing with dark energy appears behind them. Then Jack himself suddenly emerges. Looking around the room, he quickly realizes that Hyunsu and the others have infiltrated the church. With a cold and furious expression, Jack glares at them and declares that they are nothing more than filthy rats. Without wasting any time, Jihoon immediately charges toward Jack and launches a direct attack. However, the difference in strength is overwhelming. Jack casually blocks the attack with ease before countering with a single powerful blow that sends Jihoon flying across the room and crashing into the corner walls. As Jihoon struggles to stand back up, Jack mockingly tells him that he is far too weak to even think about challenging him. Hyunsu and the others quickly rush over to help Jihoon, but despite being injured, Jihoon refuses their support because of his embarrassment. The scene then shifts back toward Jack and the captured saintess. With a twisted smile, Jack mocks the saintess and says that she should feel honored to become the sacrifice that will summon the evil god into the world. However, despite the situation, the saintess refuses to lose faith. She firmly declares that such a thing will never happen because the god Ares is still guiding them. Hearing that only causes Jack to laugh even harder. With a mocking expression, Jack asks whether she truly believes those so-called rats are the saviors she has been waiting for. To prove his point, Jack suddenly launches an attack directly toward Hyunsu's group. However, before the attack can reach them, Bark instantly steps forward and blocks it completely. Jack becomes slightly amused after realizing that they survived his attack. That is when he notices Rishal riding the massive dragon outside. After realizing that Rishal is their main source of strength, Jack finally begins taking them more seriously. At that moment, the group quickly forms a plan. Rishal, Bark, and Jihoon will hold Jack back, while Hyunsu focuses on crafting the ultimate weapon using the holy mineral asnium. Jack immediately tries to stop them after realizing their intentions, but Bark intercepts him once again and declares that Jack's attention should remain focused on them instead. Jack smiles coldly. In his mind, these people are nothing more than annoying insects that need to be crushed before he deals with the rest. Without hesitation, he unleashes powerful spells toward them and begins attacking the group one after another. Meanwhile, deeper inside the church, Belia and Hyunsu regroup with Nell, who has already prepared a safe location for the crafting process. Everything appears ready. However, the moment Hyunsu begins crafting the weapon, something completely unexpected happens. For the first time ever, the crafting process fails. Hyunsu immediately realizes that a crucial ingredient is missing. The strange part is that he cannot identify exactly what is lacking. This has never happened to him before. The scene then shifts back to the others fighting Jack. Despite their efforts, the gap between them and the evil priest is simply too massive. Jack completely overwhelms them. Rissel, Bark, and Jihoon are slowly pushed to their limits as they desperately try to buy more time for Hyunsu. Back in the crafting area, Hyunsu continues searching for the missing ingredient. Then suddenly, Belia realizes something important. Since they are trying to forge a holy artifact designed to destroy evil, perhaps the weapon itself requires holy power as the final component. Without hesitation, Belia offers her own holy power to Hyunsu. The moment her energy flows into the crafting process, Hyunsu immediately begins forging the weapon once again. At the same time, the battle outside becomes even worse. The three fighters can barely continue standing. Every attack they launch is effortlessly deflected by Jack. Then suddenly, Jack activates a dark spell. Massive shadow spikes erupt from the ground and pierce through the battlefield. The attack completely overwhelms the three warriors, leaving them heavily injured and unable to continue fighting. As they collapse to the ground, it seems as though all hope has finally been lost. Then suddenly, a bright light shines down from above. Jack looks upward and smiles. He believes the light is a sign that the evil god of calamity is about to revive. However, in the very next moment, dark clouds suddenly cover the sky, and then Hyunsu appears. He slowly walks forward while holding a newly forged weapon in his hand. The moment the others see him, relief immediately spreads across their faces. Hyunsu calmly thanks his teammates for holding the line and tells them that from this point onward, he will take over the fight himself. Then suddenly, the atmosphere around him completely changes. Mysterious names begin appearing across the sky. A cosmic, space-like vision opens above them, revealing something that resembles the Milky Way itself. It feels as though spirits sent from the heavens are descending onto the battlefield. The energy of countless constellations begins gathering around Hyunsu's sword as overwhelming divine power erupts from the weapon. The sword radiates a terrifying force created specifically to destroy evil energy. One by one, the constellations shine brightly around Hyunsu as everyone witnesses the birth of a legendary artifact. At that moment, the newly completed four-tiger sword is finally forged. The moment Hyunsu unsheathes the weapon, the spirit of a massive blue tiger appears behind him, radiating overwhelming holy energy that seems ready to devour all evil in its path. For the very first time, fear appears on Jack's face. However, he quickly suppresses it and convinces himself that it is nothing more than a temporary reaction. Even so, after glancing toward the saintess and the activated ritual, Jack realizes that the return of the god of calamity becomes more imminent with every passing second. Refusing to hesitate any longer, Jack immediately launches an attack toward Hyunsu. In his mind, no matter what kind of sword Hyunsu forged, it should not be enough to change the outcome of the battle. However, the moment Hyunsu swings the four-tiger sword, everything changes. The holy power released by the blade instantly weakens Jack's evil energy and completely stuns him for 5 seconds. Jack becomes horrified. He cannot understand what kind of weapon Hyunsu is holding or why it possesses such terrifying power against evil beings. As Jack struggles in shock, Hyunsu calmly explains the true nature of the blade. The sword carries the prayers of kings who wish to protect their people and preserve peace throughout the nation. It is a holy blade of Hojin forged specifically to destroy evil. The moment Hyunsu finishes explaining, he delivers a devastating slash directly toward Jack. The attack becomes the final blow. Jack, the evil priest of the Calamity cult, is finally defeated. With Jack's death, the quest is officially cleared and the saintess is successfully rescued. Immediately afterward, massive rewards begin appearing before Hyunsu. He gains an enormous amount of experience and rises all the way to level 227. Along with the level-up rewards, he also receives a 4 Eminence Stone and a special coat item. After the battle, Hyunsu looks toward the four-tiger sword and assumes that it will soon disappear, because it was only created as an emergency craft. However, something unexpected suddenly happens. The sword does not vanish. Hyunsu becomes completely shocked after realizing that the weapon remains perfectly stable. The saintess then asks him whether this craft feels different from the others. She explains that this time, Belia's holy power was used during the forging process. Hearing that, Hyunsu begins wondering if holy power is the reason the weapon became permanent. At that moment, another system message appears. The notification explains that the four-tiger sword requires holy power in order to remain sustained. Without holy energy continuously supporting it, the weapon will eventually disappear. However, before anyone can properly celebrate, a terrifying dark malice suddenly strikes Hyunsu. The atmosphere instantly changes. It turns out that before dying, Jack secretly cast a curse on whoever killed him. The curse is extremely dangerous, and if it remains untreated, it could eventually spread across the entire continent. Everyone immediately panics. However, the saintess quickly realizes what happened. Understanding that the curse was triggered the moment Jack died, she immediately begins praying to the god Ares in order to save Hyunsu. Then suddenly, an overwhelming holy power descends from the heavens. A massive pillar of divine light surrounds Hyunsu, and completely purifies the curse from his body. The saintess smiles gently, grateful that she was finally able to repay Hyunsu for saving both her and the Church of Ares. Afterward, the saintess sincerely thanks everyone who participated in rescuing her and protecting the order. She then personally guides the group to a place where they can safely rest after the exhausting battle. However, later that night, Belia quietly approaches the saintess because she has something important she wishes to discuss. Before their conversation is revealed, the scene suddenly shifts elsewhere. The story moves to the game watchers observing everything from outside. They are completely shocked that the Gwangmyeong Guild managed to clear another extremely high-level quest once again. The watchers then begin discussing the divine skill the saintess used on Hyunsu. The skill is called Saintess's Grace. According to them, only the saintess herself can use that ability, and she can only activate it twice during her entire life. After hearing this, the watchers begin wondering how much the game world will change after everything that just happened. The scene then returns to the conversation between Belia and the saintess. Belia reveals something that completely shocks the saintess. The saintess stares at her in disbelief and asks Belia if she truly understands that making such a choice could cause her to lose everything. Inside a quiet bedroom where Hyunsu is peacefully sleeping after the intense battle against the Calamity cult. A few moments later, he slowly wakes up in confusion. At first, he cannot properly remember what happened. However, the memories of the final battle suddenly rush back into his mind, including the curse attack that struck him before he lost consciousness. Hyunsu immediately becomes alert and instinctively prepares himself for another fight, believing that Jack might somehow still be alive. However, after looking around the room, he quickly realizes that he was simply overthinking the situation. Everything is already over. Just as he begins calming down, someone suddenly knocks on the door while softly calling his name. It is Belia. She politely asks if she can come inside, and Hyunsu allows her to enter the room. The moment the door opens, Hyunsu sees Belia carrying food for him. While setting the meal down, Belia shyly reveals that there is something she has been curious about regarding Hyunsu. However, before asking her question, she hands him a special item. It is a hidden art of the god Ares himself. According to Belia, the saintess personally decided that Hyunsu should become its rightful owner. The moment Hyunsu opens it, he immediately realizes that it contains an incredibly powerful skill. After obtaining the hidden art, Hyunsu sincerely thanks them. Belia then returns to the question she originally wanted to ask. She becomes curious about the guild Hyunsu is leading and asks him whether being part of the guild is enjoyable. Her question completely catches Hyunsu off guard. He never expected Belia to ask something like that, causing him to wonder what she truly wants to know. Eventually, Hyunsu stops Belia and points out that she has been asking too many indirect questions. Instead, he asks her to honestly reveal what she truly wants. After hesitating for a moment, Belia finally reveals the truth. She wants to join Hyunsu's guild. The moment Hyunsu hears that, he immediately accepts with happiness. He tells Belia that he would gladly welcome someone as talented as her into the guild. However, Hyunsu suddenly remembers something important. As the child of the saintess, Belia is deeply devoted to the Church of Ares, so he wonders whether leaving the church like this is even allowed. Belia calmly explains that she already received permission from the saintess herself. The story then briefly shifts into a flashback. Earlier, the saintess had asked Belia whether she truly understood what this decision meant. She warned Belia that leaving could cost her everything. Even so, Belia confidently answered that she was already prepared for it. She explained that even if she leaves, her heart will always remain with the Church of Ares. After hearing her determination, the saintess finally approves her decision. The saintess then gently explains that while a bird inside a cage may appear beautiful, a bird is truly happiest when it can freely fly across the open sky. She tells Belia to use her talents wherever they are truly needed, and says that Lord Ares would likely feel the same way. The saintess also reveals that she sensed incredible potential within Hyunsu. In her eyes, he possesses the qualities of someone who could one day become a holy ruler. Because of that, she decides to let Belia follow her own path, while still promising that Belia will always remain her successor no matter what happens. The flashback then comes to an end. Back in the present, Hyunsu becomes curious and asks why the saintess suddenly wanted to see him again when the Calamity cult had already been defeated. Belia then leads him toward another room. When they quietly open the doors, they see the saintess praying alone. Not wanting to interrupt her, Hyunsu thinks they should leave and return later. However, the saintess calmly tells them that she has already finished praying. She then reveals the reason she called Hyunsu there. The saintess wishes to personally bestow a blessing upon him. Moments later, Hyunsu receives the saintess blessing, gaining divine power from her holy protection. After giving him the blessing, the saintess asks Hyunsu about the emergency crafted sword he created during the battle. Hyunsu then shows her the four-tiger sword. However, once again, he becomes confused because the sword still has not disappeared, despite originally being a temporary craft. The saintess then explains what happened while Hyunsu was unconscious. During that time, she infused the sword with her holy power. Because of that, the four-tiger sword has now transformed into a true holy relic, overflowing with divine energy. After explaining everything, the saintess asks Hyunsu for a favor. She wishes to receive permission to officially recognize the sword as a holy relic of the Church of Ares. The moment Hyunsu hears those words, he becomes completely stunned. He realizes that the sword he personally forged is about to become an official holy relic of the Church of Ares itself. Hyunsu deeply thinking about what he should do with the four-tiger sword. Part of him wants to keep it for himself, while another part of him considers reforging or even selling it in the future. However, after thinking carefully, Hyunsu realizes something important. A holy artifact personally forged by him being admired and worshipped by countless people would also become a great honor for him as a blacksmith. In the end, Hyunsu decides to grant the Saintess's request, and officially allows the four-tiger sword to become a holy relic of the Church of Ares. The moment he agrees, Saint Arya becomes genuinely happy. As gratitude for everything Hyunsu has done, she gives him the remaining fragments of asnium, the divine mineral created by the blacksmith god himself. Hyunsu becomes completely overwhelmed because despite already receiving countless rewards from the Saintess, she continues giving him even more. This time, however, Hyunsu finally gets the chance to properly examine the asnium. The moment he does, he immediately realizes that the material is far more powerful than he originally expected. But Saint Arya is still not finished rewarding him. She tells Hyunsu that as long as it remains within her authority, she is willing to grant any wish he desires. At that moment, Hyunsu suddenly remembers the letter he received from King Barad. Because of that, he immediately asks Saint Arya if she can grant his request right away. The story then shifts toward the royal castle. Inside the throne room, the Marquis of Robrook arrives together with two nobles. The moment they enter without permission, King Barad becomes furious and questions whether they have any manners at all. The Marquis quickly apologizes before explaining the reason for their visit. One of the nobles then suddenly brings up the condition of Sir Bella, the knight who is cursed and still remains unconscious. The noble coldly claims that the king should already appoint a new successor because Bella may never recover from the curse. He continues by saying that someone lying unconscious cannot continue carrying the future of the kingdom on her shoulders. Although the Marquis interrupts and says the words are too harsh, he still admits that the noble has a point. The royal palace stood beneath an atmosphere of uneasy tension. Yet despite its beauty, the hall felt suffocating as nobles exchanged nervous glances and whispers spread throughout the crowd. But it was the presence of Saintess Arya that caused the greatest commotion. The appearance of the kingdom's holy maiden immediately convinced everyone that something important was unfolding. Several days earlier, King Barad had been working alone in his study when an urgent secret letter arrived. The message revealed that assassins had infiltrated the castle and that Bella's life was in danger. Rather than reacting with panic, Barad recognized the situation as an opportunity. If handled correctly, the attack could expose and cripple his political enemies. The assassins acted sooner than expected. Under the cover of darkness, they infiltrated the palace and launched their attack against Bella, a noblewoman whose survival carried enormous political significance. Her death would have dramatically shifted the kingdom's balance of power. However, the assassination attempt ended in complete failure. The palace became a battlefield littered with bodies and broken weapons as the attackers were eliminated before they could achieve their objective. After the battle, King Barad looked down upon the defeated assassins without sympathy. Viewing the attack as pathetic, he ordered that the severed head of one of the attackers be sent to Pramkum. Everyone present immediately understood the true meaning behind the command. It was not merely punishment but a direct warning to the individuals responsible for orchestrating the assassination attempt. The king wanted them to know that their actions had been discovered. Meanwhile, several nobles grew increasingly anxious. The failed assassination itself was not their greatest concern. Their true problem was Hyunsu. Time and time again, the young blacksmith had interfered with their plans and continued earning achievements that increased both his influence and reputation. If his rise continued, their own political power would eventually crumble. Sensing their unease, King Barad made his move. He publicly acknowledged that Hyunsu had to save the life of one of the kingdom's most important nobles. Surrounded by witnesses including Saintess Arya, royal guards, and court officials, the nobles could not deny the truth. Reluctantly, they admitted that they owed Hyunsu a tremendous debt of gratitude. That admission was exactly what Barad had been waiting for. Using their own words against them, he argued that such service deserved an appropriate reward. Only then did the nobles realize they had walked directly into the king's trap. Before anyone could object, King Barad elevated Hyunsu to the rank of baronet. The announcement shocked the entire throne room. A common blacksmith with no noble blood had been granted noble status. Yet the king was not finished. As part of the reward, Hyunsu was placed in charge of the territory of Araham. To most people, Araham appeared to be a worthless frontier region plagued by monsters and hardship. Experienced nobles, however, immediately recognized the king's true intentions. Once again, Barad had successfully outmaneuvered them and strengthened Hyunsu's position while advancing his own plans. Later that night, the atmosphere shifted completely. Inside Bella's room, moonlight illuminated her frail figure as she rested in bed, while Saintess Arya and Hyunsu remained by her side. When Bella finally regained consciousness, relief filled her eyes upon seeing Hyunsu. He informed her that the curse tormenting her had been removed. The revelation left her stunned, believing there was no hope of salvation. Yet despite hearing the good news, she could not bring herself to celebrate. Bella understood that although the curse was gone, the damage inflicted by the calamity's dark energy remained. Believing that she could no longer serve the king properly, she resigned herself to what she saw as her inevitable decline. With sadness and acceptance in her heart, she entrusted Hyunsoo with the responsibility of protecting King Barad in her place. Hyunsoo immediately rejected the idea and reminded Bella that she was the king's sword. Those words seemed to enlighten her. He further explained that she should not cast aside either her loyalty or King Barad's feelings. He then questioned what would happen if she abandoned King Barad once again. Bella replied that she understood and had no intention of giving up so easily. Hyunsoo then handed her a handkerchief and reminded her that she also needed to take care of herself. At that moment, Bella finally broke down and admitted that she did not want to die. As tears filled her eyes, she noticed a beautiful woman nearby and asked who she was. Before anyone could answer, the saintess placed her hand above Bella's head and cast holy magic, leaving Bella completely shocked. A few days later, the scene shifted to the Vatican of the Order of Aries. The saintess could be seen speaking with someone who complained about the chaos caused by the Calamity cult. He pointed out that the child of the saintess had been allowed to leave and that a holy relic of the order had even been designated without proper discussion. He argued that even a saintess could not make such important decisions entirely on her own. The man was soon revealed to be Karsel, the 16th Pope of Aries. Karsel then apologized for speaking so bluntly, while Hyunsoo replied that there was no need for concern. Shortly afterward, Karsel requested permission to inspect the relic. However, the moment Karsel examined the sword, he froze in shock. His reaction left both Hyunsoo and the saintess confused, especially when they noticed his hands trembling uncontrollably. The saintess then apologized for making such a hasty decision regarding the relic. Karsel did not deny her statement. Instead, he suddenly shouted that the sword was indeed a genuine relic of Aries, leaving both of them stunned. Karsel then asked how much reward had been promised to Hyunsoo. The saintess replied that the matter of compensation had not yet been discussed. Hearing that, Karsel immediately declared that Hyunsoo should be rewarded generously for his achievement. Moments later, a notification appeared announcing that Hyunsoo's creation had officially been designated as a holy relic of Aries. Another notification quickly followed, stating that the wolf's egg was pleased. The message left Hyunsoo confused as he wondered what exactly the wolf's egg was. The scene then shifted to an unknown location where an elderly man was reading a message sent by King Barad. The old man was furious and demanded to know which fool had attempted the assassination without his permission. However, his anger soon faded into a smile as he became curious about the outsider blacksmith who had forged King Barad's sword. It was then revealed that the elderly man was Ben of the Azure Sky, the king of the Priam Kingdom. The scene shifted inside the palace. As Hyunsoo knelt before the king, King Barad officially announced that he was granting Hyunsoo the title of baronet. Hyunsoo expressed that he was deeply honored as he rose to his feet. A system window popped up, notifying him that he had been appointed as a baronet of the Goyard Kingdom. Another system window followed, indicating that he may now lead and command soldiers. The king called out to Hyunsoo and expressed his gratitude for everything Hyunsoo had done for him, Bella, the people, and Goyard. He urged Hyunsoo to continue doing his best to protect the kingdom and the world, then excused himself, mentioning that he had a meeting to attend. A system pop-up appeared, revealing that by achieving great feats he could be hailed as the next monarch of Aries. This shocked Hyunsoo. He thought to himself that he had been offered the chance to become a monarch, and wondered whether that truly meant he could become a king. Bella then called out to Hyunsoo and told him that her life had begun anew thanks to him. A system pop-up appeared, indicating that Bella's affection had reached its maximum. Another system pop-up followed, stating that the night Bella now holds another son within her heart. The scene shifted to the real world, where Hyunsoo sat with a doctor. The doctor instructed him to make a fist. Hyunsoo struggled to grip the gripper and admitted that it was harder than it looked. The doctor explained that since there was nerve damage, it would take some time to recover, and reassured him that it was just the beginning and that he would see improvement soon. Hyunsoo replied that he hoped so and told the doctor he was counting on him. The scene shifted to the outside of the hospital. Hyunsoo thought to himself that the rewards from the Pope had been generous enough to cover all of his medical bills, and that the doctor had also confirmed his father's condition was stable. He reminded himself that since it was just the start, he needed to focus on his rehabilitation. He reached for the sky while looking up and told himself that before his right hand fully recovered, he should get used to using his left hand. The scene shifted in-game, specifically inside the forge where Hyunsoo sat at the table. He thought to himself that during the last raid, Uncle Bark and Lord Richel had taken heavy damage while covering for them, and that if only he could have tanked some of that damage, they would not have been hurt so badly. Remembering something, he pulled out a coat and noted that the coat had been quite useful. The coat was a calamity of unique rarity. He stated that if he fully repaired it, he could be of more help to his guildmates. He activated God's customized repair and told himself that he would enhance the functions he needed and remove the ones he did not. A system pop-up appeared, confirming that God's customized repair had been started. He reminded himself to focus, as focus was exactly what he needed. After finishing the crafting, a system window popped up, reading that you will protect your comrades, resonating with the blacksmith's authority. Another popped up, stating that the Calamity coat had been upgraded to the Monarch's coat. Hyunsoo grabbed it and suggested giving it a try, proposing a test run. The scene shifted to outside the shop where Nell appeared. She stated that she needed to talk to Hyunsu right away and announced her arrival, but Hyunsu suddenly shouted the command Monarch Order. A system window popped up confirming that Monarch Order had been activated. Nell observed Hyunsu doing some Darth Vader stuff. Monarch's order freely control all objects within a 50-meter radius using psychokinesis for 12 seconds. Nell's eyes widened as she called out his name and asked how he had done that. Hyunsu, startled, asked when she had arrived, and the objects he had been levitating came crashing down. He explained that it was an effect from an artifact he had repaired. Nell asked in disbelief whether skills like that actually existed, and pointed out that with that power they could execute Uncle Bark's Big Bang strategy, Lord Richel's Water Sprout strategy, or Hyunsu could even craft 30 items at once. Hyunsu then asked what had brought her there. Nell congratulated Hyunsu on becoming a noble, and Hyunsu thanked her. Nell told him that now that he was a noble, it was time to set some new goals. Hyunsu asked what kind of goals she had in mind. Nell outlined that first he needed to recruit his own private soldiers, and second, he needed to secure a territory and become a lord. Hyunsu, flustered, asked whether he could really become a lord. Nell admitted it would be hard to become a lord right away, which Hyunsu had already predicted, and he expressed a disappointed expression. She added, however, that it was possible if he could achieve something the kingdom recognized or by raising his own rank. Hyunsu acknowledged that it would not be easy. Nell comforted him by pointing out that compared to other guilds, their guild held the record for the fastest growth with such high combat power. Nell then asked Hyunsu to show her the quest he had received when he became a baronet. Hyunsu pulled up the system window. The quest read, Kingdom Quest Subjugation Captain, Ranked A. The objective was to go to Araham territory on the outskirts of the Goyard Kingdom and meet Commander Philip. The reward was 3 soldiers, and the failure penalty was being stripped of the title. Nell noted that this quest appeared to be given to everyone who became a noble, but added that the grade of soldiers received depended on his achievements, so he should proceed carefully. Hyunsu acknowledged this. Hyunsu then suddenly remembered something and asked Nell to take a look at something. He pulled out an egg and told her it was a wolf's egg he had obtained from hunting the gray wolf a while back. Nell identified it as a pet egg. When Hyunsu asked what might be inside, Nell replied that she was not sure but mentioned that they usually resembled the creature that had dropped the egg. She added that she had a feeling something cute was going to hatch. Suddenly the egg moved, shocking them both. Nell shouted at Hyunsu, telling him that the egg was about to hatch.